everybody, and welcome to a new episode
Hello,
of
everybody,
the
and
MinnMax
welcome.
Show.
Welcome to
My name is Ben Hanson, and everyone else can keep it down. I'm joined here by Haley MacLean.
What?
I'm joined by Janet Garcia. Janet's here. She refuses to talk. There we go. Kyle Hilliard's here.
Astro Bot.
Jacob Geller's here.
I'm here.
And if you're new, we are going to quiz you on whose voice is whose if you're just listening to the audio version. So look alive, because Kelsey Lewin's here.
Should we just say our names every once in a while to remind people, like, as Kelsey?
I honestly, for
here.
podcasting,
Like a Pokemon.
that would actually be helpful. Yeah. It's like Pokemon, but you have to start and end every sentence with your name.
I'm going to say stuff like, as Haley, I really think Manor Lords deserves a spot in the top 10. And as a lawyer, here are the reasons why.
And don't be confused, that voice was Sarah Podzorski. We also have Jeff Marchiafava here.
Haley.
Oh, sorry. Jeff's here as well.
Boy.
I'm here as
And
well.
Leo is the final frontier.
Hello, from Leo's perspective.
That's right. Welcome, everybody. This is the grand finale of the 210s. This is our big Game of the Year debate. If this is the first MinnMax video you've ever clicked on, thank you. Sound off in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. But this is kind of part 3 of us celebrating the year in gaming for 2024. We had the MinnMax Awards. We had building the list. We trimmed the list to the top 20. We would say the 210s for 2024. And this episode is all about ranking them. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'd appreciate that. Small click for you. Huge thing for us. Or you can always subscribe to the audio version. It's free on your favorite podcast app. But if you're listening to the podcast version, you want the video version to see the list and all that fun stuff, you can jump over there to youtube.com/MinnMax. We appreciate it. We're building the list. We're going to check it twice. This is the whole thing, everybody. Again, as we mentioned last time, this is not perfect. This is not a science. All we can do is measure our passion. We're measuring passion on this list. That's the best we can do. We can't take the industry at wide into account. And yes, we will do things and make decisions that you will disagree with. We're not going to stop the presses when that happens. If you say, this is outrageous, okay, I got a better use of your time. How about you leave a comment on the YouTube video ranking your top 10 videos of 2024. You let us know what you love.
Is coming out swinging today.
Just leave that comment with your top 10. It's helpful. I think it's fun. We all like top 10s. You can check out our Patreon site. We have a public page with all of our top 10s.
And I dunk on it. I'm like, what? Who would write this list?
Who would have that opinion?
And that's
We get our turn in the comments section.
That's right. And this is going to be a civil debate. We all agree. We respect each other. But if you're at the $10 tier, the Backstage Pass tier at patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's, you get access to the unedited version of this, where after the recording, we launch each other into a world of piss that we call the pissy zone, where we really let each other have it. So if you say this is too civil, well, ask somebody who's at the $10 tier how civil this thing's going to be by the end of it. It's going to be interesting. And yes, I hear you in the comments about all the people and games that we forgot about last time around. Like, where was Space Marine 2? I also lost some sleep thinking about games like, oh God, they didn't even get on the big list. But I don't think they would have made it, based on our collective passion, to the 210. So I'm feeling good about where we're at right now. And where we're at right now, unranked, but from the bottom up right now, we have
Almost alphabetical.
Oh my God.
The first 3 anyway.
We have
UFO 57.
Good job, everyone.
Yeah, we really did it. Okay, from the bottom up, we have Diceomancer. Diceomancer, The Finals, Mouthwashing, Starstruck. The Finals? Mouthwashing? This is a kid's nightmare. Starstruck, Hands of Time. We can all pause for jokes at any point if we want. Mini Shoot Adventures, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, Manor Lords, Indica.
Manners. Kids hate those too.
That's right. Kunitsugami, Path of the Goddess.
Good game.
Okay. Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown, Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth, Metaphor, Refantasio, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Infinity Nikki, UFO 50, Lorelei and the Laser Eyes, Helldivers 2.
I did really want those when I was a kid.
That's right. Balatro, Astro Bot, 1000 times Resist. That is where we're at for the 210s at this moment. There are things we might have forgotten on this list. And Charles Hart, video editor here at MinnMax, who helps us out throughout the year, has made a couple great travelogues. We sent him this list and we said, Sir Charles Hart, what did we forget of all the things? And he said, you fools. I'll see you in the YouTube comments. He says, with the power vested in me by the MinnMax community as a cohort, with his last name, very cute, Charles, I select Arco. as my honorary 210s pick. Its turn-based combat is super unique. Its range of playable characters reinvented my understanding of it at the start of each act. Its music and visuals add so much to the aesthetic by making a few small choices with huge impact. I especially appreciate how the tiny character models make the world feel much larger. But most of all, it tells an exceptional story about revenge, colonialism, and the grief that I'll be thinking about for years to come. The ending of Act 4, if you know, you know, was one of my favorite moments of the year. Play Arco, says Charles Hart. Hell yeah. Thank you, Charles.
Unfortunately, none of us know.
That's right.
No one beat it.
That's how it goes. All right. We have the big list. You know, I'm open to debate, interpretation. That's what this is all about. But I see you all are ahead of me. We have divided this into the upper 10 and the lower 10. The cool group and the reject pile. Forget the pile of other rejects below
The
it.
games you should play, the games you should not play. No, absolutely not. These
So
are all
this,
good.
I think this is probably the cleanest way to go is to figure out like what feels like it's in an odd spot for upper group
May I propose
versus bottom group.
a swap on my part? May I propose a swap? I will negotiate
Okay.
swapping Mouthwashing for Infinity Nikki.
Wow, a
I
self
think Mouthwashing
swap.
needs to be in the top 10.
Wow.
And that is my swap.
Putting
I
up your own game in the swap. Bold move.
yeah, I feel great about that personally. How's everybody else feeling about it?
That feels good.
Make that trade right now.
Okay, well, good, because we're doing it right now. All right, I just threw Infinity Nikki down, but you know, it's all flexible. It's all movable at this point. Okay, that sounds good. Anybody else have a self-owned, self-swap, something they champion that feels like this is off? I don't know if that should be where it's currently
I've got a
sitting.
cell phone. I love Helldivers 2, and I think most people here do, but I think probably Metaphor Refantazio is better off in that number 4 spot.
Oh, I was just
Then
talking
it
about
ga-
like top to bottom list, but that's open.
I was thinking the same thing, Kelsey, though. Helldivers 2 does feel just too high, even as a game.
It's this high on my
like.
list. It's even higher on my list, but that feels like a just me thing.
Okay, I'm
I
gonna
might
just
swip swap it for Indica, personally.
okay. So
Oh.
Indica
That's
moving up,
interesting.
and then Helldivers moving down. This is all loosey goosey. This could not be more loosey and or goosey. Thanks everybody for
Are we just
clearing
doing
this
quick
up.
random swaps?
Just saying top to bottom.
What feels comfy?
what feels comfy, especially if it's your own thing. You know, one that you champion that feels like this is a little bit off. And chat is pointing out that we all have cell phones. That's a very good point. Thank you, Backstage Pass chat.
I could see Lorelei and the Laser Eyes being lower than 4.
I agree.
because Kyle and I love it, but I still love it in the
this
top
is
10.
why
I like it too.
This is why I wasn't
Yeah.
talking, because
I agree, Lorelei.
I want all this stuff
Lorelei.
in the
I'm
top.
getting in front
Too
of
high.
it. So
What
we
about
can
just-
get it higher than
No.
10, but not lower. You know what I mean? We can
Mark.
get it pretty high.
Someone in chat says swap Prince for Rebirth.
Prince for Rebirth. Prince of
We're
Persia
going
for
for
Rebirth.
cell
do the
phone, so
swap.
it's gonna let Ben bring up Rebirth.
Yeah, if it's only self stuff, I'm like,
It's
I
it's
like
interesting.
all of my games. Who
The
would have
top
thought?
bucket
I'm like, I think
versus-
they look fine.
Lower bucket. All right, noted. I like that spot for Rebirth. It's currently
Noted?
sitting at number
Interesting.
8.
Disregarded?
Not disregarded. Just wondering.
Not instantly doing it the way you did with the other suggestions.
Yeah, that's interesting. Though.
There's probably way more support
And this
for
wasn't
doing
even
it
us.
than
This
with
was
some
the
of other
community.
games.
And are we not
Well,
a community-based
I do
company?
think there are two
Okay.
RPGs right below it that belong above it.
Okay, all right. So we have
Yeah,
we have
that's also
Rebirth
true.
down. We have
A lot
Rebirth
of
down.
truth telling is going on. UFO 50 could be
Should be
too
higher. I agree. Yeah,
I'm
we should
curious
definitely.
because
move
that is one where we've got really hot people, and last I heard, people who are not so hot.
Yeah, main reason people didn't like it because it didn't have enough hot people in it. I think was a main complaint.
Well, check out Fist Helm.
I kind of
Like how Waldorf's journey.
yeah. What about y'all? Instead of bumping stuff down, what if we celebrate the world? Does
Great
anything
idea.
in that bottom 10 feel like? Of course, that deserves a spot in the upper 10.
In the break since last time, I checked out Diceomancer. Not that much, but I played it. Cool game, and really, really pretty. Like I love
It
the
is.
art. style.
Really?
The screenshots don't do it justice because it's all like hand animated, and that's you got to see it moving. And thank you, Leo. I appreciate
very cohesive, cool, hand-drawn, like everything wiggling, and yeah, the dice replacing the numbers, the core gimmick of you can change any number on screen, like the enemy's health or the damage they're about to do or how many points they have in their buff stacks or whatever. It's like gets scribbled out and replaced in such a cool way.
Yeah, I mean,
welcome to the freak pit with me.
Yeah, I feel like
Leo lives there. What do you mean welcome?
In that freak pit,
you joined him. If anything.
In my mind, I feel like Infinity Nikki, the finals, and Diceomancer are similar ones. You know, Infinity Nikki's got some other champions in addition to Sarah, so I think that's probably topper of the heaper. But when thinking about like where all these things could be,
I like just calling it the freak pit.
Yeah.
Freak pit. Freak pit.
Yeah. Well, then it's fun to be in it.
My champion to get out of the freak pit, despite its art direction, is I actually would push for Kunitsugami. I really
upper 10
a lot. I would swap it with Prince of Persia myself.
Whoa, really?
Yeah.
That's surprising to hear. Prince of Persia fans?
I think there's freakier games in the top 10 if we want to make the bottom 10 the freak pit.
I really like Prince of Persia. And I like Kunitsugami more, but like Kunitsugami feels more of like this is a great, cool game that I'm glad that it came out, versus Prince of Persia being like, this is one of those solidly designed games I've ever played.
Yeah. I played some Kunitsugami the other night after we talked about it, and it's not for me.
Ooh, okay.
It starts really slow, which is like not really a great defense of a game, but like the first couple levels are pretty boring.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't finished either, but I certainly think Prince of Persia is, I think it's a better game from what I've played, but the people who've played it both.
That's why these arguments are so tough, because I have nothing like negative to say about Prince of Persia. It's just emotionally, right. I was like, I think Kunitsu just so surprised me so much. Where so I'm okay with Prince being where it is. I like Prince a lot, but I think it is higher on my personal list. Kunitsugami versus Prince of Persia.
Okay,
is it a part of the conversation for anybody else? The Metroidvania-ness of Prince of Persia. It's like the two of them as their two genres. Like I prefer what Kunitsugami is so much more.
Yeah, that's true.
And I'm kind of like a begrudging Metroidvania fan, because I've played a lot of them growing up. And yeah, I don't know anyone who's happy about liking Metroidvania. So let's just get out of the way.
They're out there.
But I think like Prince of Persia is one of. Yeah, but Kyle, we all look within.
Yeah, come on, Kyle. What have you become?
I think Prince of Persia is like one of the greatest Metroidvanias in that it made an interesting Metroidvania that isn't just about getting lost. I think so many Metroidvanias you spend hours just not knowing where to go, and I think navigationally it's so strong. Like this game really feels like the Metroidvania for Metroidvania haters. So that's, I guess, my pushback on that aspect of it. Like I get that Metroidvania is definitely a tried and true, a little bit of like, we're all a little collectively sick of these, right? But this one is one that I'd recommend even to people that don't like that formula, because I think it fixes so many of the problems, which some people would say they're not problems, they're traditions. I think some of those traditions are problematic in the design of classic Metroidvanias.
I've made this sort of like, it's a joke, but like I'm serious. Is like people use this with Ghibli. They say, "Oh, it looks very Ghibli-esque," and it becomes a term. It's just an alternate word for good. That's how I feel about Metroid-inspired games. It's good design. Like I don't think it's a bad word. I think it's just a well-designed video game that like. So I don't know. I won't apologize for being a fan of the genre. I'm sorry. Everybody.
You're gonna have to live on air. Sorry, Kyle.
Well, you just did apologize though, so that's confusing.
Kyle, I won't apologize.
I'm sorry.
How long into this episode did it take for someone to say, and I will not apologize? No, that's fair. I do think they are cool.
Can I make a counterpoint to this is a game for people who don't like Metroidvanias?
Sure.
Or Metroidvania for people who don't like that? Helldivers 2 is a shooter for people who don't like shooters.
Yeah, I think Helldivers 2 needs to get off that bottom list. Kelsey and I really both were like, maybe it should be at like 8, and then it was moved to 12.
Right. Yeah.
I also am down for Helldivers to go up. I also agree with that assessment, Kelsey. Like, I played a good amount of Helldivers and really liked it. It's the most I've liked a multiplayer shooter since Splatoon, which I know they seem like very different games, but they're actually the same once you unlock the laser, which I love, because I can't aim at all in shooters, or I don't feel very capable in games like that. I also feel like so often the goals feel like obfuscated in a way that I can never wrap my head around. I feel like Helldivers 2 feels like almost that perfect blend of arcadey energy with also places for skill to shine. And I think it hits that balance really nicely, where it's one of the rare times where I feel like really anyone can have fun with it without needing to be super comfortable in the space, which I think is sold a lot when a game like that is good. But often, as someone that is that, it's like, this isn't as accessible as you thought it was. I don't know what's going on. But Helldivers, I think, was super, super cool. And you can hug your friends in that game, which is fun.
Very few
what
games.
What would you swap it for? We got to talk swaps, right?
I think naturally it'll bump some things down.
I would drop Indica down, but I didn't really want to bring that up because I'm kind of like the Indica hater that loves the story kind of vibe. And it wasn't my game that I put up, but that's Indica and UFO 50 are the ones that I'm kind of personally glancing at. Maybe Mouthwashing.
I feel like Indica feels great for a bottom
Indica,
list.
but I would swap it in a second for Helldivers.
Yeah, me too. That seems like the tone of the conversation from last time. Indica's like so profound and cool and important to me, but it seems like for the group, it makes sense on the bottom 10.
Yeah.
But I guess you can have your big alien shoot game there.
Yeah.
It's so easy for me to make that trade because I love Helldivers 2 as well, and I respect so much of what that game does.
Also,
Even
unrelated.
like the granular control stuff, it is doing like uniquely good feeling stuff.
I was dead like going onto Steam, like I forgot what I was playing at the time, but I saw Leo playing the finals, and I'm like, damn, Leo's still playing these games. That's crazy.
Yeah, no, he won't stop.
Like, he really likes these games. And then you had another one that you had, the Samurai one as well. I'm like, yeah, Leo's still down. I saw you playing that last night.
Shogun Showdown, I was like, I hope it comes up at some point today, because I just want to say one more time, it doesn't have to be on here. Please check out Shogun Showdown. That game is amazing. I love it so much.
That's a good reminder.
And the finals, I got my Steam review today. It was like 33% of my playtime was the finals this year.
Oh my God.
That's crazy.
Yeah, Helldivers 2, I really enjoyed it when I first played it, and then just the other night, I got some friends together to play and jump back into it. And it was just one of those things of like, it was their first time playing it, and just like everyone's reception was like, this game rules. And for a genre that I feel like we've had a fair number of these at this point of like, co-op, not exactly mindless, but just co-op, you shoot a lot of things. Like for this game to pop as hard as it did, like especially amongst this group, like Kelsey, I mean, when was the last time you were like this into a shooter period? Third person, first person, anything.
If you count Splatoon 2. If you don't count Splatoon, Left 4 Dead.
Exactly. Yes. Okay. That is the achievement level for Helldivers 2.
Splatoon stands unite. Let's go.
Yeah,
it's finally coming in handy.
It's so impressive that it's like we've had a lot of games that kind of try to imitate Left 4 Dead. Of like it's a PvE shooter that you can play with your friends, and Helldivers just has such a sense of style and individuality that all of those, I mean, I beat Back 4 Blood for some reason, and like not only was that game kind of mediocre in general, but just like when I think about like the stylistic choices it was making versus Helldivers, where it's like Helldivers has like literally once per mission I will think like this could be the cover image of the game, of just like the scene that it is presenting me with, where it's like, dense fog and like a moon shining through it and like robots with red eyes walking out of it. It's just like, it's very rare for a game that is this kind of chaotic and crazy and meant to be replayed to also just deliver style in such like quantities. It really is impressive.
And then it makes friendly fire a factor in such a unique way, like part of the personality. It's a part of other games, but here it's like the joke. Like Kelsey brought it up for best thing of crushing things with Hellbots. I thought of it for just like in general friendly fire and Helldivers 2 as a best thing for this year, because it adds so much to the style, to the sense of humor, and to just how physical everything feels when you're in it.
I know, it's
such just being like overly sanitized.
I guess that's what like Dragon's Dogma in that way of like going back on some design lessons we thought we learned, and it turns out no, actually if it's the right game you can have something like Friendly Fire and it's just somehow a blast. But like on the style front, Jacob, even like just wandering around the planets and then just looking up and like seeing all the other ships just like firing the pods down, it's like that alone is just so damn cool.
And we don't really talk about, like, I don't think I've ever brought up just, like, the planets themselves. Every time you go to a new planet, there is something, like, kind of interesting and cool looking on it. I mean, there's, like, different plants on every planet that will, like, either slow you down or, like, all, just all kinds of, if you shoot it, it'll, like, shoot you straight in the air. Like, there's just some weird stylistic stuff going on with all the landscapes, too. And that's, like, the game is so good that you like don't even think about that. It's just the background stuff is also incredible, but the rest of the game is so good that you don't like barely even notice it.
Yeah. How much of the percentage of your love for this game, Kelsey, comes from you throw the stratagems and it's kind of like throwing a Pokeball? Do you think that's a factor?
Ooh, I do really like
now
the
they're going to get shut down by Nintendo, though. So,
bad
news.
You catch your friends in them.
I understand that this is from Helldivers 1 and I never played Helldivers 1, but like I do think that's just such a cool element to add to a game like this. It's also like, if, you know, I'm still not very good at shooters, even though I put a lot of hours into this one. It's very cool that you can bring something with you that is kind of like a get out of jail free card once or twice a mission. Like, you know, I'll bring a laser with me, and if like stuff's just getting super overwhelming and like all your friends are dying and it's chaos, you can just kind of like push a bunch of buttons in a row and like save the day by throwing out this thing that just starts clearing out everything. It gives you kind of a fresh start. And I think it's really cool the way they balance just like overwhelming you with enemies, but also giving you some like party tricks basically to like reset and get out of those situations.
Yeah.
And the fact that you can like call down stratagems, like if they're weapons, and have other people use them, they're not like exclusive to you. Yeah, it just really feels like you're part of a team, and that your role can be interesting. I think a lot of times, like in games like this, there are some roles that are clearly more fun than others, and it feels like, no, everyone can kind of do their own thing in their own way. Like you could be, you know, there's like one where you're essentially just have like more ammo or like health packs or something on you. So it's like, I'm just going to be like the mule with a laser gun and just kind of hang out. And it's still fun. You know, they added those mechs in where you can like jump into stuff and fight the robots. Like it's just a good time. And I think back to what y'all brought up already, it's crunchy in the right places. Like the sim elements of that game are really fun. Like it's fun that you can get shot in a specific body part and that's reactive.
Yeah.
It's cool that bringing back people is like calling them back down and not just walking up and holding X for forever, which is wildly boring. Why do, like, I feel like that's something we put up with because it's just so, well, how else do you bring people back? But I think it's fun even if you suck in a way that is really hard to do.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that feels like a great upper decker, as we politely like to say. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. We should probably talk about this game. That's the one when I look at the bottom of the list, it's like, God, that'd be nice in that higher 10 region, just to get a sense of where everybody's at this point with Rebirth. I feel like everybody has been on a roller coaster ride. The game itself is a roller coaster ride, and I feel like everyone's reaction and thoughts on the game since launch have been a roller coaster ride in a really fascinating way that I think is worthy of trying to understand a little bit better here. But, you know, personally, that game made me so happy. I was over the moon playing Rebirth. It just, you know, it was 100 hours of like, this should not exist. This level of care and attention to detail and highlighting the middle section of an RPG I loved from 1997, it blew me away. I was trying to think of like what the analogy is. The best I could come up with is like, Leo, imagine that a company spent like $600 million on adapting one book from the Pendragon series. You know, I was just like, what is going on?
This is really objective about it, actually.
But it is just really this overwhelming feeling. I'm just like, I cannot believe how much care. And the fact that like they are one step ahead of the community and fan base, like all of the humor, all of the heart, they just pack more. They know exactly what the community wants, and they just add a little twist on top of that going throughout all of Rebirth. And it is a roller coaster ride. I'm not trying to say it's a perfect game. By all means, it is a wonky, uneven game, as we've all talked about. I personally was not that annoyed by the mid sections. Like some of the side quests, yeah, aren't great. That's why they're optional side quests. Other side quests, I think, are fantastic. And like, I'm not somebody who gets into
If you didn't have fun, you shouldn't have done it.
Right, exactly. Optional. Right. But you know, I'm not somebody who's really...
You're saying I shouldn't have beaten the game, Leo. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
I mean...
if you wanted that fun.
It's interesting, Janet, to go back and like listen to like you on the podcast talk about the game. For someone who claims that your thoughts on games don't change if you beat it or not, because like you were so hot on Rebirth for a long time.
Did not say your thoughts on games don't change. I said it's rare for them to change substantially.
Okay.
And in that sense, Rebirth was a rarity.
Right. Because you were so hot on it out of the gate.
Yeah. I mean, I think I I was hot on it out of the gate, but I did acknowledge that, wow, this game has a really basic structure, and yet it's still really fun. So I think at the jump, I did see what the drawbacks of the game were, and I did have questions going into it of how they were going to approach story. And yeah, I mean, it was interesting. This game, I would say my turning point on this game was when we got to the beach, which was like, I guess you could say maybe halfway. Halfway,
really?
And a lot of people, that's like where it hit. And I think there's a lot to unpack, and I think we'll be talking about this a lot. So I don't want to say all my thoughts at once, but I will say by the end of Rebirth, it was frankly like one of the weakest experiences I've had in a game this year. I thought it was not very well made, not very, very paced. And I think it's easy to say, sure, side content, some bad, some good. But frankly, it wasn't just the side content. There was main mission content that I thought was really, really weak. The Fox stuff, some of the Chocobo stealth stuff, the thing, not spoilers, but like there's an area near the end where you're doing this weird life juice puzzle where you're like grabbing it and walking it over. Like so much of this game, despite having, I think, still a really fantastic combat system, a bit of an improvement from Remake, which already had strong combat, but it is just mind-numbingly dull by the end. And I think as someone that's a bit newer to playing really meaty RPGs and JRPGs, it's taken me a while to kind of get to know this genre and see what's up. And the one reason I never really played a lot of them is because, which Kelsey, I'm sure you can relate, they're long. So I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to spend like this many hours in a game. I don't know if I can have fun in a game for this many hours. And then I played, Persona 5 Royal, which I'm still playing. I dipped into Metaphor a lot this year. And frankly, I realized that it is possible to make a game that's genuinely compelling, and Yakuza as well was one that I beat last year, Like a Dragon, that was the name of the game at the time. I'm like, oh, it actually is possible to make something that is really compelling in its main story and really compelling in its side stuff. So I feel like I've something that I feel like I felt playing more RPGs is that it doesn't need to necessarily have down points just because it's long. And I feel like Rebirth has so many negatives that, yeah, it was on my list, my top 10 list for a long time as well, like as I've been writing it throughout the year. Yeah. And as I kept going, I just disliked it more and more and more. And I felt like it got weaker and weaker. And I'm like, man, this game, I am not into it. It is honestly next to Starfield for me in how disappointing long games. Like if I had to replay one, I don't know which one I would pick. And really? I heavily dislike both.
Whoa, that's
he's already dead, Janet.
No, yeah, it's interesting.
And those are just my quick thoughts.
No, I mean it's a super easy game to nitpick.
Jeff, I'm sorry, I don't like Starfield, and I do.
No, that's fine.
Well, you apologize to Jeff. No, like I understand nitpicking this game to hell, and like everyone's experience is absolutely their experience. I'm not trying to convince anybody. Like, actually, you did like it more than you think. But from my perspective,
nitpicking though is that
I'm just let me get this out real quick.
I mainlined that game for 40 hours and was bored out of my mind the whole back half.
I'm just saying. There's not many bad games that people finish. Maybe Janet was miserable by the end and she stuck with it. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, then
I finished a lot of bad games.
Allow me to raise my hand because I played about 30 hours and then I stopped playing.
Okay. Yes.
I agreed with everything that you said about the first remake. I was really surprised. I had no nostalgia for the series. And I really loved that from beginning to end. And I was looking forward to going into this one for that reason. And it's like they took that formula and then they tried to make it open world, and everything that they added to make it open world sucked ass. and to Leo's point, like I would like to push back a little on what Leo said of like, well, if it's optional and you're not having fun, that's your fault. I felt like going through there, I didn't know how much I have to do. Like, I don't want to have to audit your game and audit every little side activity that I come up to and be like, is this going to be worth my time? Is this fight out here that's optional? Is that going to be like fun and interesting, or is it going to be frustrating? Is the reward going to be worth doing it, or is it not? Like, what's the balance of this going to be? And like every side thing that I started doing, so then I started getting annoyed with the side stuff, and then it's like, well, how much of this game should I just like voluntarily skip? And that's a sucky feeling. Like I don't want to mainline something and skip all this stuff and have to decide as I'm going through it, how much of it should I skip in order to try and make a fun experience out of this stuff that was just like so much of that side stuff. And I actually liked Queen's Blood. Queen's Blood was like the only part that I actually enjoyed from the side stuff. But the other stuff was just so disappointing and uncreative and uninteresting. But still, like, that's feeding into your Chadley bucks or whatever, and Chadley has different power-ups that he sells you, and I want the fucking power-ups, and I want the, you know, things that I can, like the orbs that power up my guy, like, and I don't know how under-leveled I'm going to be if I'm not doing that stuff. And it's like, I went through that freaking crystal cave, which sucked ass, and then I got out and I got into the next open world part, and it was like, and now I have to do all this shit again, and I don't want to, and I'm done kind of like, and like big boss fights, big story beats, I was still very much into, but it's like, I don't want to have to skip a bunch of stuff to get there. I don't want to have to slog through a bunch of stuff to get there. Yeah. I'm just kind of done at that point.
Jacob, put your hand down, please. We're trying to move on. Sorry.
I feel like I've been a little frustrated at the Rebirth discourse. Unfortunately, not because I like it, but because I feel like the conversation is always like, does the game design get in the way of the game? You know, it's like they made it open world and all this stuff is like, you know, frustrating and low effort, or, you know, whatever. It's not what we want. And if it wasn't there, that'd be good. Which is not the experience that I had with the game. I loved Remake. It was my game of the year on that year. And what I specifically loved about it was the characters and story. Yeah. And I was like so impressed by how they reintroduced these classic characters and how they reintroduced the story in a way that made the story seem like it was not just about the interesting things that, you know, like that first part of the game is about, but about being a remake and about what it means to retell a story and all of that. And so I was so looking forward to this for just like the narrative and just like, what are they going to do with this second part of the story, specifically because, and I don't know, should we put up spoiler gates around, you know, I think we should have a section, but if you can make your point before we launch into that whole thing, unless it's intertwined. I think that both Remake and Rebirth have been about what happens at the end of Rebirth. Like, both of those games are fundamentally pointing in one direction, and we all know what that direction is, and it's so like
let's go full spoilers. So timestamps below for spoilers for Rebirth. You have some time to pause the podcast if you want, because you know it's coming out on PC soon. So we're going to be spoiling Rebirth and Remake. Everybody, check out the timestamps below for when it stops. But have at it, Jacob.
So just, you know, like I don't even have to spoil it much more than I've done. But like Remake is already dropping hints of Aerith's death. We all know that Aerith is going to die. It is the thing that happens in Final Fantasy VII. And Rebirth seems almost entirely like about that, where it's like that is the thing, and in a story in which the characters otherwise almost don't receive arcs and don't have anything to do other than just move through locations and not really react to them. That is the thing at the end that I was playing for, to be like, well, both of these games have been about this, let me at least get to this. And for the end then to so emotionally whiff that I just didn't feel anything playing that scene, it retroactively made me hate the game. That, like, I felt like I was investing this time because I cared about the characters and I cared about the story and I wanted to see their take on this. And their take was just that they didn't have a take. It just seemed like nothing. That it, like, I enjoyed 90% of the time that I played Rebirth, and for that to botch that section so badly, like, it truly soured the entire experience for me in a way that was not about the mini games and was not about the open world activities. It was about what the game is.
What was the whiff? Like, can you explain that?
At the end of this game, Aerith dies, but not. They show you like 3 different versions of the scene. It's not clear if she's died or not. She comes back in a boss fight immediately after she's died. there is like no room for you or the characters to emotionally react to it. And it basically seems like the game was so obsessed with having like a clever thing that happened about her death that it loses all emotionality. You know, that it just like it does not emotionally resonate at all.
It is a huge thing, and I think you're totally right. The developers, they crawled up their butt 6 ways to Sunday because like this is a big thing. Aerith's death is a big thing in the game. What are we going to do with it? Let's try and add some twist on it to propel people into part 3. It didn't work for me. At least I understand what they're going for, and it's slightly different than I think you're setting it up for. Like, Jacob, it's interesting to say, like, you know, Remake and Rebirth are all about Aerith. That's like the biggest thing in 7. Like, my favorite stuff from 7, we haven't gotten to yet. And the interesting thing is with Aerith's death, the reason that they made it. So basically what happens is Cloud sees it as he is saving Aerith. And it seems like the implication is everybody else watched Aerith get the hell stabbed out of her by Sephiroth. So it's a weird disconnect between Cloud and the rest of the group. And yes, it is surreal and strange. Then the end of Remake was really strange and surreal as well. But Aerith comes in and fights in, but it's always this question of like, which Aerith is this? Is this an Aerith from the future, an alternate Aerith? Because we're dealing with multiple timelines and a bunch of nonsense that they added into Remake here. But by and large, what they're doing is they're taking like one of the big climactic moments from Final Fantasy VII, like the big emotional gut punch, and they're using it as fuel for this section of part 3 that they're going to be getting to, because it's a complicated thing, and I don't want to spoil the original 7 more than I have to here, but it's the idea of there is like, I don't know, a twist might be too much. Yeah, there's a twist. There's like a big reveal in Final Fantasy VII that they haven't gotten to yet in the Remake trilogy. But because of the production, for other mysterious reasons that I don't want to spoil, but I guess I can if we really want to get into it, of like the rest of Square and the rest of the Final Fantasy VII series that they've spun off from that original game, they've basically kind of spoiled this twist that's going to be happening where it should be happening in part 3. So they have no fuel for this twist anymore. If they reveal it, it'd be like, well, you basically already told us that in Remake. Like, I don't know how much it's sinking in, but like all the cards are basically on the table if people want to put this twist together. And so their answer to that is, okay, what if we add extra fuel to that twist by now making Cloud not aware of Aerith's fate? And this can be an impact in part 3, is he'll realize like, oh my God, you mean Aerith died on that day? Cloud is not the most held together person mentally, is kind of the bigger picture stuff. And so it's one of those things where it's like, I see what you guys are going for. It's a bummer that the emotional moment from Final Fantasy VII left me with no emotions. Like, I was more emotionally wrought.
I would argue the story just like, it's not doing anything else. You know, like I hear you saying like this whole game is setting things up. But like what that resulted in is a game where I felt like none of the characters had character arcs. And so again, I get to the end and I'm just like, why did I do this if they don't feel different than when they started? You know, all the characters are so different from where they start in Remake. They change so much.
Yes, I would push back, you know, not to be like, oh, you said this, but like, I do think there's still a ton, like the charming thing about this game is the character moments and the individual character storylines, the characters interacting with each other, the characters having fun in this world for the first time, really, now that they're outside of Midgar. And like, even on that first review podcast, Jacob, you're like, it has great character storylines, but the big picture doesn't add to anything. So I don't want to dismiss that, like, there is fun character stuff. You talk about like the character arcs that people have, like Barrett had a huge arc. There's good Tifa stuff in there. They add new elements for everybody. Red 13 had like his biggest chapter throughout this entire thing. Like, people get their due in this game. Like, this game is almost nothing but like, we're going to move from the Barrett storyline to the Red 13 storyline to Yuffie's storyline. You know, like, they're giving all the characters their due here. Whether or not that's landed for is another story. But
well,
like
but they have like moments of, and I don't disagree that the moment to moment character writing is fun.
Totally.
But like,
yeah.
Where I am at is like looking back on the game, thinking like, how have I changed in my relationship to these characters? And it just like, it truly is, I just feel like I could have skipped Rebirth entirely and I wouldn't be like less informed or interested in what any of the characters are going through.
Yeah, that's
I'm
really
confused
fair.
about the dog guy, though. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, the dog guy is-
So it'd be like, why do I hate his voice now?
I like so the idea is Red 13 is the great wise cat dog with a tail on fire, right? And the idea in the original and the remake here is that's all a bit of an act. Like he's actually this creature that lives for like 600 years. And so it's kind of like a Yoda situation where, you know how Baby Yoda is actually 50 years old or whatever? It's the basic idea. So Red 13 is he's actually just like a teenager. So once he gets to his hometown.
The first Baby Yoda.
Right, yeah. So once he gets to his hometown, he's like, hey, so great to see you, Grandpa. And he like drops to his real voice. And I do think that's interesting that he's putting on this front to being the tough guy after he's being tortured in a lab by Hojo for all these years, right? But they changed that voice from like gravelly wise to, oh boy, wabba. It's like, it is a 1 to a 10. And if it was like a 4 to a 6.
Does he go back to it though, too?
Nope.
Or does he not?
Yeah, he
stays
sticks
to
with it.
Okay.
Even in combat
and then he sees
everything.
like a statue of his dad. I think the only good character moment is honestly the thing with Barrett. Like,
sure.
And even that was followed up by one of the worst boss battles I've ever played in this franchise. Gun versus gun in a Magic game is not interesting.
But it's kind of cool to have one-on-one
It
Barrett
was really
fight
bad.
there, yeah.
And I think that's a perfect example of like Rebirth's problems. You know, like I was looking back on my whirlwind of a life with this game, this terrible relationship that I was in. And like, that was something that I had like written about, like the highs of this game gaslight me into forgetting that the lows exist and the pattern repeats. And at a certain point, I think they run out of highs to show me. It's like, I already know it's cool to fight a big, cool thing. And not that ever like loses its juice, but that can only get you so far. And I think the like, oh, it's cool to see the characters having fun. I think frankly, this is always so tough because we don't have the capability of like, what if we erase your memory of 1996 and you give me that somehow I'm a 2-year-old who can read, you know, like, and swap them. But I think without the nostalgia, like, I don't feel anything for these characters. Like, I think this game relies so heavily on, you love this guy already, right? It's like, no, I don't. I just met him in the first one. Oh, Haley, you think this game is interesting, even though you just showed up. You're who I'm looking for,
like,
maybe.
I have no feelings for the original. So it's like, it's not nostalgia, but I was impressed how, without nostalgia, how closely I felt connected to them in remake. Yeah. And so one of the like rotten feeling of this was like, it's not working for me now. It worked for me before and it's not doing it now.
And I think the big, kind of disconnect, amongst the group is the idea of like, I hear you on all these fronts, that like the idea of, oh, I could have just skipped this entire chapter. What's the point? What do we learn about this character, like all these characters as a group? And it's like, what you learn is they're now a tighter group of friends and they learn to really become friends in Rebirth. And for me, that's Kate Sith catnip. Like, that is the sweetest thing. That's all I want. For a little payoff to a side quest, be like, hey, you get to pick flowers with Aerith. Like, I would give anything to pick flowers with Aerith. Absolutely. And so that is, I think, creating this weird disconnect for folks. But I am curious to hear Haley's take as another newcomer.
Also, are we still in spoilers? Haley, do you want spoilers for your stuff?
We can lift them up. I'm not going to say anything spoilery.
Okay, spoilers up, everybody. Spoilers over for Rebirth. But Haley, you haven't talked about your experience with 7 this year.
Yeah, I played Remake and Rebirth one after another this year, which I think probably made me like it more because my brain's probably conflating the two together, because I think if I were to separate them, I do like Remake a lot more. And everything that Rebirth did that I liked was Remake-y. So it was kind of just like the closed hallway, like kind of linear areas of Rebirth are my favorite part, because it's just focusing on the characters. And I'm kind of like you, Ben. Like, I just want to hang out with them, like, right. Genuinely. Like, I was dragging my feet to finish the game because I just liked being in that group of characters and like seeing how they were interacting with one another. I was doing all the side content, all that kind of stuff, and mostly just because I was dragging my feet because I didn't want to leave the world, which I think is just a testament to how good the character writing is. Like the dialogue when they're all just in a group doing dumb stuff, like you're saying, like just picking flowers and whatever. Like, why are we even doing this? It's like, because I like Aerith and she's cute and I want to pick a flower with her. Like, whatever. That's kind of why that game carried me through the whole way. But, obviously the open world stuff is insanely repetitive, weak at times, but it's bundled together in such a insanely high budget package that it also kind of gets away for me with not minding those boringness items too much, because Jesus, it looks pretty and like the music's insanely good and all the characters are polished to an insane degree that it looks like I'm watching a movie. And if I were to boil it down, really, it's just the characters are good enough that I don't really care if what they were doing was boring at times, or if the story didn't. Because I agree, it kind of didn't 100% land for me either. Not to do spoilers, but then it brought me back in that final cutscene where I was like crying, and I was like, wow, I did not think I was gonna cry. That's actually kind of crazy, because I was like, haha, this hasn't gotten its hooks in me, and then I started crying. Like, you can see the stream. I'm like, oh god, whoops! Like, I actually care about these characters way more than I thought. All that is to say, I totally understand the complaints. I just don't know if I personally felt them while I was playing the game. I just enjoyed myself, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I know we're doing the deepest dive on it. It's not exactly fair, but like, I was so overflowing with thoughts and feelings of this game. Like, I took 88 pages of notes on this game. Like, I just, the deepest dive was like 24 hours long or something. Like, I just had so much passion and so much thought. And like, yeah, I mean, we talked about, the combat's great, but like, just going back and like looking at some of those boss sequences in particular, like fighting the Turks and stuff like that, like how they can break into like a cinematic cutscene in the middle of that combat. Like, it's my favorite game combat, period. I'm trying to think of anything that I like more.
There's nothing better than when you're pausing to do the next move and like Cloud's in a backflip slow-mo and you have like a solid 15 seconds before you really need to make your decision, that you're just like you look awesome like Matrix style while you're like, what spell do I want? Like, that never stopped feeling good after what was probably 180 hours straight of this game for me or something, which is an insane amount of hours, but I still was like, more fighting. Like, sometimes I would just be running through areas just to find something to fight because that's all I wanted to do anyways.
Yeah. Kyle's been suspiciously quiet. And Sarah.
No, everyone's very passionate in one way or the other. And I am like in the middle, leaning more towards Jacob, I suppose.
Okay.
Honestly, it makes it more interesting to talk about it.
Yeah, like, I mean, to sort of zoom back in and like its placement on the 210s, I suppose. Like, I mean, there's no doubt that it deserves to be on MinnMax's 210s. Like Ben, your passion is like completely undeniable. Like, this game is beyond just a game you like. This game is important to you. And playing it, I mean, I think I even said pretty quickly, like partway into it, I was like, yeah, I think I like the remake a lot more. I think maybe not a lot, maybe that's strong, but like. Yeah, it felt kind of like I'm relating to what Jacob said a lot, where it's like by the end I was like, okay, well, I don't, what was that for, really, almost is how I felt a little bit about it. And these sequences that you guys were so attached to with the characters and stuff, that like I didn't feel strongly about those. Like, you were talking about how much you loved the musical sequence at one point. I was just like confused. I was like, I don't know what this is or why I'm doing this. And then to make matters worse, the boss that happens right after it, I died to, and I like had to go back and replay the whole musical again.
Wow. Oh,
and
interesting.
It was like a bad timing to be like, I don't know what I'm seeing here. What is this? I don't understand how this works within the lore. Like, I'm just confused on a basic level about what is happening, and I don't know how it's relevant to anything. So let me, and I'll see it again in 10 minutes. It's how it ended up happening for me.
Oh boy.
So I like it on the lower 10s.
Yeah. Hanson, you and Haley have a lot of great things to say about it, and I agree with most of them, but I agree with them because they were also that way already in Remake. And I feel like most people's takeaway is, like, you guys love it because it's doing a lot of what Remake, already got right, and this one, for most of us, I feel like is just a sizable step down from, like the highs are still there, but they have carried over from Remake, and that love of Remake seems to be like the biggest draw, at least for Haley, and it's just like, that feels to me like bottom list, and bottom list is still one of the 20 greatest games this year in like the 115 that we had that we all liked. I don't think that's a huge slight, but
yeah,
20 most passionate games.
That's
that
right.
we have in the year.
I mean, yeah, it is. I do like it more than Remake. It's the idea of like replaying Remake. I'm like, I'm gonna feel just like wandering through those slum hallways, like doing just stupid puzzle dungeons. Like, I don't. That compared to like my friends making jokes in a big open world, I can run around and do what I want. Like, I was so much more into the vibe and tone of Rebirth. Faults not forgetting. Okay. And Sarah, you bounced off.
Yeah, I mean, it really felt like this one was the weaker one, because it required you to come in with like some Final Fantasy VII knowledge to do all the weird like reality shifting like stuff. Like, I really feel like as someone who didn't play the originals that I was kind of being left out of stuff, which is fine, but I think like that's what really dinged it for me. Other than that, I really loved that they increased like the Sephiroth FaceTime. That was incredible. Like they showed him to us, and I appreciate that. But yeah, I think for me, I still think it could have been one game, and I really think the audience was for people who already played Final Fantasy VII, and that already kind of like negates a bunch of people who would have probably enjoyed it more.
It got Haley.
I think there might be a reason one game doesn't become 3 games. And I think a lot of people use that, well, it's the middle, so like how good can a middle story be?
Yeah.
It's like, I never made you make this story, like maybe Square made you make it, I don't know. But I think people kind of give it a pass of, well, it's the middle, and like in the original, this was an hour of walking through a desert, and now it's 100 hours of a lot of stuff. And yeah, I don't think that necessarily more is not necessarily better. And I think, Sarah, I echo your confusion, and Kyle as well. I didn't know what was going on in the VR thing either. I'm like, I don't know.
I didn't understand
like my takeaway without having played 7 was just that, to me, nothing happens in the story. They talk a lot about fate, and then they wink at me. And I don't know why they're winking at me.
Yeah, I'm like, why are we winking?
They're like, fate, right? And that's kind of it. And I just feel like for so many people, like for me, even Remake was more of a combat game. I wasn't as into that story admittedly either. But yeah, like if story is what you got here, like I don't get good story from this experience. I don't get any story from the experience, honestly. I felt like I got more story in the first like 5 hours, 8 hours of Metaphor than I did in 100 hours of Rebirth.
I think that's totally fair.
Which is both a testament and a slight to a testament to Metaphor and a slight to Rebirth.
It is somebody who loves Rebirth. Like it is telling that, like, there's moments like towards the middle of that game where it's like, oh, we hit a speed boost. We're telling a story again, folks. Like it feels like something's changed when the game has momentum every once in a while,
Yeah. There's a good game in here, but there's a lot of other stuff
momentum.
in it.
And you're like, what happened? Why aren't we? I know your take, Ben, is it's about people not talking about things, which I think is an interesting take.
Thank you.
That's an interesting take to think about. It's not interesting to play where you're just like, why is no one acknowledging the story?
Why did I have to play that bad Rocket League game? And why do I keep following these rogue guys over and over? It's like those games where you have to follow an NPC, and it's like you want to just hit auto to follow. I feel like that was the entireness of the structure of this game.
Yep, following Sephiroth. Leo, for your sake, I have one more question for the group. Should it be number 1 or number 2? No, Haley, like, is it on your top 10? I'm curious, like, just to get a sense of where.
Rebirth?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's number 6.
Okay. Does anybody else have it on their personal list? Okay.
Didn't
all
make
right.
mine.
Nope. Good to know. Good to know. I feel like bottom list is.
Ben, 11. Kind of like 2-1.
Hey, look, man, I love it at 11.
Yeah, that's not where it's going to stay.
I love it at 11.
The game.
Oh my god.
Here, wait, or are we done with Rebirth?
I feel like we're done with Rebirth. I just want to double check. I don't know where you're going with this, Jacob, but I was going to ask, like, I'm happy with the buckets we got, unless other people have thoughts on. So right now, just for frame of reference, for top list, bottom list, it's top list is 1000 Times Resist, Astro Bot, Balatro, Lorelei and Laser Eyes, UFO 50, Helldivers 2, Mouthwashing, Metaphor, Like a Dragon, Prince of Persia, and then bottom list, 7 Rebirth, Indica, Kunitsugami, Manor Lords, Indiana Jones Great Circle, Main Street Adventures, Infinity Nikki, Starstruck, Hands of Time, Finals, and Diceomancer. Sorry, Jacob, you were going to bring up something.
No, I mean, we can decide if these are the. I'm happy with.
I'm happy with these buckets.
I'm happy with them buckets.
Good buckets. The only one I'd want to poke perhaps is, and we'll get into it more later, I'd assume, but like Indiana Jones. I mean, is anyone playing more of that? And they're like, actually, I'm loving it more and more.
That's what I was going to bring up. Where I think it should be higher on the second 10.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe if I had time to play it, I can move it to next year and I can help you.
Haley, I have many regrets in life. One of them is not kicking Indiana Jones to next year.
Haley, I think about your suggestion like every day.
I agree.
So I've been playing more Indiana Jones, and I think it rocks.
Yeah.
And I haven't beat it yet, but I'm past Ben, if you think about the set piece that you brought up during the thing, I'm like that and another the following set piece. I'm through both of those.
Okay. Yes.
And which was awesome. And I was like, I was already in, and then that sequence, I was like, oh my god! I really the twists and turns that it's taking. So I would love to see. I would both like to see Indiana higher, and I would like to see Rebirth lower. But I'm thinking, maybe we can put a Ben Passion project a little higher that more people don't actively
we
dislike.
have a whole freak pit at the bottom of games that are people's number ones that I feel like Rebirth could easily join.
Don't
it's already in there.
Don't send it to the freak pit.
I think this is a new thing for us, though, that someone has a number one game that a lot of people played and didn't like. Like, a lot of times people's number ones are like, either, I didn't touch that, that's not for me, it was pretty good, whatever. This is a weird one where, like, your passion is inspiring, honestly, Ben. It's beautiful. Like
Sephiroth's face.
Yeah.
No, beautiful. But, like, I believe you wholeheartedly, and I think we do like to respect number ones here, but also this is the first time, to my knowledge, that a number one has been like, almost everyone played it and didn't like it.
5 out of 7 people it missed for.
No, hey.
An achievement probably popped if this was being gamified somewhere.
Yeah, I'm not dying on this hill. I'd put Indiana Jones above Rebirth for the collective list if that's the question. Swappin' puts it pretty far down into the freak pit.
It puts it next to everyone else's number ones.
Under Manor Lords.
It's an editable
And then
list.
can we swap Infinity Nikki with Manor Lords because it's my number one?
Yes.
Okay, Manor Lords moving down to 17. Infinity Nikki is moving up to 14 at the moment.
I learned last year it's almost not about the debate. It's about like the negotiation of
making it
real
easy
estate
for
on the
everyone
board.
else.
Yeah.
Moves and counter moves.
Yep.
And credit to that Rebirth conversation too. Like a lot of stuff sounded interesting. Even some of the stuff that missed, I was like, well, that's an interesting thing they're going for. Like that was a really good conversation.
I'm really excited for the third
this is pretty
game.
honest.
Yes. I mean, I do want to unpack other people. I'm glad Indiana Jones is landing more with Jacob as he continues to play. Has anybody else put more time in it or have thoughts just on where they feel like it should go on this list?
I played until 4:30 last night, and I didn't fall asleep for the first time. I almost fell asleep because I was still stuck in Rome. For Christ's sake,
Oh my God.
that
Vatican
lasted
is
so
so
goddamn
boring.
long. But by the time I started shooting Nazis, it really started clicking. See how I made that unambiguous, Kyle? but like
Without the context of the last episode, that comment's crazy.
I know.
Yeah, I know.
once, like
I don't like
these-
Nazis. I just want to make that clear.
All right.
Very
Methinks
excited
that
to
us
be
protect
attacking
them.
them in Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Giza was the point where it felt like, okay, now your format makes sense.
Yes.
And this is getting really fun. Just the way things are spaced out, you're kind of running from one place to the next, and there's more, tombs and challenges and kind of secrets and stuff. But then like the combat has gotten more interesting as well, even though I still hate anytime I'm unarmed and get into a fist fight. It's just the worst thing in the world.
It's the best thing when you have something to throw or beat somebody with, and then it's like, my fists. What is this crap? I guess I have the whip at all times.
Just do one parry and then grab them. Then it's fun again because you're just grabbing them and you can punch them repeatedly in the face.
How do you grab them? What's the grab button?
Yeah, what's the grab button?
RB.
Oh, of course.
It might. Is it auto after you parry? Perhaps I don't remember. You have the whip too. Which is
It's
fun.
not automatic, but it's like when you put someone in a stun state, then you can grab them and then you can punch them or push them. It doesn't make it clear that you can do it, but like you can, and it's fun.
I'm in Egypt, and like I said last week, like the more I play it, the more I like it. So like I'm still on that upward ramp. So
Yeah,
it does have like kind of scrappy energy. Like I'm running in here, I'm kind of doing hit and run things. It like now there are Nazis everywhere. I'm gonna run away. I'm gonna go do something else and kind of build up. Plus, Indy's just like dunking on the Nazis all the time, which is just great. So he'll be like,
which I like. I like that.
Okay,
Sure,
all right. Jeez.
Being a little
You'll take
too obvious
This is
about Nazi
weirding me
hating.
out.
I think he likes the Nazis.
You'll
Doing air
take
quotes for the listeners.
you'll take a picture. You'll take a picture, and Indy will be like, this is a great scene. Except the Nazis are ruining it. Let's get down there and start punching them.
Also, we haven't talked at all yet. I think Voss is an awesome villain. Like, just his
so
freaking
good.
posture alone, his shoulder blades are touching, just so prim and proper, and you really want to beat the crap out of that guy.
There's that scene in Egypt where they fall through the ceiling, and like that cutscene is one of the most like perfectly blocked scenes I've seen, you know, which is like, it is just a cutscene, you know, it's not gameplay, but just like watching it, it's just reminded of like, God, Machine Games is so good at just like interesting character movement in cutscenes where it's like, and he's about to punch a guy and then he pulls his fist back and then his elbow hits another guy and then he gets distracted and the first guy punches him, and it's just like, it really feels, you know, it's like, a lot of games try to be cinematic, and this one feels like it's like actually taking lessons from film in how to do that in a way that I'm continuously impressed by.
Yeah, you know, and we've talked about like, oh, I love bare minimum shooting in this game. That's so refreshing. It's so nice. But I don't think we've talked that much also about just like, I'm such a dork for like the archaeology and the history and mythology. Like even in the very beginning of the game, when you're like putting the artifacts back and you have to like learn a little bit about them so you can put them back in the case to find the one that's missing. Like, it's like, I am into this, man. Like I want to learn about all of these things. When you see big rooms filled with trinkets and relics from the past, like I am as eager as Indiana Jones. Guys, I'm just as cool as Indiana Jones. Like I want to learn about all that stuff too. It's fun history mythology to uncover throughout that entire game. And like,
can I be a little bastard?
Yeah.
Do you guys just like this because you played it yesterday? Like, do you just feel this passionate because you played it more recently than anything else?
No, that's Star Hands of Time. This is a completely different
that
case of
too.
Indiana
I
Jones
could make
and
the same
Great
argument for
Circle.
that too. But I think it's something you have to think about.
Yep.
Because even like, I was playing Echoes of Plum Grove the last 2 nights. I'm like, I really like this. Do I like it so much it's on my 210s? And I'd be like, no, you're just playing it right now. Calm down. You know what I mean? Your brain sometimes tricks you.
I mean, that is
recency
why
bias.
every movie releases in November and December, because that's when awards pick. Like it is just how the game is played. Which
And I will say, with both things having that factor, Starstruck feels better at 18 than Indiana Jones does at 11.
Oh, hang on.
Oh, interesting.
This mummy cat's got
comment.
claws. What's going on? I was feeling great about 11 for Indiana Jones personally. But
I would not put it at. I would put Kunitsugami and Indica above it if it was my list, just because more people have played them and like them, you know, holistically. I
don't know. I would question that. On the Indica front, should we jump into Indica a little bit? Figure out what's right for this. And by the way, you know, anybody can jump in if you feel like this list is wildly out of whack where it's at now. I'm not saying Indiana Jones shouldn't move from 11. I'm just saying it's morally wrong to move from 11. But
Indicana Jones.
and Infinity Nikki. Look, all these ins. A lot of ins, but some gotta go out. Yeah.
And the laser ones too.
Yeah, Indica, like we talked about it, you know, in the last episode. I think it's an awesome game. It's the type of game where it's like, I'm so glad someone's making something this strange at this level. Not to the same extent, but I do feel like we talked about it again last time, but just like there are some of those rebirth elements of just kind of like, yeah, but if you think about the gameplay too much, it's kind of like,
There's no need
fine.
to be mean, Ben. No,
I'm just, you know, it drags it down a little bit for me, but I think that the game itself
one's
is
about magic,
awesome.
one's about religion, which is they're different, I guess. I don't know.
Well, 7 is my religion, but I hear you.
Indica felt notable to me for a lot of reasons, including looking so good for being so weird.
Right.
I was like, how is a 4-hour small team indie looking this good now?
Like Hellblade vibes. Like, what the? Why does this look like a Hellblade game?
Yeah.
Right, but even more surreal, using even more like consistent artistic imagery that you're exploring in a way that feels like, you know, The Last of Us Part 2. Like, it's crazy how good it looks. Not that good, of course, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, and also like the cinematography, I don't think we've talked enough about Indica. It's a tough thing to convey on the podcast. It's like, yeah, there's a shot that on paper doesn't sound like great or something that wild, but like what they go for is so strange. There's a shot with a dog that is just a really weird
insane.
bold swing. There's so many moments of just like, what are you people doing? But it's awesome. And then you're looking around and saying, where am I supposed to go? I slide this thing over here.
I gave Rebirth and Indica the same score on Backlogged, which is a place where I'm more casual about stuff. But I do like Indica more than Rebirth.
Well, I have the same score, so I can't really tell the difference. You said one was hot trash and the other is genius, so I'm having a tough time here, Janet.
I mean, I think everyone already knows how I feel about Indica, which is largely what you're echoing, Ben. Like, it is, it does, like, even though you were kind of being more, like, jokey, it does kind of have that high highs, low lows. But I do think that the go in Indica are frankly higher than Rebirth. But again, that's kind of a weird way to start kind of comparing games.
I know,
we want to go
that
down that route. It sounds very specific. But I did appreciate the highs a lot more, if that means anything.
Indica, aptly named.
And I think the lows of Rebirth are lower than the lows of Indica as well. I think that box pushing thing where you throw the thing as the weird robot
Sith.
cat man is worse than anything that was.
Don't pretend like you don't know your friends' names.
Indica is 3.5 hours long. Like, I'll put up with a couple lows in a game that's functionally 2 sittings rather than a game that took up a literal month of my life.
Technically, I will put up with both, as I did both, but I agree with the sentiment.
Me too, apparently.
I was going the opposite angle.
I don't know what I'm doing with my time. I'm just kind of trying things out,
I think for a game that short, you shouldn't have lows. That's my theory. You should be Titanfall 2 for every short campaign.
I don't know. I think that's a little... I think now we're measuring things... I think we have to be a little bit careful about measuring things based on simply, like, length and amount of dollars spent.
Oh, I never would do that.
I do think that's something that gets tossed around with Rebirth, where it's like, it's such
more
high
of a percentage,
production.
I think.
Totally.
Is what we're talking about.
Enjoyment. Overall. Yeah.
I mean, it's like functionally, I've thought about Indica a ton positively after I've beat it.
Yeah.
Which is how I'm measuring my passion. And we don't need to keep comparing it to Rebirth. But Rebirth, I haven't thought about it positively since I beat it.
Yep. I'm just going to start moving stuff on the bottom row. And if anybody has thoughts...
There's a couple on there that I haven't heard any negativity about whatsoever.
Kunitsugami.
Daisomancer in the finals.
And Infinity Nikki.
Yeah. And Infinity Nikki, yeah.
Other than you don't like the
where,
third play.
and, where Indica, there's highs and lows, but, measuring passion, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can talk my shit real quick.
Sure. Well, not all of it. Break it up. Do what you want, man.
I'll back you up.
Dance
I played
around
the finals.
it.
That game's rules.
Yeah. The finals, I love so much. It is, I think, a secret how much of an immersive sim shooter it is, which of course is unsurprising because I like it so much. There must be something like that in there. It's that immersive sim toy box mixed with the Siege tacticalness and every map feeling different every time you play it because of the destruction, mixed with like Unreal or that kind of movement shooter where it's really quick and really snappy. Some of the mechanics I like about it that I think make it so interesting. On the immersive sim front, it has all these canisters around the map that do drop fire or gas or smoke, and they have a rock, paper, scissors interaction. Fire, like, dissipates gas. Smoke puts out fire. So whenever there's AoE damage covering the point or covering your friend, there's something you can do about it or some way you can plan ahead if you're trying to counter something. And that came up interestingly where I was trying to run and support my teammate who was securing a cache out in the second floor of a building that I couldn't quite get to. There's no windows. I could just hop in the bottom floor, and I see somebody threw a gas grenade. The gas explodes out of the building. I can see his life is ticking down before he's going to be able to destroy to finish the cache out and take it for our team. So I move in below. I think about using the dematerializer, which I'm sure I'll talk more about, which basically turns on and off walls and floors. So you can use it to make paths through things or open a wall, shoot somebody, close it again before they can shoot back at you.
Weird.
There's a lot of really, like, everything I'm talking about, there's no other shooter there's anything remotely close to it. I ran into the building on the first floor, realized I could use the DMAT, but that would drop him and the cache out. He could potentially keep his aim on it and stay securing it, but that's really difficult, and he might fall away from it and lose track, and then we wouldn't have time to take it again. But then I realized I was using the new shotgun they just added, which has incendiary rounds. So I kind of aimed up at the ceiling and shot at the center of the gas, and it dissipated the gas, and he stopped taking damage and was able to secure the cache out. So it was like, in a situation like that, you have multiple choices with risks and rewards, and feeling like there's always interactions going on. There's also points with here's one sequence that just was so much fun, weird final stuff in 1 minute, in literally under a minute. I was going off this huge jump pad to support my friend in a 1v1. My friend dies, I get there, I finish him off. Now we got 2 bodies right next to each other. They turn into tokens you can revive. I pick up my friends, bring it around the corner to where I can still see where the enemy token is. And I start to revive, and I stop because I think I hear them coming, but they're not coming. I put a remotely detonated gravity well next to their teammate's body. Then I go back to revive. I barely get my friend up as they come and start reviving their friend, and I detonate the gravity well, which pulls them off of reviving their friend and pulls up this box I didn't realize it was going to, this physics object. So they're all 3 floating in the air like Willy Wonka, and we're all peppering them, and it's this awesome play where we get 2 kills, and I'm feeling so cocky. I grab a red fire barrel, I'm like, I'm going to bring this to the point to help defend it, help take it. And then I run over a mine that they placed on their way to get their friend up, which wouldn't kill me, but because I was holding the barrel, it detonated me in one shot and turned the whole room into fire. So that killed me, and I'm spectating my friend who then gets to it and is supporting our third, stealing the cash out. I hear them coming, I go, defend him with goo! He throws goo down, which, another thing I'll be talking about, it is a part of the immersive simminess. This goo you can use in a million different ways. You throw a little grenade and it turns into this like 5x2 grid of goo. You can use it to make bridges between buildings. You can use it to close holes that people have like made with the destruction. And I was saying, throw it to your side so they can't shoot at him while he's stealing the cash out. He did, but the enemy heavy used the charge and slam ability and bashed right through the goo and took the teammate, physically pushed him off this elevated point that we had all used this big jump pad to get to, and they fell, a mile down to the surface, and we lost the point from that, like, cinematic interaction of charging, pushing, knocking them both off the edge. And it is the only game I can think of. This game has great trailers, as a lot of games do. It's the only game where playing it actually feels like those trailers. It is like cool cinematic moments constantly. One more. There was I was using the dematerializer.
Hang on, Leo. Pretend like you're done. Pretend like you're done for a second.
And let me finish.
Oh, I was going to say one more story, Leo. One more story.
Again.
Please,
Bravo!
It's a unique cash out on the new map, which is so beautiful. It's a Mexico themed season, which is cool. Cash out in this gazebo in the open air. We've destroyed the roof of it so we can cover it from the adjacent rooftop. But I'm not feeling very confident in that position. So I drop down, I use the dematerializer to open up this gazebo that is maybe 3 feet off the ground, open up the floor of it, drop down. Me and the cash out are both, 3 feet beneath the floor level of this gazebo. I put mines down and I wait for them to come, try and get it, to then, destroy them. I have a lot going on, but that's my main goal. They get to it right near the end and they manage to kill me, but the cash out then is finished because they took too long. The cash out being finished releases the floor that was dematerialized, so it automatically closes back up. So now this person who came to come kill me is locked in the bottom chunk of this gazebo, in like the crawl space, and detonates the fire mines, and it becomes this room full of fire that he's killed instantly. And you zoom out and it's just this perfectly intact gazebo that this guy had fallen into this trap room that I built underneath. And it's hilarious. I just have so many. I measure the quality of a shooter sometimes by how many clips I feel like grabbing.
Totally.
Something like X-Defiant, it becomes neutral sludge. I don't ever feel like anything notable has happened worth remembering. The finals, I have not just a ton of clips, but like really unique, weird clips. Clips that like have no kills in them at all, that are just weird, interesting plays. And the last thing I'll say in this little moment, every story I told happened to me last night.
What a twist.
Now, Leo.
So that's why you were playing so much last night. I was wondering
Something crazy's going to happen.
Take everything you just said.
It was content.
Take all of that and summarize it down to a number between 11 and 20.
Before that, I just want one more story. No, I am curious, Leo, like just for a framing of like, is this north of Siege in your mind? I'm trying to think of the last game you can compare it to. Give us some comparables in your life.
Siege is very unique in my life for how it got me into shooters in a bigger way. I learned to be good at shooters because I wanted to be good at Siege.
Yeah.
And I fell off it because Ubisoft fumbled it so bad, and the terrible infrastructure, it felt like we were punished for trying to play it so many times with servers being down or just bad updates or whatever. Slow updates for sure. And I never thought I'd find something like it again. And the finals happened to be that thing, hitting that siege itch in an unexpected way because it is so similarly tactical that despite being so much more action focused, Siege, of course, is the one life per round. You're really meticulously making your decisions, planning, watching them pay off. It's that kind of itch being scratched of making a plan and watching it come to fruition in this bigger, broader context on these big, beautiful maps with destruction too, but the craziest destruction you've ever seen. Nothing comes close.
Yeah, I have a thought based on the destruction in the finals, because that's what the first thing that I noticed was like, oh, this game seems kind of unique. The buildings get destroyed. That's like one of 8,000 things, as Leo just told us, like 10 anecdotes. But it's so funny that this game isn't even that old, and you already see other huge studios trying to mimic what the final does and fumble the bag because they don't get that you can't just add one cool thing from the finals into your other game that doesn't implement it cohesively with all the other stuff it's doing. For example, Marvel Rivals has map destruction as well.
Yeah.
It is 1/100th as fun compared to the finals, because in that game, you're doing that in order to move things around, in order to shut yourself off from other people, knock the payload down or whatever you call it into the bottom floor to run it and move it to the next area to make traps like Leo's saying and things. In Marvel Rivals, the building just gets destroyed and like maybe you lose sight of the enemy for a little bit and then it just respawns. There's been times where the buildings respawned around me and I have to awkwardly destroy the wall to get back out to the fight. That's stupid. But you can just see like it's already affecting other shooters and they don't get why it's like magic in this game and not others, which I think is really interesting too. Like you can't mimic the finals. It's accumulation of a bunch of stuff that works really well.
Yeah.
It's the difference between a checkbox on the back of the box that makes it sound more interesting and fundamentally feeling like a different shooter than I've ever played.
Yeah.
Right.
Which, I mean, again, the reason it came out technically last year, I've played so much more of it and they've had game-changing updates since then. It has gone from, this seems like a good shooter. I forget if it was on my top 10 last year. It probably was. To my top 10 of all time, above Siege.
For
not just how fun it is moment to moment, but how much better supported it has been and how rewarded I feel for being a fan of it. I'm going to throw in a bonus story. The roof collapsed with the cash out on it. Actually, it was a bit of an attic, so a big chunk of a floor. It falls down onto the stairs. It is a chunk of floor sitting on the stairs, which it doesn't just, these chunks don't fall down and then fade away. It's like you are mantling over this debris and it becomes a new map. And it was cash out, severed floor, staircase. My friend goes, I'm going to try and block their push by throwing a goo grenade underneath this debris here. And he throws it. It expands instantly as goo does. The force of it expanding from underneath that floor, as goo do, it launches the floor pushes upward and launches the cash out like a seesaw, like a catapult.
Right.
Absolutely launches it over the next building and we have to chase it and go hold it in this different way. And that's like goofy random stuff from my friend who has barely played the game, just happened upon that awesome experience. And then if you're amazing, it's like repeatable because the physics are so reliable and it's the same for everybody. There's no funny business really of like that debris was here for me, but not for them.
Is this?
But if it didn't happen last night, it doesn't count.
Right.
Like Indiana.
Every single year I listen to you and then I'm just like jealous that I am not as good at video games or as creative in video games. And like these experiences you're having sound cooler than any game we've ever played. But I just know that if I played this game, I would not, I would just be dying.
I can attest to that because I play solo and it hits so different than when I'm playing with Leo and his friends because they're flipping in the air and things are launching everywhere. They're like, go get that, it's over there. I've been running around. Versus when I play by myself, I'm not as smart. I'm usually just shooting the guy over there and or destroying a wall or two as I try to get better with the physics.
And it's like, I don't want to detract from the passion at all, but like I played this game with Leo last year when it came out, and my overwhelming feeling was just I am not good enough at this. And it was like it was not the electrifying experience that Leo describes because the game has a really high skill ceiling and it has really long respawn times, and so I found myself entering a situation and dying and then just waiting a lot, which was it does feel like there is a skill floor to have fun at that I was not at, and I wasn't really able to get into it in the way that I hoped that I could.
Sure. Yeah, so valid. I feel good at the finals. Like I I am happy with my performance in it, and
Leo, you're good at the finals.
You're
good
good.
at the finals,
Come
Leo.
on.
Leo's really good at the finals.
Oh, stop.
That's all I know about the game. That Leo's good at.
Oh, that game Leo's good at?
I hope it goes without saying that's because I have committed. Like, I think about it all the time. I watch videos about it all the time. I make plans when I'm laying in bed that I go try the next time I play. Like, I am invested in getting better at this game and being so rewarded. This many hours in, it has not slowed down at all. I do not feel like I'm out of stuff. I do not feel like I've mastered everything I want to master, even a little bit.
Is it, just to get really boring, is it on consoles? Is it PC only?
It's on consoles. It just launched on PS4.
Okay, is it doing well?
It's next gen. They seem happy with it. I don't know. They're owned by Nexon. They could pull the plug any moment. We know how that goes.
Nexon,
but
Nex
it seems
off,
like
yeah.
they're happy with it.
Okay, I'm not moving things intentionally at the bottom. I feel like there's a lot of dramatic rearranging we need to do for the bottom. I am wondering, are we happy with...
I could concede Mini Shoot Adventure should go lower than other games that have way more passion, even if only a couple people played them.
Oh, for sure. I think, this entire bottom list is getting nuked. I think. Let's just delete it.
Thought to get started on the on the
just rearrange them?
I agree. I just want to poke at the bear, the wild bear cat out there of, is finals, does it have more passion than like Mouthwashing? If we're going to the upper 10s, just to look at the swaps that we made real quick.
What are you talking about,
I'm just
Ben?
looking at, is there any
Where did
weakness?
this openness
Attack
heart.
on mouthwashing come
I'm
from?
a huge Mouthwashing defender. I'm just wondering if we wanted, based on having Leo's full digest of the finals.
Okay, well,
if we wanted,
I torpedoed Infinity Nikki to move mouthwashing up, and I would like to swap them back then, if you care so little for mouthwashing.
No, I like Mouthwashing a lot.
Wow.
I think Leo's passion overtakes my Prince of Persia passion, but there are other games that I don't think it does.
How
Like
about
if I'm trying to be analytical and specific.
how about this?
So we're just opening the buckets again.
I was questioning
I don't
the
know.
bucket. The answer can be
doesn't seem
no.
like
The answer
we
can be
need
no.
to.
Okay, then no. That's fine.
I don't think the buckets need to be set in stone, though, either. Not that I'm saying I want that mouthwashing swap.
Wouldn't that be the worst day of your life?
But I don't see why we need to say nothing can swap.
Yeah, it's
between
not
them.
like it's a law or anything. We just do whatever we want.
And Haley knows
Okay,
what the laws
Haley.
are.
Haley
Lawyer,
knows
yeah.
the law.
And I've read all
I get
them.
it. You have a regular job.
The word
We're
laws
just-
on
we
a
gotta
business
set up- we
card.
gotta
You
set up
haven't read all
rules
the
for
American
ourselves
laws, though.
if we want to
You don't know
get
that.
through this thing, you know?
That's true. This is an American podcast.
That's
so-
true.
We
Yeah.
have undisclosed info that we're learning now, aka passion, for the bottom buckets. So that's going to change how we view the bucket orientation.
Here's
It's like
but when we were saying, hey, is everybody okay with these buckets?
But then I heard
If
so much
Leo
passion.
wasn't okay with that bucket, he could have said, hey, actually,
I think I
my
said twice I
passion-
don't think we need to do this.
what have you
There's
done?
no way of
honestly?
knowing if that's true, Leo. We
All right,
cannot.
Also,
know.
Yeah.
it's like I have heard just as much from Sarah about like how incredible Infinity Nikki is as from Leo about the finals. You know, where it's like Leo is an incredible storyteller, but like there are other people who feel really passionately about games on this lower 10 as well.
I agree.
In Mouthwashing, when I picked up the axe and I hit the foam, it just, I don't know, it just re-explained the story. Mouthwashing's cool.
Yeah, whoa.
Two good games.
Mouthwashing's cool.
I'm going to make a move. And if anyone has something to say about it, I want to freaking hear it. Let's just start moving stuff down that I don't think there's going to be objections about. Is Starstruck Hands of Time our number 20 on this list? That feels right to me.
That's fine with me.
I can live with
me.
that, yeah.
Okay. All right.
We should just do this and go up by number.
I think
See
this-
if we actually
Every
all
number.
agree.
But I think by the end, we're going to hate whatever we make. Just so we
Yeah.
can still do it, but I just know that we'll be like, wait a minute.
Not this year, Janet.
It's
This year
true.
we're all going to love it. Absolutely. Is Mini Shoot Adventures number 19 on this list?
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
I
And
think so.
I like Mini Shoot. Mini Shoot's one of my sort of fighters that I've played for. But,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I loved Mini Shoot, and I feel comfortable with that.
I am in the same camp.
I'd
Haley,
like everyone to remember how agreeable I'm being.
actually, Haley seems pretty smart and nice.
That's not suspicious at all. It's just,
We'll remember that.
Yeah.
Good.
I'm going to
Everyone
ask.
remembered that.
I'm going to ask a question, and it's not rhetorical. Is Manor Lords number 18 on this list?
I mean, it's number 3 on my list, but I am the only one fighting for it, and I would fight harder for both Infinity Nikki and Mouthwashing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm fine with it where it is.
I also like Manor Lords, and I would be fine
You're
with
being
that.
so agreeable
Sarah
right
is-
now. I wonder
I'm
what
being
she
too-
wants.
I'm just trying to be really agreeable.
This is the question. Is Diceomancer above Manor Lords? This is
That's
a question
kinda
for
weird.
our ages, I feel like.
Oh my god,
And
Jeff
Manor
is
Lords-
booting up. Hold on.
Manor Lords I so want to play, and I'm sure I would love. And that changes things. Versus Diceomancer I liked, and I respect a lot, but I feel kind of a little bit done with. And that's just genre preference, I guess.
Can we have a passion check from Jeffem on Diceomancer?
Diceomancer
Well,
is my
ding 'em.
Diceomancer is my number 3. I don't, I could tell a passionate story like Leo, but you would all be just so bored to death because it's deck building.
We're trying to get clicks.
Gazebo's
it
on
is-
fire and Diceomancer.
I rolled
Yeah,
a 4,
there's not.
and then it was crazy.
somewhere else on the screen.
Yes.
Yeah, but tell us.
They do have really good moments like that where you will fight this big boss. You'll have to figure out how you're going to deal with whatever it is. There was this boss that was like it was a time anomaly or like a rip in the fabric of time, and it starts at 1 health. And so and the way that you have to defeat it is once it gets down to 0 health, it starts taking negative damage, and once you get to negative 999 damage, then you beat it. And so that kind of like neutralizes the dice roll that you can do, because you can't just the highest you can roll your dice is 6 or whatever the die happens to be. And so like I had enough cards in my hand to make a really like get in some really big hits, but every turn it would spawn these seagulls, which is like its special attack is it spawns a bunch of like internet seagulls, because they even have like the little resize on them, and the seagulls add french fries to your deck, and when it does that, it throws a bunch of french fries at the screen, and the french fry cards give you 2 health, but basically it's just like filling up your deck with these extra cards that you don't want. And so it became this tug of war of like, I knew I couldn't get rid of all the seagulls, I just had to focus all of my damage on the anomaly. But the interesting thing about the character class that I was playing was a fighter, and all the damage that you take, which the seagulls were doing like 150 damage every turn, but the fighter's ability is that all the damage that you're going to take goes into its own special bucket, and it doesn't actually hurt you until the next turn. So I could use my special dice that I had hoarded this entire time to shrink 150 damage worth of injury every turn into 4 or 5. So it became this war of attrition where I'm trying to like set up this massive combo that can do 400 damage in one hit, but each time I'm taking a little bit of damage, and the next time I pull my hand, it's all French fry cards, and of course the French fry cards are animated just like every card. And like this, like the magic of the game is there are just these many different systems, and every new class has its own systems, its own deck that you're building. And Leo, you shouldn't feel bad if it makes you feel a little dumb. I feel dumb when I play it. It's just the level of depth that this game offers that I played deck building games all year this year, and I was like I said, like I was not interested in checking this one out when I first saw it, because it was like, I don't need another one of these in my life. And then it just built so quickly and like surpassed so many of the other ones that I played, because it's doing more, it's doing it in an interesting way, it has all these new mechanisms that I haven't seen in other games, and like the depth is there to keep on playing, as many hours as, like, I wasn't the first one to say that it killed Slay the Spire. Like, reviews of it have been like, oh, this is one to really check out if you are into them. And I know that's not as impassioned or as entertaining as the gazebo.
I love that.
I
like the
loved
fries
it.
and
I
seagull.
loved it.
I am a little scared by all the reading in that game right now, because like you say, with all the systems, it's like there's a lot to learn, but I'm sure you can say that you learn the language of it eventually, and it's a little more muscle memory.
You do. It takes quite a while, because it is like, and there are definitely times it does a really good job conveying all the information, and like anytime you scroll over a keyword, it will tell you what that does. but then you'd kind of have to look up the keywords for that keyword because there is like just so much stuff going on there. But that's where the depth comes in terms of like, you know, after 100 runs, it's still going to feel unique and it's still going to feel interesting because you can build your deck out in so many different ways. And I'm sorry for everyone who doesn't like deck building games because that just must sound like the most.
But we love you, Jeff. We just hate numbers.
It sounded cool.
We care about what you love.
Yeah.
And I wonder if just to keep moving a lot of these games up that we're talking about, does Indica go below Diceomancer?
I really think Indica is one of the most interesting video games made in like the last several years. It's one of those games that I'm gonna think about, even though I don't technically like it more than games higher up on this list, but I think it's just one of the most interesting games I've ever played, to be honest.
The Mandalores versus Diceomancer debate in this arena where we're at right now. Like, Jeffem, love that you love Diceomancer. Are we just looking at sheer numbers of Sarah also love Manor Lords and
At
also
the same spot on her.
I mean,
top
ranked
10.
it the same, yeah.
right? But then Sarah, hang on, help me out. Your Fields of Mystery is number 1, right?
Yeah.
So if
well,
you
technically, I don't know if I'm allowed to include that.
You
So that's
are, but it's
basically
confusing
a
for
0,
this discussion.
Manor Lords is a 3, and if it's a 1, Manor Lords is a 4.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so it is the same basically.
I wouldn't count Fields of Mystery against you.
Right.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, for the sake of this debate, just trying to sense where it is. Like, I feel like that's helpful. And I'm just wondering if, you know, the fact that Haley dug Manor Lords, Janet dug Manor Lords, I started and dug Manor Lords. I would love a world where I could dive more into it.
That's fine. I'm happy we got it on the list. I'm happy it moved up a couple spots. 18 seems perfect.
Wow, this is agreeable.
Nice. You're being really agreeable right now.
Suspicious.
We'll see
I
where
do
that-
think there is this cesspit of funk, which I love, which is
It's funky right here.
the cesspit
14 to
of-
16 is funky.
It is
put Nikki
funky.
in the
It's Infinity
cesspit.
Nikki 7 Rebirth and Finals where it's like, it's some of our number ones. I like celebrating that. I understand. I'm going to be agreeable. Look at this for being agreeable. I understand Rebirth has detractors and people who are disappointed in it, and that dings it. There's no doubt about it. That said, I would rather have people's passionate number ones higher on this list than games like Indica and Kunitsugami that are cool, but it's not a mountain of passion for anybody.
Well, now we're just getting to the pathos of how we organize things and what's more important.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is the time for it. This is time for pathos.
Move
At
Nikki
number
up.
16,
Move
this
Nikki
feels
up.
incredibly low to get to our pathos.
I really like Kunitsugami a lot. That's like one of my favorites this year, but I don't like it as much as I think Sarah likes Infinity Nikki and Leo likes the finals.
I do really like Infinity Nikki.
That's good to know. Other
We need
Kunitsugami.
Infinity Nikki passion, rant before we can judge Infinity
Yeah,
Nikki.
I can do it.
Look
I
it
can
up.
do another Infinity Nikki. I think what I
Yeah.
really like about Infinity Nikki is I feel like it's finally a game where you can see that there's like strength and softness. You know, like it's not like a big like boom boom pow. Nikki has like she's not like she's never like I'm just a girl like but I'm also a really cool girl. Like the entire game is soft. Right? Nikki's soft. She's just a nice girl. She's a protagonist. She has some sassy moments. She's a girl's girl, you know? She'll always help people out. She's got her sassy companion Momo, who would back her up till the day that they both die. But it's just
Is
such
Momo annoying though? That's an important
No,
question.
they actually
Okay.
redid Momo. They redid
That's
Momo.
impressive.
That's
I
good.
feel like
They
his
redid
voice
Momo
is
from the Love
right
Nikki.
there. And I don't find him annoying.
Also,
All
I
right.
I just want to point out that Nikki is not only like you said, she's really nice. She is an inspiration to how to respond to people being jerks to you. Like there is, I started reading more of the text as I've been playing now, and I'm like, first of all, this writing is actually pretty funny and interesting, and like there will just be like someone just being a total jerk or being like, oh yeah, those guys over there, they're idiots. And she's just like, oh, well, that's a really, I can see why it might be hurtful or you might feel hurt by that. And like just the smoothest negotiator I've ever seen. I'm like,
She should hook up with Ichiban. Can you imagine those two?
Oh my god, power
God.
couple.
Of kindness.
I don't know. Nikki, apparently there's like some rumor that Nikki might be like more of a fan of women. Then men.
Thank you for
Yeah,
leaving that
should
as
be
Disney
okay.
listed for
That was
us.
easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Relatable.
But yeah, so
Relatable for me.
I just feel like Nikki, and she's like not a pushover, you know, she keeps things moving, but she always does the right thing. And like the dungeons are very well constructed, like they're really, really nice 3D jumping puzzles, and just every area in this world is well constructed. Like, like I said, everywhere you look, it's cute. They truly didn't just leave any corner like untouched. There's little secrets all over the world, just like Breath of the Wild. Like you could wander in a direction and you'll find like treasure chests, puzzles, like little hidden secret spaces, and like sacred animals to like pet and like, you know, collect their materials so you can make cuter clothes. And it's, I think we just can't underestimate the strength of the softness of this game.
Yeah, and I mean, we talked about it on the podcast, but it is worth noting that, you know, the director for this game, also directed the Breath of the Wild DLC and was a lead designer in Breath of the Wild. Like, there's a lot of that DNA shoved in here. It is funny to think of, you talk about how soft Nikki is and the game is, and then like the opening of like a chained woman like shoving her heart into Nikki's soul. It's like, it is a metal opening.
Like, I'm not saying that the story doesn't get kind of crazy.
Of course.
That is Nikki. But like, I think the thing that I like about Nikki too is it doesn't like make fun of itself or like talk down on itself for being so girly, right? Like it respects the girliness of the game, and I never play it feeling like I can tell that there was some like man on the other end being like, ugh, why did I get stuck working on this game? Like, I don't want to work on this game. Like, you can tell the people who made this game knew what girls wanted, knew what they wanted this game to be, and they like executed it perfectly. Like all the clothes are just works of art. The locations are so interesting. Like the dungeons, like why does this game even have dungeons? And it's like, oh yeah, because they're sick as hell. Like the one that we did on the New Show Plus, we're jumping on paper cranes through the Wish Factory, right? Because it's a girly game, through the Wish Factory, and then it goes into this like music video about like following your dreams as you're like flying on a paper crane through the sky trying to like save your new friend's mom from a coma. And then you go into an action sequence where like she's yeeting her friend with the power of fashion.
Yeah, Hanoi.
Yeah, that was rad.
She like yeets her friend off a thing, and they like get the wish thing, and they're like, we're gonna save your mom from her coma, like I promise you.
I made a clip of that, and as I said, it's the biggest reaction any of us had to any game in MinnMax history. Like, it was such a hype moment.
Here's what I'm thinking. Are we moving Infinity Nikki and some other games up? Is Knutsugami number 16 on this list? Knutsugami people, do you have thoughts on this?
It's a 15 for me, but you know,
it feels
it's an
low,
agreeable
but it's
Kyle
fine.
16. Yeah,
Is
Being really agreeable.
Indica, and look, I'm not holding out on Indiana Jones. I understand there's a place for that debate too. I'm not trying to save that one.
Next year, yeah.
I feel like I feel like
Stop trying to make it. I was gonna say Infinity Jones.
This will be my
but I don't know what's
pissy
going on.
zone. I'll save it for the pissy zone.
is Indiana Jones and the Great Circle and Indica, are they also moving down to the Knutsugami region, like underneath the number ones?
What if we just switched Indy and Nikki? Like, how would that feel? Because it's like I don't want to move Indica down below. I don't know. Indica feels like there are a lot of us who really like it.
Think about our best moment discussion. There was like 8 Indica ones in a row.
Yeah,
but it definitely feels, it's like Nikki is not a solo passion project. It has a ton of people, and Indy has been, you've beaten it, and a bunch of us are like, seems cool from what I've played, which just doesn't feel as strong.
Yep. Moving Indy above Knutsugami or below Knutsugami?
Ooh.
Kyle?
I don't know.
You're
Final
probably the best.
Fantasy
I
keeps
think it should
moving
be
up.
above. Yeah, I was like,
Keep moving up.
Well, I think that's we've kind of
move Indy
determined
after
which
the
I guess
finals.
Indy is after the finals. Is below.
Immediately
directly
after the finals.
Yeah.
With no other game in between.
I think in my mind, I liked having the number ones blocked together, but I guess that is an artificial blocky chunk in my mind.
The other number ones don't have people who dislike them. I hate to do that.
That's why I put it at the bottom of the number ones. Okay, so the list right now is number 11, Indica, number 12, Infinity Nikki, number 13, The Finals, number 14, Indiana Jones, The Great Circle, number 15, Fantasy VII Rebirth, 16, Knutsugami, 17, Mandalords, 18, Daisomancer, Miniature Adventures, Star Trek Hands of Time.
I might swap Indica and Infinity Nikki
Yeah.
and then be good on this.
Wow. And Leo, I mean, you're the best judge of this. Indica, you might be the most passionate about?
It's my 2.
Okay. So I'm trying to just get a read on
so
your thoughts
agreeable.
on finals versus Indica, because I could bump finals up and Indica down personally.
Oh, I don't know. I think there is passion for Indica for sure.
There's passion. There's
I feel
passion.
like,
I'm trying to go
we're all
award
being
number
so
1.
nice for the lower 10 that we're all
Upper
like
10's gonna
we're-
be a bloodbath.
we're all like we got our shovels and we're like making the hills that we're gonna die on. We're like, yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, I'm just busy with my hill over here, but it's good. I love it. It's a great list. The lower 10.
How's this looking for everybody?
That feels comfy.
Yeah.
Pretty happy with that.
Okay. Kunitsugami, I feel like the big defenders, I was moving it without much talk, but you guys are all doing okay?
I'm
Kunitsugami
okay with
freaks?
it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jacob Kelsey, speak up
Yeah.
now or lose your forever
I think-
goddess.
It's
I think
my
this
personal
is good.
like 15.
Okay. I don't.
How do you feel, Ben? I feel like this is the one you would get the most mad at, this section here.
Yeah. No, I think, we set it up that like being disappointed in a game dings it. And a lot of people were disappointed in Rebirth. I mean, the only swap I see is I would move Indica down and I would swap Rebirth and Indiana Jones. But factoring in everybody, I feel pretty good about this bottom chunk. Everybody?
Yeah.
So we're at number 11, Infinity Nikki, then Indica, then the finals, then Indiana Jones The Great Circle, then 7 Rebirth, then Path of the Goddess, then Manor Lords, then Diceomancer, then Mini Shoot Adventures, then Starstruck Hands of Time.
Can I say one thing?
You betcha.
What if we moved Final Fantasy Rebirth to 14 and Indiana Jones down? I know we just had that a second ago,
I like indie above it.
It seems
you got me there, Kyle.
yeah.
And neither of us have
perfect
like
argument.
specific arguments other than
Yeah.
I mean, the
I
argument
like it.
is
I like
the
it.
more people
Oh,
play
okay,
Indiana
never
Jones, the
mind.
more they like it. And I would imagine, I mean, Janet might be the closest to this, but I don't think anyone's going to be finishing Indiana Jones and say, F this game. Like,
I guess I'm trying to.
Yeah, anything
be
can
the
happen. It happened with
champion
Rebirth.
I'm trying to be the champion of your passion, Ben. Because
stop it.
this, like,
Stop
this
it.
is like these are your favorite games ever made.
That is a great point, Haley, that I would argue is worth
We should
considering.
maybe think about
I don't
that too.
know.
As many dings as it got,
Yeah.
it's one of our favorite games ever. In
Those
the
dings
games.
are relevant, though. Those dings are not
Yeah.
coming up for other
Correct.
games.
Correct.
And I feel bad saying that because
No.
I mean,
It's true. It's
I'm
true.
sorry, Ben. I'm sorry you picked a bad game.
Haley's fighting for it more than I am. I just want to make
I
sure.
like how I'm bringing this fight to your doorstep.
Yeah,
and you
I
just
mean,
have
it's
to
like the
take it.
finals. The finals is one of Leo's top 10 games ever, and like, there aren't people on this who have played the finals and feel like it ruined their life. No offense, Ben.
Ruined their life. We're-
Ruined their life.
Don't drag me back into this debate. Everyone's souring on that game in a confusing way.
This is gonna make it move down.
It's not confusing. They finished it. That's why they're souring on
I
it.
know, but the idea
And then you
of
try to say because I finished it, I liked it. That was crazy. But we're gonna gloss past that.
don't forget the good parts, y'all. Don't forget the good parts. No, I just want to double check that the Indiana Jones people, like the people who have started that game, that you're feeling good about where that's at, that you're feeling passionate about it. That's not a matter of like, I haven't played that much,
Yeah.
so therefore I don't care.
yeah. And,
It is-
and
it makes
the three of us who are enjoying indie right now were 3 detractors for Final Fantasy. So I'm happy with that. And
Yeah.
I'm sure some of it could be recency bias, but it is a huge, well-designed game that plays completely differently from normal AAA games.
Absolutely.
And I don't think I'm going to feel differently about that in a year.
Yep.
Yeah.
I
And also,
completely
there's a lot of games on this list that I have not played that I trust the folks who have played it and finished it, enjoy it, and I kind of put you in that bucket, Ben, with Indiana Jones. It's like I trust your opinion on having finished it. You know.
Yeah, it does not crap the bed. I promise. Yeah, just the other day I was like, God, should I fought farter? Should I have fought that fart for the ending to put that in best
I
moments?
retract
but-
everything I said
yeah.
nice about you. Just
I take it all back too.
No confidence.
Okay, this feels lockable. Not.
Sorry for bringing it past trauma, Ben.
Soft lock.
No, that's
right?
fine.
Yeah.
Haley,
That was
I
the
told
key
you
for it,
Rebirth
so
was
it's
bad.
okay.
We could hit it with a hammer and open it and take the Nazi money out of it if we need to.
Kyle, I just realized that was a thing.
I know, me too.
With those
passed
goddamn
3 of those.
boxes last night at like 3 a.m. Because I swear I tried to do it the first time I saw one of those boxes and nothing happened. And I was like, I have missed so many Nazi cash boxes up to this point.
All right, the upper list right now, it's 1000 times resist, Astro Bot, Balatro, Lorelei and the Laser Eyes, UFO 50, Helldivers 2, Mouthwashing, Metaphor Refantasio, Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth, and Prince of Persia, Le Lost Crown. All right, top bundle, the premier bucket they call it in the league.
Upper decker.
I feel like going from bottom up is a good way to go, or should we just be shoot your shot? What seems off with this list? What do you think is a better way to go about this?
I mean, here's a quick one just to get us started.
Uh-oh.
I would swap Metaphor and Like a Dragon.
Okay, so you want...
I mean,
that's such
Like
a
a Dragon
small
more than
change.
Metaphor.
That's a coward's change, I say,
I would move
Kyle.
both Metaphor
get us
and Like a
started.
Dragon up.
Okay, Metaphor, Like a
But
Dragon
which
up.
one would be on top?
That's one of those math problems. Yeah.
Metaphor.
I think
okay.
Metaphor is higher in this group.
I feel that
but
way, too.
I could be wrong.
I feel that way.
Yeah, and they're close for me. I think they're right next to each other on my personal list. I think Metaphor is a better, well-rounded game, and Like a Dragon has like more distinct moments that I enjoy a lot, and that is a difficult thing to pit against each other.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
I mean,
Yeah, it's like
they're like right on top of each other for me too, as well. To be clear, like I like them both a lot, but I like Yakuza slightly more.
I'm not familiar with this
I feel
Yakuza
like-
game.
Oh, excuse me, Like a Dragon.
Thank you.
I feel like the Metaphor I like more on a mechanical level and on a large scale narrative level, and then Infinite Wealth has like characters that I like more.
This sounds familiar.
But it well, yeah, but it's like I don't know. It just feels like Metaphor is like a more solid game. I don't know. Yakuza has some stuff. Like a Dragon has some stuff that I really don't like. Just in terms of like the story.
I will say both of them slow down considerably at the end. But for Metaphor, that bothered me less than it did with Like a Dragon. But again, I think the like individual moments and individual character moments and stuff, Like a Dragon is quite a bit better.
I'll remind everyone, Ichiban is only in one of those games.
That's a fair point. I mean,
I love him
I
so
do
much.
wonder if more of us played Like a Dragon and more of us are passionate about Like a Dragon, and if that would tip any scales because of this, even if Metaphor might be a better overall experience. But like for this group, did everybody play Like a Dragon?
I did not play it.
I started it, but I didn't play that
played
much
some.
of it.
Okay. Yeah, I still have to finish it, but I went back to it last night and it was like, it was fascinating when this game came out because it felt like, all right, I think this is going to be our collective GOTY. I feel like there were months on the podcast where we're like, I think it's Like a Dragon. And I guess not having finished it, I'm missing the part where people soured on it a little bit, because I will just say anecdotally, like going back to it last night, I was like, this is just the best. Jumping right back into that
It's the
story.
end of the game.
It's the end of the game specifically. Okay, a little bit like a Dragon Ishin situation of like, yeah, the ending, it just doesn't really, a different thematically, I understand, but
Yeah, it's more. It's like the characters don't get the resolution that you would want them to. It feels like the game is so big and so grand, and then like all of the big grand things that it's setting up don't really get the conclusion that you would hope that they did.
yep, okay.
It's left a little too, obviously they're gonna like leave room for sequels and things, but it's like left a little bit too much room for a sequel.
Okay.
Almost,
It felt like if there's any game to not leave room for sequels, it would be this one, given like how much they put into it, and then they just couldn't help themselves.
That's interesting. You remember all the highs of Infinite Wealth, though? Going back to last night, I was just reminded of, first of all, it's such a specific thing, but like I was so thankful that I was lazy in the day of like, okay, I wanted to get to Ishin more, I wanted to get to Gaiden more, but like jumping back into this is like, I love that this still feels fresh for a series that's been cranking out entries for so long, and especially it just seems like now that studio is just ramping up and releasing more and more and more, still to jump into this and be like, God, I love this feeling of a game. I love that it feels so unique and that I'm not burned out on it. And then just remembering like all the funny stuff throughout even the early sections of the game, like the dating app, like Mismatch, where it's like the time thing where you have to respond really quickly. And it's like a bunch of frantic typos if you completely blow it. That's hilarious. Or like the whole Pokemon Snap thing with the Snap sickos. Like that's one of the hardest I laughed by myself this year is that entire section. I just think it's so unbelievably silly and a delight to go back to.
The stunt man even, which is, you know, you're like having to dodge cars in the street.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Fun.
Yeah, those always have a ton of mini games like that, side games they could be called. But I feel like this game more than the others had like they were each bigger and a higher hit rate of them actually being genuinely fun than I typically found.
I completely agree. Like there's usually always like a good kart racing game and stuff like that, and those are fun, but like this one had some, I mean, it had an entire like island building game within it that I just in that alone spent probably 10 to 15 hours in.
Yeah,
like
me too.
There were entire games within the game that were so good that I would have had that as a standalone experience.
And like the Sujimon whole side thing too had a very nice and like rewarding ending. It had a better arc than the game itself almost, that whole like section, which was totally optional. Just like so much effort put into every little crack.
And like all of those things would have we went over a lot of them in our like moments of the year, but just like the incredible Yakuza tightrope of being silly, being goofy, slamming into being like heartfelt and sincere. I screen capped in that stuntman thing where it is literally you are running into traffic because a director doesn't want to use CGI for his movie. The director first says to his assistant, "Shut your damn flip-flaps. This is a movie, and that means real cars and real explosions." And then immediately after, he says, "I mourn the loss of the real in a world whose soul is slowly vanishing in the name of convenience."
All the more relevant with AI proliferating at a dangerous rate.
It just like, I feel like I cannot give the game enough credit for like playing all the Yakuza games make me feel like every other localization that I've played is like lesser. You know, like I just cannot believe how much emotion they can get out of those lines in ways where I'm like, they use like slang so incredibly in that, and like, you know, like very specific swears that I'm like, I've never seen that translated from Japanese.
Yeah, I love it. Do we feel like anything makes sense for the 10 slot? Collectively, if someone had to guess at what the 10 slot should be.
Prince of Persia is a long stretch.
Interesting. We should talk Mouthwashing.
Yeah.
I do believe. Not necessarily
you
because
think
you want to put
should
it
be
in
at
10?
the 10.
I want to be clear. Sarah, you're coming at me like I'm attacking Mouthwashing. I feel like I'm one of
You're
the biggest.
turncoat,
I feel like she was
Ben.
just
You're
asking
turning.
questions, you know? I thought she was like a question asker, you know?
Yeah.
Shaking the table.
I am a big Mouthwashing defender. I just played it recently and absolutely loved it. I just feel like collectively it's like probably in the bottom half of our top 10s. I feel like
It's.
Where's it at,
Let
Sarah?
me check where it is. It's number. Actually, if we take I Feels a Mystery out, it's number 2 for me.
Whoa, really?
Oh, so that's your number 2, okay.
Oh, God.
Miscounted.
Okay, Sarah, this is why we talk. This is why we communicate. This is relevant information out there. Yeah, I mean, Mouthwashing, we talked a little bit about it last week, but just, it's one of those games that's like, God, if I just played this every Halloween as like my little 2-hour horror experience, like what a clean way to go. It made me like, as somebody who doesn't like horror games that much, or I convinced myself I don't like horror films, like playing that, I'm like, God, I should just consume more of this. Every once in a while, I do like some really effed up content, and like just thinking about that game and these sounds that guy's mouth makes is something that's like going to stick with me for so long. And just the intimacy of that stuff is something that'll haunt me to my dying days in a good way. I feel like we should throw up some spoiler walls here for Mouthwashing here. So check out the timestamps. Spoilers for Mouthwashing.
Yeah, I feel like the pacing of Mouthwashing is just really excellent, and I like that although it is in the horror category, it doesn't fall on like the old traits of horror games. You know, there's only like a few jump scares.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's like despite the insane situation of like what would happen if you were hurtling through space on a ship without any way to be rescued with like 4 other people, I feel like the real horror in it is like a very real horror, which is like what happens when you leave someone to their own devices, because like it would just be too much if we called them out on their like problematic bullshit.
Yeah.
And I think that's like the real beauty of Mouthwashing is like, yeah, it's like super scary, you know, it has some gory moments, but it's like the underlying messaging is almost so real, that's what's scary.
Yep, and in a
The
year,
humanity
yep,
is the scary part.
but
and making you play as that guy, you know, that like he's like the protagonist for more than half the game, and kind of it is a very like Silent Hill-y realization, but with like way less sympathy, you know, than Silent Hill gives its protagonist for like what's going on.
So Jacob, when last week's episode when you were talking about like really what this game is about, I feel like is shockingly relevant. Like what were you talking about specifically?
I mean that it's a game about sexual assault.
Right.
And you play as the perpetrator. That it is it Curly? Is that the
Jimmy?
No, it's Jimmy.
No, Curly's
Jimmy.
the cool guy,
Captain.
the older guy.
Curly's
right?
the guy who
Curly's also not
Curly's
without
not the cool
fault.
guy. Yeah,
Right.
Well,
because
wait,
he
who's the
knew.
old guy? Who's the old guy?
Swansea.
Swansea is the guy I like. Never mind.
The only
Yeah.
one who
Go
can
ahead.
see himself for who he is.
And that's like a good,
Yeah.
just simple twist. So Swansea starts out like this guy's a real piece of work, and by the end you're like,
Yeah.
Swansea's the only legit person here.
Yeah, Swansea's actually my best friend.
I don't want to be the only person, kind of, but yeah, just that like it is a game. It's a game that's about sexual assault, but also it kind of touches that so delicately that like it's kind of almost in just like once you finish the game and think about it, that it becomes like, oh, everything is wrapped around that, you know, that it is like it's the motivating incident for the game, and almost all of the characters' interactions are like driven by that in ways that you can only see in retrospect. Or like this was one of the only games this year that I like played through twice just because I was like, I gotta understand the story from the beginning again.
Yeah, I was definitely tempted to start it over again for sure.
It's also, I mean, it's about that in the sense that it's more about like the cover up of it and the layers of allowing it to happen, the like banality of keeping someone who's done something like that in their position, and it's hit in such a subtle way where I frankly wasn't sure that's what happened and had to look it up after and make sure, because it is so it's wrapped in all these layers of indifference. Like it could be read as an anti-capitalist text or whatever, but that's really subtle too. The company going out of business while you're on it really adds to the horror of like, okay, so nobody's coming to save us now that we've crashed. But it also is just another layer of like distance from the humanity of this that allows it to be perpetrated.
And when you're just playing as Curly and Jimmy, and the way the game wants you to focus more about, are they satisfied with their position of power and them bouncing off each other more than what's actually happening here for the larger picture? Because you're so focused on just, well, I'm the protagonist, I'm moving ahead.
Right.
Yeah, I think to Leo's point too, like to me this really is like the ways capitalism allows for evil to breed. And I think this Mouthwashing is a good example of, I think a lot of times when games are doing story, people will point to them and say, well, like, this is sad because a sad thing happened. And to me, that's like never quite enough. It's like the subject matter alone isn't what makes it impactful. I think with Mouthwashing, the thing that I really love about it is the more, similar to 1,000 Times Resist, the more I talk about it and break it down, the more impressed I am by it.
Yeah.
Because there are actually like negatives I have on Mouthwashing. Like I think the monster stuff doesn't play well. I think
There's some
the
gameplay
puzzle at
misses,
the
yeah.
end.
Yeah.
I think there definitely are some gameplay L's that interrupt what is like a really cool story they're telling. But ultimately, it's not just what they're unpacking, but how they unpack it, and the implication of, you know, layering things. Like, I'm trying to get the scene right, but where you're cutting into the cake, and then at the same time you're cutting into this body, and the way they play with
it starts with
consumption,
the cake, right? And you're like, why am I sawing it? The first thing you think of is, why am I sawing this cake?
This is going to be relevant
Nobody
later.
would cut a cake like this.
Right.
Why are you making me sit here and slowly saw through it, and then it like takes a little bit, and then it loops back to like, it's a human leg.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think it's so smart too, with those transitions. Like, they got me so much, and it's something that I don't think is going to work on console if they eventually port it, but it makes you feel like your computer is being bogged down with every transition of like, okay, stuff's slowing down, and now it's the compression is kind of bleeding
They
through.
do like the screen tearing, and
It's
you're like,
so cool.
like, and then your heart rate spikes.
Yeah,
Amazing
and then,
effect. So well done.
That scene, the scene where you walk in to the medical.
Yes,
bay
exactly what I want to talk about.
Anya
Yes.
has killed herself, and like, you can't even see it. It's like the screen, it like just is tearing in a way that like prevents you from looking at that side of the screen. Is like, I when I realized what was happening, I was like, I cannot believe this is so well done, and I've never seen it done before.
I think it's also, I mean, I think narratively it works there, but I think it's also with jumping through time. It's like, well, we don't want to reveal the state of Curly and Anya at this point, but they're clearly in this space. So how do we just get around that? I think is also how I read that. Of like, we just need to compress this entire area to make it a swirl of chaos that you just can't look into. Was the idea that Swansea was going to put Anya in the pod?
I thought it was Daisuke.
Hey, who's gonna put Daisuke?
Oh, is that
on
what
the
it was?
pod?
Okay.
But yeah, just
Really
in terms
anyone
of
but Curly.
moments,
Like the moment where you as Jimmy are about to kill Swansea, and it's like him sitting in the chair and silhouetted by like real life footage, and Swansea's just giving that monologue about like getting sober and about how actually being drunk were like the best moments of his life is like, it's kind of a hard to explain thing, but like that's one of the moments of 2024 for me.
Yeah, I'd love to just.
I agree with that.
The first time, I think, where you go to the cockpit and like go down the stairs, and there's like the big drop in there, and it looks like you're in like the final arena of a From Software game. You're just in the water that's just like expanding out forever. Like, what is this? It's so cool. And then like you're still in that part of the game. I felt like it was early enough where I'm like, is this literal? Is the cockpit some big weird Minority Report like bath that I'm going to be laying in? Like, what is this ship actually laid out as? But yeah. It really snuck up on me. I loved it.
And even the gameplay sections that miss are not around too long. I think more so than Indica, which I of course love and is saying something about its slow parts. I think it's still just you move through it at such a good clip. And agreed, Hanson. Like at finishing this, it's like I would play 1,000 games like this.
Yes,
I want a billion games like this to play on my Steam Deck every single night and be inspired and be left with things to think about.
Yeah,
and just in and out, and to just know, just say what it has to say and get on.
I also want to note, because since I was the one that dragged some of the gameplay aspects, there also are gameplay aspects that really aid the story as well. Again, I think us talking about those cuts in the structure, but also things like having to get the supplies and like axe down the foam, or one of my favorite mechanical integrations of this, because I hate sometimes when we talk about story games, like gameplay does take a little bit of a backseat, and I think there are people that see that as, oh, so is it really, is it really a good game? And I think there was a lot of enjoyable mechanical aspects, like when you get the alcohol that you end up using to make the poison, but you kind of get it in a funky order, so that as the player, I'm like, well, I have the alcohol, right? But you don't know yet that you use it for the poison. I feel like that's such a smart example of gameplay being well constructed and meaningful. And it was like very meaningful that I picked it up. Like, there's not a lot of games where you acquire a like very mundane item that you inherently just use for another mundane activity, where that feels like a meaningful thing, other than we wanted you to pick it up so that you felt involved. Like, I really felt involved in that. And I found myself saying, like, as I streamed it, oh yeah, we have that, don't we? And then later it's like, oh man, like you can kind of see, it's also just a great tragedy of a story that doesn't add any comedy either, which is rare for tragedy. Usually tragedy includes catharsis. That's the inherent structure of when you make a tragedy in the traditional sense. But this is like, what if we only had tragedy? And you continuously see characters mess things up over and over again, until there's nothing left to destroy. And I think watching that downfall is great as well.
I do think there's enough, like, if not outright funny, like absurd and cute stuff and like well-defined characters that are fun to watch bounce off each other that it successfully like pulls you in versus sometimes it being straight up tragic can be like
the mouthwash thing is funny. Like that's
all they got.
It is like a funny thing. It's just like horrible that it is the case.
Right. Watching Swansea dance in front of the screen that's all cracked is funny, but it's sad when you think about his situation in life at the moment. Yeah. Okay, spoilers over? Are we feeling good? All right, spoilers over for Mouthwashing.
Scary.
Oh, I didn't. I never made it through that part successfully.
Oh.
So now you guys have to take all that and give it a number.
I feel good about where it is. I mean,
I think if it moves, it moves higher.
Interesting.
Wow.
I like it where it is.
I mean, where's it at on your guys' personal list? That's other than Sarah. I think for me it's at 8.
6 for me, I think.
Okay.
I haven't decided yet. I'm being kind of cheap. It bounces around. It's at the bottom 10 or after the 10, to be honest.
Okay. Leo?
It barely didn't make it for me.
Okay.
As much as I like it. What a year.
Yeah, it's either 12 or 8 for me.
Okay.
I haven't figured out yet.
I mean, this feels like the right arena for it. Looking at who are the overlappers, Jacob, you played a lot of this stuff. I mean, Mouthwashing, Metaphor, Like a Dragon, Prince of Persia. How does that?
I've played all of these on the top 10.
Okay, yeah. I mean, do we feel like, as a group, though, Jacob, keep it down, please. Metaphor, Like a Dragon is in the right spot? Should those move higher collectively, separately? Mouthwashing's inherently going down if that happens. That's what I'm trying to figure out here.
I think it's easier to bump down than bump up, which will naturally happen when we bump down. You know what I mean?
What about a Helldivers Metaphor swap?
Helldivers down to 8.
I can live with that.
Metaphor.
This is a weird year for me. You guys are arguing for the JRPGs, and
It's finally happening.
You're arguing
I didn't have to do anything. I'm like, okay,
Is it how you wrote it in your dream diary? Or is it a little different?
Oh my god! I had the most humbling moment, Kelsey, when I was listening to you in an episode recently, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I played as many JRPGs as Kelsey. Wow, I'm proud of myself." And you were like, "Yeah, it's been a light year for JRPGs for me," and I was like, "Damn it!"
Right.
But again, I did.
Hey, Kelsey at her
finish
worst
all
is
of
still better than
those.
most people. So
I guess maybe now's the time to talk about Metaphor. Like, is Metaphors above Like a Dragon for everyone but me? Maybe is what I'm getting.
It is. Metaphor's my number one, personally.
Okay,
That's a biggie.
Sarah, I know you didn't finish it, but where are you on Metaphor?
I liked it. Once again, it's another one of those games where I put 40 hours in, and I said, you know what? 40 hours well spent. But they will not be getting an hour more from me.
Even when I told you how sexy the final boss fight is.
I just looked it up. It
Oh
was
my
very
god,
sexy.
Sarah! It was
crazy.
I looked it up and I was like, yes.
gasped. the
Metaphor
phrase
is
was
my
gasp.
like number 9 on my list. So that's kind of where it sits in there. I liked it.
Good to know. I feel like the biggest question mark, we touched on it briefly last week. Old Lorelei and her gosh darn laser eyes.
You're waiting for this one.
What? I know. Haley
I got
and
my
Kyle-
hill here. This is what I've been digging.
That's what it was.
No doubt.
Yeah, truly.
I'm
like this
bleeding out.
This is my number 2, and it was a serious contender for number 1 for me. For real. Like it's just. I mean, I guess now's the time to dive into it. I suppose.
Please.
Right?
do it.
I really, and Haley, I don't know how. Where is it on your list?
It's number 5 for me, which is like crazy. It's that low because I do absolutely adore 2. There's just so many good games this year.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it before. It was a game that I just booted up just to see. Like, it was literally just like, let me play this for 5 minutes so I can talk about it on a podcast, and it like hooked me in immediately. You're just like this stoic, intense woman who just looks incredible with these like glasses, and you're just exploring this like noir house, and it's just like immediately engaging. And then when you get past that, you just it's a game that like you have to read everything. Like every bit of narrative, every text in the game feeds into solving the puzzles. Like it's all sort of like swirling around getting puzzles solved. And at the beginning of the game, I don't think I need spoiler walls for this, But at the beginning of the game, you're just reading all these weird, disparate stories that are like just little bits of things that just seem like unrelated and don't sort of like mean anything to each other. But like maybe there's a sentence here that lets you solve a puzzle. And then as you are moving along, you're reading more, you're finding more things. And I don't know that I'd have to think to it, but like I don't know if I've ever experienced something that just felt so disparate and weird that just like in the last like 5 hours, just all of a sudden just came into focus. And it was like, here's how all this stuff is connected. This game is examining the nature of art and what it means to make art and then also there's like a murder mystery that like weaves throughout all of it, and solving that murder mystery by the end is like gameplay. It's like solving a puzzle with like everything you've learned, and the final puzzle has you examining each of the characters that you've learned about, like reading through all these documents. So it was just this like awesome pace of like a puzzle game. And then on top of all that, like the puzzles were just engrossing and like awesome. And I loved like talking to people about it who I like, you know, weren't playing the game that I was trying to get tips from. I loved showing my family, like, what do you guys think this is? How do I solve this? I love that it's like, I had all these like notes by the end of the game, which like maybe some people would see as a negative, but I just love the process of like by the end of the game, like again, like things coming into focus at the last second, looking at all this, like literally like 5 or 6 sheets of paper that I had that just looked like they had the scribbling of an insane person on them. And I like looked at every one of those and I was like, oh yeah, that was a cool puzzle. Oh, I remember solving that. Oh, I liked how I figured that out. It's the kind of game that like I just got totally sucked into. And then when I finished it and I like solved every puzzle, whether I had to or not, I was like, I'm so bummed that I have to leave this world. It was so enthralling throughout. And even in moments where I was like walking around, like just looking at things, because that's like part of the game. It's like getting stuck. It was just, yeah, I absolutely adore Lorelei the Laser Eyes. And it's like, it's kind of like the same thing as Kunitsugami, where it was like, I just did not expect this game to knock me off my feet the way it did. Like their last game, Sayonara Wild Hearts, like I liked and I thought it was fun, and I was like, yeah, I want to see what they do next. And it was just like pulled me in such a huge, massive way. I really adored Lorelei and Laser Eyes.
Yeah.
I can talk about this game for a million hours too. What do you want to say something, Jeff, first though, before I talk for a million hours? That's going to be quite long.
I was just going to say I'm about maybe a third or halfway through. It's like number 5 on my list. I've really enjoyed it. I played Fear the Spotlight or Don't Fear the Spotlight, whatever it was, and like I played that one first, and I was like, this is great. Like I love this, you know, short kind of retro, you know, like survival puzzly kind of game. And then I started Lorelei after it and was like, oh, this just eats that game's lunch to the point I can't even remember its name at this point. Like best puzzles of the year by far of any puzzle game. Probably like I put it up there with The Witness in terms of like really thoughtful puzzle design, but also way more variety than The Witness. It was, I really like that like as you go, there are a couple, you get exposed to a lot of puzzles before you know how to solve them. And then you find out that there are a couple big buckets of different types of puzzles. And like once something clicks for you, you're like, okay, I can go back and I can do like 8 puzzles based on what I just learned about this. And you start putting it together. You have like the shortcuts I loved, because you have shortcut doors like in Resident Evil, like in any other game, where like, okay, you've made your way around like the long way, and now here's this door that's going to make it a short way. But instead of like getting a key for it or just opening the door, like each one has a number, and you just have this puzzle book, and you just go to that page, and it's a bespoke puzzle like you would get from, you know, like some mathematician's puzzle book, and you have to figure that out, and then that gives you the code to open that door. Like, just like we get so many puzzles in puzzle games, or you know, like these types of Resident Evil style puzzles, and this one feels like it was made by a professional puzzle maker, and that's really satisfying. And the fact that they start, I haven't seen all the all the threads haven't come together yet. But the fact that they're weaving into the story makes me really enjoy it as well.
I would echo this feels like a puzzle game made by puzzle people, to the point that this is like every aspect of this has been thought out meticulously with like playing puzzle games in mind to make that the best. This is the best game to solve puzzles in, because it literally sets you up to have the most fun and spending the most time just figuring out the puzzles with little restriction. Like the fact that you can play the whole game with one hand, so your other one is freed up to write notes, is the most genius thing a puzzle game's ever done. And I clocked that the second I started. Like I'm right-handed, so I had my notebook literally to my right. And I'm so used when I play Nancy Drew or any other million puzzle game things. It's like, oh, you have to completely let go, stop your movement, and write stuff down. This game, you can keep moving, keep turning pages as you look up, and you just only have to use your left hand. Works on the Switch as well. You don't have to use one Joy-Con while you're playing it. Literally, just that alone would have won me over, but then it moves on to make every other aspect of it just completely a love letter to puzzle games, on top of the fact that the art style is insanely like cool looking, and all like a bunch of different puzzles have their own unique art styles that you sometimes only see for like 3 or 4 minutes. There's like a text-based adventure game in this. There's, pixelized like strategy games in this. There's
the PS1
games in this game that are integrated as puzzles that you solve things in them, and then you're going back in those worlds to do other things. Like, slight spoiler for Lorelei as one of the puzzle types, if nobody minds, just like something you do in one of the puzzles, if that's cool.
Sure.
I mean, yeah. So the PS1 game puzzles, you go in there to like figure out one thing or another. And then later on, maybe 4 hours later, I was doing something else, and I realized solving another puzzle, I had stumbled upon game tester notes of like bug tester notes. And the guy was like, and you're in this level, if you do this, this, and this will happen. And then the puzzle became force all the bugs in these games and you'll get these error codes that spell out the next puzzle. So I was going back in the PS1 game, and one of them was like, go behind the top hat guy, spin around 3 times and click on him twice. And then the game, I did that, and you click on him and the game goes, and it gives you 1/5 of another puzzle.
That's awesome.
And then you have to go through and find all the bugs in all the different PS1 games. Like, what? That's insane. It's like the coolest. And that was one of 100 other anecdotes I could tell you, but then I'm be spoiling the whole game. You know what I mean?
So spoilers over, to be clear?
Spoilers over.
Okay.
Spoilers over. It's just, and and the other thing with the buckets thing, it's like, you get really overwhelmed when you first show up. There's one very easy introductory puzzle that just teaches you look at, note, read thing, get information. And then after that, you're just opened onto the lot of this giant mansion, and it's just like wherever you can go, good luck, try to figure it out. And it's so satisfying to get stumped, and you have to be the type of person to just say, I can't figure this out right now, that's okay, and move on. And then when you come back 3 hours later and you're a freaking genius and you can do everything in like 2 seconds, it is so fun to just run to all the rooms that now you know how to fix that stumped you like crazy, and just be like, F1, 2, F1, 3, and then everything opens. You're like, yeah! And then you take that to go open something else that stumped you 2 hours ago too. It was just this wave of satisfied fun that you do have to go through crunchy bits of feeling really stuck. But once you work through those, no puzzle is impossible and like unfair. Because sometimes I play puzzle games and you want to just like die. I was playing Grim Fandango, love that game, but one of the puzzles was like using a balloon to scare a pigeon or something.
Yeah, early
and I was
on,
like,
yeah.
I was like, no one would like, that's not a logical thing. I didn't go, this balloon will really scare those pigeons. It's just like, I really hate when puzzle games have that.
But if the balloon looks like the poet Robert Frost, then it all makes complete sense.
And like, that game's fun, but you know what I mean? There's so many puzzle games where it's like, they kind of had to mash the answer because they're like, but we don't want to have to redo this whole section. Just make the balloon solve that, whatever. And you're kind of like, ew, gross. That feels yucky because that doesn't make sense. There's none of that in this game. All the fat is trimmed. Everything makes sense. If you have a logical thought, that's usually the correct thought to apply to a puzzle at any given time. And if you get frustrated, there's 1,000 other things you could walk away from that one thing to go do something else.
Yeah,
it's the best.
Sometimes it
game.
Literally chases you and gives you a puzzle. If you're stuck for too long, there's like a certain series of puzzles that it's like, you've been walking around for a while. This character is going to come find you and give you a very easy puzzle that you can finish.
Weird.
Like,
that's a cool idea.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hey, where's it on your list, Haley?
It's at 5.
duly noted, everybody. This sounds great. I'm not questioning that by any means.
It's the best puzzle game I ever played, and I'm the puzzle bitch.
Okay.
That helps.
Yep. Okay. It definitely helps my life that you said that sentence. But I'm wondering, this feels like Helldivers 2 territory on the list for me. Am I way off? I feel like
I understand.
I
feel like it's too high right now.
it is, and I feel like it got a very good opening spot. And
yes, it did.
I just want to make sure we're not
my
weighing
first
it.
edition. Yeah.
Yeah. What was that, Kelsey?
Yeah.
The Hitman strategy.
It's exactly what's
Hitman
happening
strategy.
here. Yeah, he's hitmanning us.
Yeah. And like to restate, it's my number 2.
Right.
And like I would, so that puts it above like Lorelei and I'm sorry, not Lorelei. We're talking about Lorelei. Like Metaphor and Like a Dragon for me personally and principally.
Kyle Helldivers is my number 2.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And the fact that like Metaphor is Haley's number 1, I think Lorelei is above Helldivers 2? Below Mouthwashing? Or above Mouthwashing? Now Mouthwashing seems too high to me.
It's number 7.
It's number
There's
7.
2 of us that like Lorelei, and like 6 of us that like Mouthwashing.
Yeah, but we're measuring passion.
It's
The passion
Sarah's
was
number
good.
2.
It is Sarah's
It's
number
not
2.
fair because I'm not smart enough to be passionate or not passionate for it.
It's
I had to
purely
stop playing
emotional,
Look,
Janet.
because it was too hard.
It's my
Is the game
grenade
good?
that I
I'll
lobby
never
when I'm not sure exactly how else.
It's
higher. Look,
It
my
feels like-
passion is very high.
It feels like under Mouthwashing over Helldivers 2 maybe, or right under Helldivers 2. It's one of those two. It's next to Helldivers 2.
It is hugging Helldivers 2 in some. I'm wondering, does anybody else have Helldivers 2 on their list? Okay, Jacob, give us that number.
10.
10.
Oh, I think I have it at 10 actually too. Okay, cool.
Okay.
Surprise.
I'm surprised.
Is it?
Don't be mad that I forgot. Don't make it not count just because I forgot that it was on there. Okay, I had to tab over to my notes.
I hear you. So I moved it to 7 for Lorelei, above Helldivers 2. What do y'all think of this?
Good to me. I played a couple hours of Lorelei, and it is really cool.
Okay. Are we feeling content-ish?
I'm content at the moment. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Good break for mouthwashing.
Yes. It's okay. It's
Okay.
better than Metaphor and Balatro, dare I say.
Well, Lorelei?
Lorelei, yeah, for me.
Kyle, we aren't you. How many times do we need to scream that in your face? We're like your daughter over here. We'll never be like
And
you,
I would
Dad.
text her puzzles sometimes, and she would solve them for me. And
That
I was
sounds
so
adorable.
proud of her.
That sounds
Kyle
adorable.
DM'd me a
That's
couple
really
times for us to talk about puzzles. That was really fun. Charles Hart was weird all DMing about puzzles.
Yeah, he solved
really
them
cool.
for me too.
Also, yeah, there's an episode of Bonus Pod that's Kyle and Haley unpacking the game for an hour. If you want to unlock that at the $5 tier, everybody,
Full
thank
spoilers on that, if I remember correctly. I think. Right?
you. I think a big question mark for me at this point, and anybody else is welcome to jump in there as well, but that's the sound of a UFO landing, everybody, because UFO 50 is currently at number 4. How do we
it's
feel
too
about that?
low.
I'm not gonna lead the
low.
witness anyway. I'm
Wow.
just curious as a group, how do we feel about UFO 50 at number 4?
It's too many games to play.
It's too
really
good.
good.
I still haven't
what
played
a-
them
what a
all, and it's
torturous.
Yeah.
We gotta remember
The only game
Candy-
no one finished. Boom, we found it. There's no way you beat all the games in those games. There's a 40-hour RPG in that.
Yeah, let's put it below
I'm calling
Arco.
Cap if you said you.
But if
said
I
you
beat
it.
10 of them, then it's like 10 times any beating of any game on here.
Oh God, he's right, you guys. He's right
Did
straight
you?
up.
Yeah, like I beat like 8.
Okay.
You might beat the most of it. I don't even think I've tried all the games yet, but I do really like UFO 50, and it's always fun to see its name written in a Google document.
UFO 50 is like a feat. More
Yes.
so than anything on this list.
Yes.
It is the most impressive thing that has come out in recent memory. These are 50 really well-designed games. And it is all sold in one package, and it's done with a very cute little like lore wrapping around, this is a fake old company that made all of these games. But they're all good. Even the ones that are not my genre are still like, that is a super well-designed game with an interesting twist. It's like they took a concept from, some of them are from NES games, some of them are from later genres, and, they just made it 8-bit or whatever, but like, these are all really, really solid, and they have an interesting twist to them to make me go like, wow, yeah, if that came out I mean, it's amazing now, but can you imagine how crazy that would have been if that came out 30 years
History changing for so many of these if they were released in the year they supposedly released.
You
And
can
yeah,
say that about any game.
but they couldn't have actually released back then. These actually could have, you know. I mean, maybe I'm sure they skirted some edges, but like
No,
They
I actually
aesthetically
do-
could have. Yeah, I don't know. They weren't.
I actually
reading
do
that,
like
yeah.
that argument. I think it's fun, but like, yeah, anytime it's a pixel, a sort of a pixel game, I kind of have that thought, and I think it's true. You
Fields
know?
of
It's
Mystery
we
could have
have
been the
all
best game on
modern
PS1.
designs and sensibilities of 2024, but I don't mean to undercut UFO 50. It's amazing.
no, that's the thing. It's like I went back to it this morning too and just had that epiphany as well, Kelsey, just like, yeah, there's a reason we don't see this ever in the industry. Like, this is such a rare comet that is passing through right now with UFO 50 for what a wild project this is.
Yeah,
It's the Psych Odyssey of video games.
Wait a minute.
So it's
Move
not
it
junky.
up.
Greatest work of art of all time.
what I was gonna say is it's so good it's a mistake, and like I feel like when they were making it, probably at year 2, they were like, "Oh, we really f***ed up. This was a bad idea," and then they had to work on it for like another 6 years because to put that many games into like this is never gonna happen again. They would be insane to put that many games, and the fact that they're not just throwaway. I said this the last time we talked about UFO 50, but like most of the time when people make a compilation of a bunch of different games, it's like bottom of the barrel, what can we scrap together from other people's old dusty ass ideas. And this one, it feels like there was some kind of directive of like every game has to have an interesting twist or do something that hasn't been done or have a theme that would not normally be associated with this. And it's like there are a few that I don't like, but like another testament to it is after putting like 50 hours into this game, I reorganized it by most played to least played, and I started at the least played side, and like I got 3 or 4 new favorites out of that I put in, you know, like 6 hours into each one that was, and they were at the bottom of the list and was like, no, actually this is really cool. Still not the Onion Delivery car game, that one, and the one where you dive down. But beyond those two, like it is such an impressive
48 out of 50
feat.
ain't bad.
Pretty good.
And I will say I was probably the least hot when it released, in that like I have no nostalgia for that kind of period of gaming. I'm really a narrative.
We're all the same age.
Okay, well, but you've played more old games. I never played, you know, NES or SNES games as a kid. I'm a huge narrative guy. I like stories. Most of these games do not have stories, and just like inevitably, every time I go back, I am won a little more over. Like I talked to Leo at the meetup, being just like, I just don't get it. I like 2 of them, and then everything else feels harder. And then like I just keep going back and I find more ones. I'm like, okay, I guess I like this one too. And it's just like happening steadily enough that I know if I play this, and I probably will play it over the next year, eventually I will just be like won over on all of them, because it just seems like that's how it works. You know, it's like they all seem kind of dumb and hard until you spend enough time on them, and then it is actually revealed that none of them are just dumb and hard. They are all like designed way more than they should be for what this thing is.
But that's the beauty of the package, is like you feel so free to try something for 10 seconds and you're like, this isn't my vibe, I'm gonna back out.
Right.
If it was 10 games, you probably wouldn't feel that way. You'd be like, I gotta give this a good shot. 50 is such an absurd number that there's no pressure to play or beat them all. And you get to go see what grabs you in that first minutes of playing.
And there have been some where like it did not click with me at all, or I found it really obtuse or hard or whatever. And then I like watched someone else play it or talk about it, and then immediately was just like super impressed with it, even if it still was not like, I mean, Mooncat's like one of the most obvious examples where relearning how to navigate, like literally move your character in a video game, is kind of the big twist on it, because you don't use the D-pad, you use like the left and right side of your controller / Steam Deck, whatever you're using. And it makes it like really difficult to start playing, and eventually you start to get it. And I still, like, that's one I don't think I'll ever finish because it just keeps building on that same, like, brand new movement mechanic. But when I hear other people talk about it and watch other people play it, I'm like, man, what a cool concept. That's crazy that they tried to reinvent moving.
and that is one I did end up beating that one, and it like they do smart things with some of those games where like that one is hard, but every time you get to a new level, you start at that level. So it isn't as like they make some really smart difficulty choices, even though like so many of these games it's like, oh, it's one of those old hard games that you're supposed to beat your head against the wall. Like the ones that are really hard, they actually do smart things like that where you're still making progress on them.
Except for Velgress, where you just have to beat your head against the wall, but be delighted as you do it.
Yeah, that's the downwell, but up type game. Yeah, and that was another one that would like I probably put like 2 minutes into it and was like, nope, this one's not for me. And then you talked about how much you've been playing it, and I went back to it and I ended up putting like 2 hours into it, and it's like
it's so fun.
Yeah, there have been so many games like that. There have been games that like when this came out, there were nights where I was playing it and like absorbed in a game and like just feeling like, man, I want to get back and play those other games in UFO 50, but I'm like so absorbed in this one I can't stop playing it. But I really want to get back to the other ones that I like more, and it's just like it's absurd. It's an absurd package that
you can boot it up
like,
in any mood, and you're like, oh, I want to do more strategy stuff tonight. Let me choose one of these 8 awesome strategy games.
Yeah. I mean, it just
the multiplayer offerings,
incredible.
We did a bunch of local multiplayer on the charity stream and stuff, and it's just like it's so smart.
Yeah,
I played a bunch more multiplayer. Yes, I played a bunch more multiplayer with my dear Kobe Soft Joe, and there's nary a miss in the bunch. We spent so much time on Kick Club, which is this one of the older ones because it's in chronological order. This is like earlier in the system's life cycle, and it's arcadey, moving through these vertical worlds, kicking a soccer ball around, and just learning the mechanics of passing it between each other and setting each other up. And one of us having to clutch to get enough points to get a life where the other one can steal it and come back. It's like so full-fledged, and we spent so many hours over multiple days until we finally got the gold together. Because every game has its win condition that turns the cart gold, and then its super special win condition that turns the cart cherry. So there's a lot to dig into for rewards, and being able to do that with so many of these with a friend and have that be just as good or better. It's crazy that this also has that going for it.
Yeah. I mean, just this morning I did a little bit like the Jeffem thing. I was like, it's so easy to kind of get in your groove with this game, but it's like I need to force myself out of it. And like I jumped into some games, I'm like, I don't even remember. I played all of them a little bit when I first launched, but I'm gonna go back and some I don't remember, like Star Whisper. I'm like, oh no, this shmup absolutely rules. Okay, well I truly don't remember Alphazar's hat, and jumped to that like, all right, I really love Alphazar's hat. I forgot. Yeah, okay. It's just like over and over again. I'm learning that lesson, and like it feels like game design immersive theater of like, we're just going to drop you in this space, wander around, find what clicks for you, find epiphanies throughout 30 years of game design, 40 years, it's such a cool package.
Yeah, there is that, like the chronological aspect of it, and you see like mechanisms that carry over from one to the next that kind of flesh out this idea of like, you get a sense of what the developer was like, and characters return and some sequels and stuff like that. And it's such an interesting thing that like I've never thought about like fictionalizing the software developer and like telling that story through their games. And then to have the games be good anyway,
Yeah. By the way, shout out to the Eggplant podcast, Nick Sudner and friend of the show, Sarah Podzorski, but they're doing a whole series all year about every game, and that's been fun to listen to, like just hear this, basically a deepest dive on every entry in UFO 50. And they just had an episode too that was with all of the designers, or a lot of the designers kind of talking through it. And it's amazing. So many of them were like, yeah, we didn't really go back and study those old games. We just kind of like, I guess we unconsciously learned lessons, but we just kind of tried to make good games. So now we're going to go back and try and mimic NES game design, and I feel like that's such a better place, and it results in so many better, more interesting games than we tried to make a Mario 3 clone. Here you go. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's incredible. are we happy in life? At number 4 with UFO 50.
It's crazy because games get dinged for having bad parts in addition to their good parts, and I don't think even combined we could all speak to every game in UFO 50 as being good. But Party House alone has a shot at number 1. So how much strength does that have?
Party House also.
Yeah.
That game's great.
Truly, if this was all split up, there would be at least 3 games from here on my top 10.
Yeah.
So it's not fair. It deserves a spot. Does it deserve a spot above Balatro? Jeff, what is the top of your
Crowd goes
list?
mild.
Listen, Balatro is a masterpiece. I put Balatro up there next to Tetris as being a perfect game. It's one of the first games I played this year. I put 100 hours into it. I still love it. It still doesn't get old to me. I said at the time that Balatro felt like a gift to me because even already I had played so many deck builders and I played so many roguelike games, which I'm sorry you guys have had to hear me talk about them.
Stop apologizing. It's fine.
No, I like the apology. I appreciate that.
When it comes to Metroidvanias,
You're welcome.
But it felt like a gift because I had played so many of them, and it was a roguelike deck building game that did both completely different and felt completely new to me. And it's like making a deck builder based on traditional card game, poker basically, and figuring out a way to completely manipulate that and blow the game design of poker wide open is insane. And doing a roguelike where you are just setting up challenges, one challenge after the next, instead of it being I have to fight monsters and maybe I'm going to die, 45 minutes into this run or whatever. Those two things combined together felt like a gift. And what I didn't realize at the time and what I've come to realize throughout the rest of the year is it's the gift that's kept on giving because so many games have copied that new the Balatro subgenre of deck building or roguelike. And half my list of top 10 games are games where it's okay, it's a roguelike, but it's this, this is what I've been telling you guys all year. It's a roguelike, but it's pachinko or it's, blackjack or whatever. It's such an interesting design space that it has created. And it's still the best of them, the masterpiece, the game design plus also completely nailing all the visuals, the music. There's one song and yet it still hasn't gotten old to me after 100 hours. It is perfect game design. And it's still my number 2 because UFO 50 is a once in a lifetime thing. That's just never going to happen again.
The pivot.
So that's my 1 and 2. That's where they should be on this list too.
Whoa!
But nice. Also, I will not fight this crowd if they want Balatro above UFO 50 as well because they're both just amazing designs. This was my year. Some years, it feels like, hey, it's a Leo year. He gets a lot of crazy games that speak specifically to him. I was a happy boy this year.
It felt like a Leo year too, so I'm glad.
There we go.
Everybody loves Balatro, right?
The year of the Leo.
How much does this group... Sarah?
Wow.
Finally, we join hands.
It was not a Sarah year.
Sarah, I'm totally with you.
But you got Infinity Nikki.
I got Infinity Nikki.
Yeah, in number 11.
Above Rebirth.
That's true.
That's something. That's
and then
something.
I both taken hard L's today.
I mean, for any ding that we can... It's basically throwing a rock against a tank, but
yeah,
I bounced off Balatro, and I feel like it feels like the rest of the world... I'm not a smart person. I understand that. It's all on me. It's not on Balatro.
This is what it was like, Ben, living through Wordle.
Okay, yeah, I can see it. I can see it.
Balatro is my personal.
But what side
Wordle
of history do you want to
year.
be on, Ben?
It's a great question because I keep going back to Balatro and I'm like, everyone's like, I can't put it down. It's the wildest, most addictive thing ever. And it's like, that seems all right. It has not hooked into me in a way that makes me alarmed about my IQ.
I'm hotter than that. But and again, it's funny because I'm already being defensive. It's a me thing. I cannot wrap my head around poker hands. In college, all
That's the
my
only part I
roommates
get.
were poker obsessed, and they would try to get me to play poker. I don't know what is wrong in my brain that I can't keep track of which hands are like the best. And like as a result, like Balatro I had a great time with, but I beat it like once, beat it quote unquote, and I didn't really feel super compelled to go back to it.
I have the same problem in my head until this game. So it's interesting that you said that, because I also had that, like, I can't wrap my mind around poker, which I did not know was an experience that more than one person had.
Yeah.
But then this game kind of like taught it to me through...
I was excited to play it because I was like, great, I'll finally learn and understand poker. I'm certainly further along. I definitely understand it better than I ever have. But Balatro is fantastic, but it's not in my top 10. Like, it's a great game.
I have historically felt the same way about poker. I hate a deck of cards. Like, if I'm ever at a party and someone takes out like a non board game, just like a 52 deck of cards, I'm like, I don't want to play whatever game that you're wanting to do. I don't like learning card games. And the fact that Balatro is my number 3 is just like, it is unbelievable. And I think part of it is like, because it's not poker, and it doesn't bear any resemblance to poker other than the fact that you make combinations of cards. But like the fact that it, not only is it a game that I like, but it has like made me feel more warm towards literally a deck of cards, one of the oldest gaming devices in the human history. It's like, truly, it like did something that I did not think would be possible for myself.
That's amazing, and because it teaches not only poker hands, but it invents new poker hands. You're getting sevens of a kind and stuff eventually, or whatever.
Yeah, I also didn't know poker playing this, and I just would read like on the side. I probably still don't have them memorized on which one's more powerful, but like I don't need to memorize it. I can just look at in the game UI, which I think is great. I think they do a great job with that. Balatro's my number 2, and I don't think it necessarily needs to be. Like, I know a lot of people have these, like, lifer game. Oh, I put this many hours. I keep coming back. I'm just not a keep coming back player for most games. Like, I think the most I've come back to a game is probably EAFC/FIFA, which, like, that doesn't make that a better game just because I keep coming back. I like playing that game a lot, so I keep playing it. So I'm not one to necessarily ding it for that for me personally. Like, I have not put 100 hours into Balatro. But the second I played Balatro, I'm like, yeah, this is really freaking good. And then you keep playing it, and I keep getting reaffirmed in that. And I think it's hard to feel fresh and new and different in a space that isn't just so full of titles, as Jeff alluded to, all these different rogue games. But also, I hate rogue games for the most part. There's a couple exceptions. I'm like, I really like Binding of Isaac and like 3 other games, but I tend to hate that feeling of never being able to progress and rolling like the invisible dice over and over again and like learning to get good. I'm like, I don't want to do all of that. It's not my jam. I think the magic of Balatro is that it is so good at really organically creating these instances where you're like, I got the best strat. No one's going to touch me. I can box with God. And then being like, actually, I have a blind that makes your strategy not just bad, but actively horrible. Boom, done. And I think in a lot of games that might feel like cheap, but in Balatro, I feel like, you got me. Like, I am constantly, it feels like when I play Balatro, the developer is behind my screen, particularly there to with me specifically. Like, it feels so like, what are the odds? But then the opposite is also true. One thing I don't like about rogues is that a lot of times it feels like, I only have a set of strengths and I'm kind of hoping that I get the thing I need to personally be successful. But I feel like with Balatro, so many of the new instances are either new opportunities to try new strategies or opportunities to pursue different things. Like, playing Balatro, you can feel like you're making progress and success by doing, and I know this is true of other rogues as well, but like just trying out like new cards that you haven't gotten. It's like, you know what? This run's not going well. I'm going to use this to open a couple packs. Like, it doesn't just feel like, there are so many times where I play a game and I'm like, this isn't going well. Just kill me. Is there a self-delete button so I can just restart because it's not working? And that's true even when it's not a rogue. But I feel like Balatro has so many things to latch onto that there's benefits to playing outside of just winning, which I think is really hard to do in this genre. So yeah, it's number 2 on my list.
Thank you for calling it a rogue, by the way.
Yeah, I've been putting it on. We said we'd all call these rogues instead of roguelike.
We all
roguelike.
agreed, right? Come
Why do we have to
on.
learn the difference? We can just cut that part off.
God bless
Just
you,
walk
Jenna.
away.
Force it. Yes.
A really interesting thing with the game that I want to call out is, like, we talked earlier about Peglin, which is not on our list, of, like, it's a really fun game that gradually, as you increase in difficulty, as you build runs, it takes away the things that are fun about the game. You know, it's like Peglin at level 0 is great, and Peglin at level 5 seems to be sucking away the synergies that make it great. And Balatro actively updated itself in the middle of the year because people were like, this is great, but the way that it gets harder isn't fun, and it adjusted. And so now the, like, higher what are they, stakes, blinds,
Antes?
Or chips.
no, but when you're playing on, like, gold stake, it's the stakes.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you know, it's like, it used to be just like cards are more expensive, and people were like, well, this sucks, now I can just, like, buy fewer things. That's not fun. But it has adjusted itself to be like, now it's not just that things are more expensive. It's like, this card is a rental, and so it doesn't cost that much, but it charges you every time. Or this card is eternal, so once you buy it, you can never get rid of it. And not only is that a more interesting way of being difficult, but then those things actually lend themselves to new strategies where you can, like, do things with eternal jokers that you can't do on the lower difficulties. And so it really makes itself infinitely replayable and more challenging in, like, ways that make the game more fun to play on high levels. In this really just, it's like everything about it seems so effortless, but there's so many games that just can't pull it off.
And another little aspect of the design I want to shout out is so many great games like this, you complete a run and you're so happy with your build and you're so excited how well you're doing at the end, and then you beat it and you get to do the next level of it or whatever, but everything resets. And this game has it so you just get to keep going if you want to. You say, it starts upping the totals you have to hit at a way faster rate, but you still get to go, let's see how good this build actually is.
Yeah.
Like, what's the
How
crazy
far
heights it
could
can
I
take
have
me
gotten?
to?
Yeah.
Yes, totally. And so that's part of the smoothness is, like, you get to feel complete in that experience in a way you don't always get to. You get to see it through in such a smooth way.
Yeah, once you can beat that, like, 7 million one, it's like,
When
that
you
was
get-
actually a very good strategy, a very good deck.
When you get E in your little score for the first time, you get, like, 10 times 17 E to the 12, and you're just like, I don't even know what this means.
Yeah.
Also, I think the different decks are maybe my favorite part of this. That, like,
You should just play Magic the Gathering, Kelsey. What are we doing here?
Magic the Gathering is number
not
3 on the
killing.
list.
I'm pretty sure this is not an apt analogy, but maybe I don't know enough about Magic the Gathering. But it's you'll have different decks that are basically just like, okay, so in this one you just only have 2 suits to start with, so, like, your strategy is probably just flushes, and, like, you already kind of know where you're going with that. But they get a lot more interesting than that. So it'll just be like, with this deck, like, planet cards appear 4 times as often. And so, you know, maybe your strategy has to do with, like, maybe you get that one joker that's like, it improves the multiplier every time you use a planet card, and it just can stack and stack like that. So I don't know. It's my number 3. I echo what everyone else says. It's fantastic. It's hard to find anything bad to say about Balatro.
Also, you can share the seeds, which I would never do because I don't want to know that someone could have beaten what I failed at. So I choose not to share the seeds and have people run my
smart.
game. But if you're more skilled, I think it is a fun way to look at, like, wow, they really had a lot of confidence in the design of this. Of, no, you can do anything with anything. And if you don't think so, like, post it up and let, you know, social media try to run through it and see what they can do with the cards you were dealt.
Yeah, it's fascinating to look at just, like, kind of the journey of Balatro this year. And, like, the first PR email I got back in February, and it's like, Balatro, the indie game, what was it exactly? The indie game you don't want to miss. And then, like, the text of the email is like, trust us, just give this game 2 hours and then you will set aside the next several hundred because trust us, it'll sway you. And it's so fun to see, like, a game that was nominated for Game of the Year, a game made by one person. Like, the fact that it was up there for the Game Awards, like, what a wild success story this game has had. Just by, like,
Yeah.
please try it, you'll like it, I promise.
I remember looking at the subreddit when it had 6,000 people on it and being like, hey, does 6,000 people really care about this? I know this is going to be way higher real soon, and now it's the end of the year and it has 158,000 members.
I mean, despite Jeffem's great Twister-Rooney, which was a great bit.
It was a fun reveal, yes. I did enjoy that. I enjoyed the pageantry some of y'all bring to the table here.
Yeah,
like,
that's good.
Let's add a little bit of theater in here. I can't because I skipped that part. But, you know.
Is as a group, Balatro higher than UFO 50? I feel like it might be.
Yes. Hard time, like, feeling super confident about that. Because when we talk about UFO 50, it's like, well, yeah, that is kind of better, but I have Balatro higher on my list than UFO 50.
I have Balatro higher, but I feel like I have less. I feel like I'm colder, and that's why it's higher. I just think it's a better video game.
Yeah, UFO 50 isn't on my top 10. And
it's not on my
Balatro
top
is
10
number
either.
3.
How many games did they need to pack in for you guys to get on the top 10?
Fewer.
Just one really
know.
amazing game, clearly, is what it is.
I do think it is really incredible. I mean, it was on my top 10 for a long time. Just when you play enough games, I mean, if I had a lifetime, the whole top 10 would probably be different. You know what I mean? Like, I just think it's not that it wasn't great. I just felt like I was potentially moved by some other games more.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was overinflating how impressed I was with, like, what a great execution of the idea it is. Mm-hmm. And I felt like when I had to reflect on what games do I feel like are the best games to me, I lowered it, and then I lowered it a few more times, and then it wasn't maybe on my list at the end.
And that's
but
the way
it is a
happens.
fantastic game.
Jeffem, as somebody who's partial in particular to both these fair partners, how you feeling about just the groups read here?
Yeah, I think Balatro and UFO 50 make a great 1 and 2, so that's fine with me. In that order.
But just to be clear, though, I mean, collectively, are you feeling like we're Balatro north of UFO 50?
You get that sense.
UFO 50
I
is
know
my
you're
number
asking
4.
Jeff.
Balatro was the first cut on my top 10. It's barely not in it, but it sounds like the group is hotter on Balatro to me. Or Balatro? Were you correcting everybody on that?
They're both.
It's technically Balatro,
It's both.
apparently.
Well, that's how they said
no,
it in
it's
the
not.
recent
It's
commercial,
both.
right?
It's technically both. Jeffem, you've been eerily quiet. I mean, do you think the group pushes...
I don't know, ask the group.
But you were listening, and you care about this.
Yeah, push them both up.
Okay,
I don't care
we'll do
which
that.
order the two of them are in.
Let's push them both. Okay, it's not, you don't care. Okay.
I wouldn't push them both up.
I push about that.
Group.
I'm very happy with the current top 4, 5, really the whole thing at this point.
Okay, this is the question. I mean, just final check. Balatro number 3, UFO 50-50. Sorry, UFO 54. That feels good.
I mean, we haven't even touched the top 2. Like
We haven't.
I'm not ready for the top 2 to be like. I'm happy with the top 2, but it doesn't seem like we should just set them in stone with no.
Oh, ain't no
discussion.
stone
I think
here.
1 and 2 should be switched.
Ain't no stone here.
Same, which is very predictable. You jump.
I think honestly, just to throw out ideas, I think 1,000 time resist goes to 4, and everything else moves up a slot.
So
I think
under
we do that, and
As
then we
the
move
person who hasn't
Astro Bot
played
to
1,000
4.
times resist.
Well, say I put 1,000 times resist under Prince of Persia on my list.
Prince of Persia down there, the 10 dangler,
Yeah.
the man himself.
There's no people have a comeback story. You never know what could happen with this list, you know?
That's true. All right. Currently, right now, for a reminder, for audio listeners, the top 10 are 1,000 times resist at number 1, Astro Bot, Balatro, UFO 50, Metaphor Refantasio, Mouthwashing, Lorelei and the Laser Eyes, Helldivers 2, Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth, Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown. 1,000 times resist. Where is this darn game going on this list?
I love this game.
Haley!
I love 1,000 times resist. Hi, I'm here.
Did you finish it?
Yes.
Okay, how many
I
people?
feel like we need to get
Congratulations.
placement on Haley's list before we hear her argument, because Haley, you sound like every game you argue for is your number 1.
Well, like,
Yeah.
the top 10 is low-key almost exactly like the games I have in my personal top 10, so I'm trying not to be greedy and be like, dude, actually, Metaphor should be higher because it's my favorite.
Yo,
when
you should
so many
definitely put
other
Metaphor
games-
higher because I can't because I didn't beat it. So I feel like, what is that? But I would.
I feel
put
like we
Metaphor
haven't done
higher.
a full We could still go back to Metaphor, I feel like.
I think we
don't
probably
talk
should.
I think we
about
should go
that.
back to Metaphor.
Should we do it right now?
Maybe we should go back to Metaphor first.
Okay.
We should talk about a game we haven't talked about.
We should go back to 1,000 Times Resist.
I don't know. I keep it. Okay.
Okay. The question is, where's 1,000 Times Resist on your list, Haley?
It's number 4.
Okay. And just
It's like where it should be on the top 10.
just lay of the land here. Who's all finished with 1,000 Times Resist? Oh,
lot of
Sarah,
us.
Leo,
Jeez.
Janet, Haley, Jacob, Kelsey. Okay, awesome. I went back to it today, and I was scrambling at the end of the year here, but it was my biggest feeling of like, oh God, it was picking up steam, and I ran out of time just as it was picking up that steam, and I feel like a real jerk about it.
Too much Indiana Jones.
Well, I'm glad
what
I
we
was holding down the
sacrificed.
fort for Indiana Jones.
You did hold Indy down for sure.
I'm pretty sure when this game came out, both Kelsey and I were like, this might be goaty.
I know. Here's the
Yeah.
problem. Here's obviously there's 1,000
It
things.
has not left number 1 on my list.
That's so good. I think the
Amazing.
problem was like when I stopped when we talked about the podcast, I was like an hour in and I was in the school and I was like, is it going to be like a navigational just kind of mess of a game? And then I feel like everything after the school has been like just increasing exponentially for my interest levels. And now I understand what Kelsey's like. I was staying up so late to get through this because it was so compelling. It's like, okay.
Oh, I stayed up every night till like 2 or 3 in the morning playing.
Yeah.
Yes, I could
Same.
not do that. It's so engrossing. It's just, my God, the story in this game is so freaking good. The fact that it didn't win for best narrative is just astonishing.
Was it
'Cause this-
nominated?
Wasn't nominated. no.
I know, insane. It's like one of the best stories in games. Full stop.
Should we arena spoiler zone for 1,000 Times Resist or how are we feeling
I'd
about
love
it?
to spoiler talk about what we love about the story.
Okay, let's 1,000 Times Resist spoiler zone begins now. Check out the timestamps, everybody.
This story has so much going on. It's so crazy to me reflecting on this game, going like, oh yeah, the disease that ended the world makes you relive your saddest moments until you cry all the liquid out of your body. And that's how people are getting genocided. It's like, this game has that going on for it in addition to everything else. That, like, you could make a million books off that, you know?
There's like this is really damning to everything else on the list, but it's like it's maybe the only thing on this entire top 10 that I don't feel like needs for a video game when you're talking about how good the story is.
Yeah. That's
Like
true.
it is just so incredibly complex and well woven, but like it never feels like a lore dump game. It doesn't feel like you're ever just getting like, here's the backstory on this. As you know, I'm your sister, and that means blah, blah, blah. It's like everything is just so well incorporated, and the characters speak in like each character is so clearly defined and has kind of like their goals and their life experiences and whatever. And yeah, then like Leo says, the amount of things that it juggles is unbelievable, and that it manages to have meaningful things to say about all of them. You know, there's nothing at the end of the game that I'm like, I feel like that was kind of left in the like everything comes back and means something at the end in a way that I just like I cannot even conceive of how difficult it was to pull it off.
And every
And
chapter
to go-
totally has its own personality, and none feel like filler. They're each so memorable.
Absolutely. And to the like lore dump end, I mean, the game literally opens with a bunch of stuff that sounds like nonsense, and it does not take the time to like, there's a lot of just like talking in metaphor, kind of like nonsense sounding words that just slowly reveal themselves to you over the course of the game without ever there being like and when we say hair to hair and when we say red to blue, we mean like there's never any moment like that. And yet, I mean, for a game this dense, I was surprised that I felt like I was getting it the entire time.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I often get kind of lost in these games that are juggling like themes with a story and all these kind of like different interweaving narratives. And it just does such an amazing job of kind of keeping you, you know, curious about the next thing and maybe like slightly not understanding certain things, but like you will then get it it'll get introduced to you very quickly afterwards. Like everything just kind of is paced so well, is introduced so well. And by the end, you're like, I understand what these guys were trying to say and articulate. And it was really, really well done.
It's just like the confidence. Like it's a miracle that it's not off-putting, but just I think from the earliest section of this game, it's like whatever story this game is telling, I have full faith in them to tell it. And therefore there's going to be things I don't understand, but like I know that I'm not supposed to understand it, and I can sit back and soak it all in and not feel like this is gobbledygook. Moving on. It's like it's so far from that.
And it really lets you choose how much more you want. Like you could go talk to every sister every level if you want, and if you don't, you're insane because it just exponentially improves the experience. You need to talk to every sister you see, and then the game just gets better and better and better. With you just think, oh, there's just two of them standing over in the corner. You go talk to them, and it reveals some weird lore reason for why they do things in this world, and you're like, oh my, I never really thought of. Oh my god, weird. I just loved how it started so dramatically with like you shoving a sword through someone who looks like you, and then from there it just exponentially gets crazier and crazier. And then like when you first start, you get these three options. It's like red to blue, hair to hair, and you're supposed to just be like, why am I saying this? This is so random. To by the end being like, hair to hair, mother, hair to hair. Like you just get so wrapped up in it.
And there are a lot of games. I feel like most of the games that I think of as having best writing, a Disco Elysium or a Kentucky Route Zero or whatever, none of them have literally the theatricality of this, in that like this is made by like a theater troupe essentially, and like even though the characters animate very minimally, they don't, it's like their faces don't really change while they're speaking. It makes you pay even more attention to the blocking of each scene, which is so beautifully composed and well considered, and just the way that a camera will frame, it's like, two characters are standing next to each other, but it's framed one of them is like out of the scene, makes you think about it, and it does that for virtually every conversation in like a 16-hour game. And I still think about the scene composition of some of those conversations. There is kind of like the middle climax before it like does kind of a time jump. Is this just like, mere ocean sky scene? And it's just some of the most like striking imagery. I said this in my own Game of the Year video, but it's like, if you gave this game 4 times the budget, I don't think it would be any better. It's like, I feel like they did the thing, they told the story in the best way they possibly could have, and even though decisions were clearly made by budget limitations, the decisions didn't hurt the game. They actually, like, improve the storytelling.
The fact that the characters are kind of simple and everything almost lets you listen to the story better. Like I almost don't want a really detailed face with all the pores and everything emoting in just the perfect way. Like it is better as this sort of like play, this sort of like theatrical thing where you can infer more of that and not just literally be like, oh, they're moving their mouth into a frown, they're sad now.
And they even do like meta theater commentary on that when there's like a play within their game, which is a play, and they're like being very Hamlet and cheeky about that too. But I kept thinking about how genius it is to have this story about clones be a video game thing, because then they make one model and then they just tweak it from there. That's genius, because then you can spend so much other time doing other stuff. And Fixer looks way different from Watcher, who looks different from Principal. Yeah, they have different outfits on and stuff. But the way that the body's animated and how they all walk around is the same, and it's supposed to look eerily similar. And that engrosses you even more into the story with the fact that everybody looks the same, and you don't mind it like any other game. Like, Janet, watching you and Isaiah play, the Indiana Jones, and the same dude just keeps coming in the room. You're like, this is garbage. And then in 1,000 Times Resist, you're like, it's art. Like, it's such a perfect thing.
The perfect dichotomy.
It fits so well. The indie nature of it doesn't harm it at all, in the sense of like, you cannot imagine a game of 12 hours of length have a scale that is any grander. Like, it starts from this small seed of this girl and her relationships and spawns a religion and generations of a constantly morphing society out of that. It covers so much ground so quickly.
I also loved how the revelation near the start of the game when you're doing your first communions and it's like, oh, Iris is the all-mother, she loves us, she's perfect. And then the revelation isn't that she's like a morally awful person or she's just kind of a bitch. And I love that that's like
she's like a
just not
17-year-old.
very nice.
Right.
Yeah, she's just a kid.
But she blew up a
But she's
gerbil in a
also, like-
microwave. Like, that's beyond just
Also,
being a shitty
that was
kid.
like one of my favorite parts of the game.
Yeah, that was
but
messed
she's
up,
also
that's true.
she's not just a bitch, she's a self-hating bitch, which is like its own thing. We're like seeing her like I think it's so fascinating to like the way they sort of mirror racial self-hatred with like the darkness of motherhood and parenthood of, you know, like Him is like a huge song from Tyler's album that's popped off like this year about like an absentee father, and it's like, oh, do I look like him, and the trauma of that, which also like, yo, someone start making those edits 1,000 times resist Tyler like him that's gonna eat. But it's, you know, because what's the name of her friend again?
Zhao.
Zhao.
Zhao. Like, she hates Zhao because she hates the idea of someone who's like her, but more racially clearly her race. And like, it's like, oh, I thought you hate when I wear your sweater because I look like you. And then she kind of like eventually just warm up to Zhao a little bit, but she has that hatred because she hates feeling like she's, you know, foreign. And then with the disease being like how she's further foreign and being like, this is the classic trope of you're going to be self-hating, and guess what? When it comes down to it, the white people see you as just as not white as you always have been. It didn't matter. It didn't matter that you sat with them. It didn't matter, because when the disease came, you were just as weird as your friend that you tried to feel, oh no, I'm not like her, I'm different, I shop at American Apparel. You're the same. Racists see you as the same. And I think that combined with what being a mother is, and there's like some excellent things on motherhood in this game. I know, Haley, you mentioned that for, I think, best moment of the scene where there are the steps and she's asking like how to be a mom, and it's like, well, you already know, so like, what are you really asking me? There's just lots of excellent conversations in this game. It's kind of common sense to say a good story should have good writing, but I think what I really look for personally in something like this is punchy, poignant moments, and things like the gerbil getting microwaved was like a big moment, but also stuff that really impressed me in this was the ways in which like small details, like you mentioned, Haley, ended up having like big impacts. Like at a certain point in the game, I did mostly talk to people on the side, but especially because navigationally it could be a hellscape, I probably missed a couple people, just a couple. But one person I got really into talking to was the bartender. So I'm like, oh man, the bartender, like, wow, what a great conversation. And I think the bartender conversations early on are such a great example of how this game is well written. In any other game, you get the classic, I ask you a question and you have like these different flavors of things. And, you know, I think it's like, what do you want to hear a story about or whatever? And it's like, I want something spooky, spicy, whatever. And in any other game, that's like a quick throwaway, like, this is how it's slightly spooky or slightly spicy. But the bartender's like giving you that good bartender lore. I'm like, this is the most realistic bartender I've ever seen in a game. And then for it to go back around like 5 hours later and they're like, now you work for the bartender. The bartender just got shot. Now you're the bartender. And now that's how I'm like, oh, like the bartender came back. And I'm like, wow, that's so good at like, and I think that's when game design is really at its best. When there's something ancillary that you latch onto or something you like to do as the player, the designers know that. And then they bring it around in a way where it feels like you fell into it. But obviously it's all authored and meant for you to experience in like certain ways and stuff. But I thought that was really cool. And yeah, just really impressive to have a story this long and not feel like it's unwarranted length. I definitely, trying to beam through it for Game of the Year, I'm like, geez, this is a long freaking story game. It's the longest story game I've ever played, I think, by like double the length. But I never felt like, all right, guys, let's wrap this thing. It felt like they were telling exactly what they needed to say. Like, it never felt like it overstayed its welcome. And they had like 8 stories in this one story, which was crazy. They were all so cohesive.
In terms of just like punchy, effective little moments too. I know I'm early still, but like when Zhao was on her deathbed in the hospital and she just goes, I can't be a picture like my dad. Like that destroyed me.
That destroyed me too.
Hey, and then guess what?
No.
Zhao later is a picture.
Oh, right, of course.
Like,
Yes.
she is.
Yeah.
Like that line is so it's amazing in a game full of good writing how then they can still choose individual lines that's like, you are going to remember that she said that. You know, it's like, this is just one of 100 text boxes that she has, but you are going to remember that, and it is going to come back, and you are going to feel it. You know, like that, it just keeps happening.
One more thing about this game is, I mean, in the beginning, it kind of positions you, it sets you up to start really thinking pretty low of Iris. I mean, you're like, wow, this girl is... She is not nice. She is not a good teenage girl. And by the end, you kind of feel like the torture with this like she's just a very tortured teenage girl, and you have trouble like, honestly, I mean, I've heard people compare this game to Neon Genesis Evangelion, and like I understand that comparison just from the point of view of like, yeah, what if all of the pressure of the world was on a kind of fragile, kind of tortured teenager with real issues? And I think this game goes really far and really well into the exact ways in which that would like break apart, and the exact like poor decisions a teenager like that would make, and they're like really long-lasting consequences too.
Totally. Well put. And yeah, her like leaving her home more because she wants to get away from her mom than because she's the hope for the world to survive.
Right.
Yeah.
Like those kinds of really human decisions and moments.
Sarah, you dig this game? You're really quiet.
Oh, no, I do really like it. I think it's definitely one of the best stories that I've ever played in a video game.
Wow.
Like, just hands down, like, what an amazing story, especially when it starts, like, when you figure out what the theme is, and then they kind of continuously loop the theme at you, you're just like, oh my gosh. Like, I knew it was going to be something, but I didn't imagine it would come so layered as it does. I still think my biggest issue is that I didn't like having to run around. Because I want to talk to everybody, but everybody was on the opposite side of where I was.
Yeah.
And, like, it was a great game, and I loved it, but I was like, I just don't want, and I kept getting lost, and then the minute it becomes familiar, they switch the location, which is great. Thematically, I think it worked really well that they were like, you got used to this place, it was your home. Anyways, now we've changed you to an entirely different location. But I'm like, okay, if they could have just like put in like a moving sidewalk, or we could just have like
just
more
needed
direct
some technology for
like,
sure.
They did
But I mean,
patch
like,
in a map. They didn't even have a map at the
Which was
beginning.
that
Really?
when I
wow.
learned that was honestly horrifying. When they
It
closed
was
that one room,
impossible to find your way around.
Because I remember
when
Kelsey
they closed that
complaining
one room
about
down,
it. Yeah.
and then you had to like go around the long way. I went up and down that long ass hallway like at least 7 times. So yeah, very valid.
Without a map, I struggled through that, and it still wound up #1 on my game of the year.
Yeah. Sarah, where's it on your list?
It is 5 for me.
Okay. And
It's 5 for me as well.
Kelsey's 1, Jacob 2, Leo
4.
10.
Okay. Spoilers over for 1,000 Hours Resist?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Spoilers over. Boy, are we going to have just the most classic ass video game debate here between Astro Bot and
Yes, we
1,000
are.
Times Resist?
Yeah, what do we value?
Are we
Story,
descending into this?
mechanics,
Jumping.
or brain worms?
Little
number one?
guys.
God, we
It's the
do
classic
love...
debate. Yeah, Secretary versus Astro Bot. Put him in a cage and just watch him get ripped apart.
I mean, Astro Bot, much the same way Jeff is citing Tetris for Balatro, I feel like Astro Bot is the game on this list for me that as I was playing it, I was talking to people about like, guys, Astro Bot might be perfect. This does not happen very often. I don't know. Jacob, I think what you famously messaged being like, is this the greatest game of all time? And it's like, you know,
Most fun was
Okay.
the phrasing I used. But yeah, I messaged that to you and Haley.
yeah.
Yeah.
I just laughed, Ben. I'm just laughing at you. Jacob, I'm pretty sure you messaged me and said this should be #1, and it's your #1.
I do
Yeah.
think you're lucky Slack
I know.
leaks messages because I do think it was more hyperbolic than just, is this the most fun game of all time? I do think it was like, is this the greatest? I mean, yeah, it's rare to have those feelings. There's a couple games this year, I feel like for all of us, where it's just like, God damn it. This is so damn good. Kyle,
Yeah.
Astro Bot, how you feeling?
It's my #1.
#1.
Astro Bot is just pure interactive joy. anytime they put anything out for it, they put like a Christmas thing out. I was like, an excuse to live in that world for 20 more minutes? Yes, please.
By the way, on that note, I mean, did y'all go back and check out that Christmas level?
Yeah, did all the speed run stuff.
I got him.
Haley physically has Astro Bot. She kidnapped him. It seems inappropriate. Pulled him away from his robotic mother. But yeah, kind of, like I jumped back into Astro Bot, and I had no idea that Christmas level was even popping up. And so like the fact that it's there and it's so damn big, and it's like all
huge.
the power ups in one big level, and they just have nothing but cameo characters in there for all the unlockables. Like it felt like them just dunking at the end of the year. Like, we could keep doing this all day. Let's just keep making amazing levels over and over again.
But it's just like impossible to put down. It was like like I said with Lorelei, it was just like I needed every excuse to keep playing. Like after I got I was like, I'm not like a big trophy hunter or anything, but I was like, well, I'm gonna get the platinum just because it's an excuse to stay here and be happy.
Okay, well, we're reaching into a new territory. Yeah, I mean, it's
I felt that way too.
It's my favorite 3D.
I felt the same way.
Yeah. I mean, it's my favorite 3D platformer of all time. Like, when I think about, if I just want some good 3D platforming, like, why would you go to anything except for Astro Bot at this point? Sorry, Mario Galaxy.
I could give my nan the controller, my sister, my dad, some random stranger, and I think they go, like literally anyone in the world would be like, cool, this is cool.
Right. Therefore, you're cool, Haley, and we love you.
Legend of Zelda.
No, I mean,
It's like, it's literally every level is great.
Yes.
Like if you were just going to rank, like, let's talk about all the Super Mario 64 levels or whatever, it would be like every one is at the lowest very good, and at the highest some of the best you've ever done. And it's just like it is like truly a let's make a game out of only the good bits. That there is like
easy,
not
but
a single moment in that I didn't enjoy.
And just understanding simple pleasures like that. Like, I was saving some of the secret levels until the Game of the Year season. I went back and played those. And just like, there's the one with all the fans where you hold R2 and it like compresses the fan down, then launches it up. And like, there's just one section of that level where you've been doing it. Okay, R2 to compress it down, got it. And then you get to an arena, or not an arena, but just a platform where it's just the entire platform is covered with fans. You hold R2 and they all get pressed down. That's satisfying as hell. And then on top of that, they just throw thousands of fall leaves on top of that. So as you're pressing it down, everything's just like this confetti cannon as you're launching around. Just nonstop pleasure.
I want to bite everything. I want to bite everything in the level. Does anyone know what I mean?
I want to rip off Astro's face and shove it down my throat. I'm with you,
like,
Haley.
ladies, remember when you bit
was
the Polly
almost the end of the
Pocket
game.
clothes? You know what I mean? The Polly Pocket clothes.
That
That
rubber.
feeling. That rubber. Everything is tactile and shiny / chewy / good.
I mean, shouldn't overlook that idea that like it is one of the best looking games I've ever seen. And the fact, like, the tactile nature, I'm totally with you, Haley, where like it made me love the PS5 controller. Like, it's a controller that I've always been like kind of mixed on, but it's like, God, it just makes me feel every single aspect of this thing. And Jacob is a man who said the PS5 has no personality games. Like, did Astro Bot change your perception?
Now it has one.
Okay, all right, there we go. That'll
We
do
say it's
it.
PlayStation.
Yeah.
I just know when Sony was like, when this was going out, they were like, phew, we have something to lean on to say that we have a personality as a brand.
Don't worry, we can relax. We got
Astrobot.
Concord and Astrobot shipping the same 2-week span. Here we go.
That'd be good.
Yeah. But just the fact that a game can have, I know this is for a specific fandom looking out, but like Sam Porter Bridges from Death Stranding next to Big Boss, as little cameos in the hub next to each other. Like, yeah, just the absurd amount of fan service that they're packing in there. And it makes it so much fun to find all those little freaks. And the fact that they don't just give you the name, it's got to be a little puzzle to figure out, like, oh yeah, Concrete Genie, that was that weirdo in that game. Okay, got it.
Puppeteer. I remember
Right.
That's
Puppeteer.
because of trademarks. That's not because they're cheeky.
I think that's 'cause
they
they're being
wanna pay for
cheeky.
trademarks. No, I think it's because they want to pay for trademarks.
Well,
How
and-
could it not be? So if they don't name them, but you have a guy that looks exactly like Sam Porter Bridges, you don't have to pay
And
to
they're
have
all
Sam
in the-
Porter Bridges,
And they're all in the
game?
credits, right?
no,
Like,
they would still have to pay, but it's still like probably less money than
really?
Like using the
mean,
name, like each
trademark,
instance
like,
of
you
using
have
the
it
name.
Yeah.
is the
Don't you
thing.
think it would be a little taken out if you saw like from Death Stranding, little R, like in the middle of your gameplay.
I think it's a good choice, but it never occurred to me that they were skirting something by having a character that's like extremely obviously that character from that game and first party. Like
it's like how there's that Lakers HBO show and the Lakers didn't like, you know, they don't have the logo in it ever.
Really?
And they don't have the team name present, but obviously it's the people because it's based on the book, but they didn't want to have to pay for or like they would need the permission from the Lakers to use that.
But this is like if that show was made by the Lakers.
Like, I get, but not everything in there is PlayStation though. I guess this also maybe isn't that relevant to how high.
Yeah, you're right. Let's get bogged down the legal ramifications of Astro Bot.
Now that I know they cut corners here, actually.
Yeah.
Well, it's like using the same character model, you know, in 1,000 Times Resist. You know, it put their hand behind their back and it made the game better. You know,
but like
it's like seeing like the Stellar Blade Astro Bot and being like, oh, this is the first time I've liked the Stellar Blade design.
Right. Yeah,
they finally made Astro Bot sexy, so it really does have literally everything it could have.
I mean, just the hub area, collecting everybody, unlocking new areas, using everybody you've collected
give
to
them a ponytail. And I take my glasses off.
But then also like the little areas you unlock, like the safari park. Let's just run around, look at all the animals, take different pictures of all these things. Just smart thing on top of smart thing. And like I know this isn't fair, but you know my experience of it is like It was the first game my kid ever saw, and he immediately was a grinning ear to ear, and like his first game he ever played. You know, he was just running around, and he was moving okay. But then like what got me is then that like the Astro Bot creative director during his Game Awards acceptance speech that he called that out. Like this is so many kids' first game out there, and I was like, Sarah and Haley, thank you for not looking at me because I was getting a little choked up, and I'm like, I can't cry during this part. That wouldn't be cool, right? But like that really got to me. It's just like the immediate joy, it brings to everybody. Even Haley's
your child would have reacted the
MacLean.
same way to Stellar Blade.
That's probably true.
They could read.
That is probably true.
Yeah, great game. Yeah, it's a weird year because like truly,
it's also different.
I look at that top four, and like they're all like good number ones in their own unique ways. I mean, I think we all have who we would vote for, and I know it doesn't come down to a vote, but like, yeah, it's the Astro Bot's such a joy, though. That's my number one.
Jacob, I am curious, just to poke holes. You're the ultimate Jenga piece here, that brain of yours. So I'm poking the flesh in your skull. How is Astro Bot not the same mini shoot feeling of? It's a super fun, super tight, well done thing. Like what separates that in your mind from that criticism of it's just a super solid little good thing?
Because Astro Bot's attempting something way more challenging. Like mini shoot is like one level of Astro Bot, and Astro Bot has 50 levels and they're all different.
Therefore, UFO 50 is number one.
That's a great point.
But I like genuinely, we had the person recently ask, like, remember when Jacob said that Spider-Man 2 was like too much fun? Which is like, I think that this is, it is offering kind of both just lizard brain fun of like, I can knock all these gems around, but also being like, the mechanics are involved enough that I like doing them, and it is changing things, and like I think that the references are actually like weirdly bittersweet and beautiful in a way that these games aren't usually allowed to be. That it is this team which is like born from the wreckage of Japan's studio, making the most loving tributes to all of these other studios that don't exist and can't make games anymore. Like it weirdly feels like it has more going on than just it's fun to hop and run around, even at the same time that it is undeniably like a big ad for PlayStation. It feels like it has more depth in ways that I was not expecting.
There is a subtext
like a weird
there.
Remediness to it. Like referencing the existence of the studio itself in the art it's making.
Right. I mean, a game I love dearly.
Lorelei does as well, the shout out.
That sounds good. I mean, Astro Bot, love it. I love the game so much. There is a part of me where it's like, how many enemies do I recall or do I care about? And I feel like they up the number of like variety of enemies in this game, but it's still a matter of like, I don't know, it's that guy I laser footed, this guy I jumped on top of, whatever. Like the bosses were cool.
Pirate guy was cool.
Pirate guy, yep, beating him up with the big monkey arms. And
The
then
guy where you put your fist into his mouth and then you like pull him out of the ground.
yep,
But I don't know his name. But I don't know the
knock out
characters'
that
names in
monkey's
Mario
teeth.
either.
yeah,
I just know how to describe them. I also think, because this is something I've thought about too, where I'm like, what are the weaknesses of Astro Bot? And
Yeah.
I do feel a little bit detached from the lore aspect of some of the environments. But in its defense, it's a much newer, younger franchise than Mario. I don't know that I was like immediately like, oh, this all makes cohesive sense and I feel invested in that lore. But I have like a lifetime of spending time with Mario and seeing these enemies and growing an attachment and fondness for them.
Also,
So I feel like it's a little bit of an uneven thing.
yeah. What was that,
You
Jacob?
know, it's not a game about punching. You do punch, but
Yeah.
like the punching is to get you more jumping, not the other way around.
Yeah, I mean, just in the arena of potential dings, like Astro Bot is unbelievable. By far the best Astro Bot game. There's a part of me that feels like it's kind of the third time I've been like, whoa, Astro Bot rules. You know, there was the VR game, which blew my damn mind when that came out, and the pack-in PS5 game, which is awesome. I wasn't as hot on it as a lot of other folks out there, but this is by far the best, but it is a little bit like...
Too
We've-
samey?
It is a little derivative. Like I mean, Astro Bot's like my number 4. Like it's an incredible game. There's almost nothing bad to say about it, but it is not a brand new experience.
Right.
If that matters. And I think we are trying to, at this point, because our top 4 even are so strong, I think we kind of are just trying to find like, what can we nitpick about these? Because there's not much to nitpick.
Yep. Absolutely.
There's nothing wrong with more of an amazing thing.
But is there something wrong with it, Kelsey? That's the question.
I think it takes longer for that to be a warranted critique, in my opinion, especially in like the 3D platformer genre. You tend to have like kind of a basis that you construct things around, and there's not necessarily a lot that's inherently changing. Like if you look at something like Ratchet and Clank, that's why it's taken a lifetime of Ratchet and Clank for me to be like, guys, we need Ratchet and Clank to kind of start doing stuff that's different. It can't just be it's more great Ratchet and Clank. But it took until a crack in time for me to, like, that was like the last Ratchet and Clank game that I felt like was shaking up formulas. And sure, you can say, well, Rift Apart, he's jumping into rifts. Yeah. I don't feel it because it's been done like a lot of times. And I also do think that's also a weaker game than Astro Bot inherently. But I do think it takes longer for that to feel like a ding for me personally as someone
It has genre shielding from being redundant.
Not necessarily, but I mean, I think a lot of franchises are inherently redundant. Like, how is Rebirth different than Remake? Like, it's not necessarily, and I don't think it needs to be. Like, yes, it is different. That's actually a key difference. But like, the construction of it is very similar, and I don't think we have that conversation for like other franchises.
I mean, that's I don't want to go down the rabbit hole, but it's an open world game compared to not. But but it is interesting.
I feel like, you know, on the repetitiveness, I didn't play the VR one, so you know that's on me. But it's like the Astro's Playroom was like an incredibly fun demo, and it was like, gosh, imagine if they could make this into a full game.
Yeah.
And for them to make it into a full game and it keep the magic of Astro's Playroom for 16 hours is almost more impressive. That it, like, Astro's Playroom felt like they were like, here's everything that we can do. Look at all the different things. And then for Astro Bot to show off that actually that was just, you know, like a fraction of what they were capable of, it boosts it even higher for me.
Who all has Astro Bot as number 1? Kyle, Janet, Jacob, The Kiss of Death.
I have it number 2.
Okay. It's probably pretty high. It's my number 2 as well. It's pretty high in a lot of these. Leo, how you feeling?
I wish I hated Astro Bot.
Right.
I'd have more to add to this conversation, and it'd be maybe harder choice for number 1. But I played a few hours, and it's not my genre at all, and I still thought it was super cool.
If I may be blunt, I feel like Astro Bot for this group should be the number 1 spot, but I feel like I'm fighting it because I think it's the less cool choice. And that's what I'm personally wrestling with.
Yeah,
We shouldn't consider it at all, and it's a horrible number 1.
I fully admit that, like, my only hesitation with putting it 1 is because it just kind of it just feels kind of lame. It's like, well, it's kind of an ad game, even though it's perfect.
Oh,
but like
Subversive. May I introduce y'all to Subversive? It's like no one would expect the
Game of the
artsy group
Year
to
at
pick
the
a
Game
basic
Awards,
game. You know what I mean? Yeah, but why are we pushing back against it, right? I think we all know that we're a group that values, stuff that feels a bit more inherently groundbreaking. I think if you look back on our top 10, like our 210s, like that's a big
so I want to be a little more
sticking point.
interesting.
But so that's why the most interesting thing we could do is not do that, because that's what you would think we do.
Oh.
So Astro Bot's actually the most interesting pick that you could have.
That's
I
interesting.
am not buying this reverse psychology.
I think
but
we have to speak our truth. If
I
you
look,
know what I mean.
I think
love
I
it, we
am
love
just. I think I am just like. I think this is a personal problem. I think this is just like that. Just doesn't feel as cool, and that's
Correct.
not a reason for it to not be number one.
Yes.
I had exactly the same thing internally, where it was like it felt, the Astro Bot being my number one, I felt like I was like compromising the like artsy side of myself. But it was like, if I'm being honest, that just was my number one game, and it felt weird to lie about that.
If you separate it from Sony and attach it more to Team Asobi, I think you feel better about it, right? It's
I do.
Like they did, this team, did this amazing
They did all
job.
the ass kissing.
I mean,
I
also,
think we all just feel like we're copying the Game Awards, but the Game Awards hasn't even heard of like half the games on our 210s. So
I think also it's the genre stigmatization, because that's like honestly what the uphill battle has been for Astro Bot for any conversations around how good it is. It's like, oh, it's really good, but like, do we really care that's really good? And it's like, yeah, I think we should. And there's like so many things to unpack on why it's really good. Like there's not as many as they used to be. 3D platformers are not as popular as they used to be, but there are plenty of 3D platformers where it does not take any hesitation for them to be on the middle or not on my list at all. And I play a bunch of them, and I've played a bunch of bad ones, a bunch of good ones. I've like ran through the whole thing. And this is such a feat for what they're able to achieve in this that, yeah, totally number one. Like, so what? There's not, it doesn't move in story, but it moves in mechanics. And I think what's so special about this and so many games on this list is, yes, it is kind of, in that lizard brainness. But the truth is there's a lot of smart design and cool reasoning that goes into that. It's the same as like, they say what good writing, easy reading is good writing. I feel like that's Astro Bot. Like, it's incredible design, and that's why it's so easy and chill to play. And I think it's easy to be like, yeah, it was a lot of fun, but like, I don't know, was it special? And I think, looking back and really digging into what made it fun is what makes it special.
And it's a testament to how good it is that it's undeniable, despite our instincts for reasons outside of it to not give it the spot. It's like,
Totally.
you have to be honest.
Can I just ask one question, though? Jacob, you had the opportunity to put whatever you want on this list first, and you put 1,000 times Resist before Astro Bot. Why?
I wanted
That's a good
1,000 times
question.
Resist to be as high as possible, and I knew that someone else would immediately name Astro Bot. I mean, and I would be thrilled if 1,000 times Resist was number one as well. Like, I could go, I would be happy with either one, but yeah, it was a strategic placement.
am I wrong in believing that 1,000 times Resist is moving to number two and Astro Bot's at number one?
That sounds correct.
Okay.
correct.
Thank you for being honest. Does it sound correct that Balatro is number 3 and UFO 50 is number 4?
I'd love to swap those. Or did I already agree earlier? No, I think I already agreed that Balatro is higher. I forget.
Leo, don't ask that.
Yeah. I don't know which
No way
agreed
to
or
check
didn't.
it, Leo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like we didn't really get to talk about Metaphor that much.
Yeah. I have Metaphor really high on my list. I didn't beat it, so that's why I haven't really been one to pull it from the trenches of 5, God forbid. But it's my number 2. So someone who beat it, say that it's really good. So
Haley's-
I beat
Haley's
it, and it's
number
my
one.
number 1. It's my number 1 this year. And it's so funny because the only thing I knew about this game was that it had a stupid name because Leo brought it up in a stream once or something. And then I didn't realize it was an Atlas game until like 2 weeks before launch. And I was like, oh, wait, oops. Like I should, because I love Persona. It's just everything they've ever done, but better and at once and in this game. Like it's literally accumulation of all their other stuff they work on. Coming from me who hasn't played a Shin Megami Tensei, but from what I hear that does. But like it's literally Persona and everything's better. everything's better. So if you've ever said like, oh, Persona 5 is one of the best games I ever made, this is immediately above that, like right away, done. Because all the fighting's better, the archetype system is so good and fun to max out and grind and like find combos that work really cool together. Like going through and looking at all the different ones and be like, ooh, Gunner works really well with Knight, and then just grinding like the freaking Gunner stuff. So when you're in the back line with Hulkenberg, she does like double damage. She's already back there tanking hits anyway, so you might as well have this on there, blah, blah, blah. Like you can start getting really crazy with the strategy. Every single character in the group is enjoyable and fun and isn't the same. Like none of them are the same and they're all good. I feel like that's impossible and has never been done also in any game ever.
I mean, Kelsey in the Max spoilers, which you can check out in the bonus podcast feed. It's 4 hours of talking about it. Kelsey, who was it where you're like, I think this is one of the greatest JRPG characters ever? It was like a fatherly figure or something?
It was Heisme, probably.
Okay.
Heisme.
Oh,
Yeah.
Heisme, yeah.
Yeah, because
him.
I mean, JRPGs don't tend to do like older adults very well. It's just not. It's not even attempted very often, and when it does, it's like kind of stilted, and they're like 34.
Kelsey,
and
you're gonna
ancient.
love Like a Dragon. Oh, it's gonna blow your mind.
Other than that series, which does it incredibly.
Yeah, it's rare, which is all the more reason to point it out being rare. Yeah.
Well, and I mean, maybe this is a stupid distinction, but it is crazy rare in an anime style game, specifically. So he is just such a well-written character, and this game deals so much more with like familial loss than I have seen in any JRPG. Like, there's just a lot of ways where I feel like in a different game they would have gone for, X trope or whatever, and instead they chose to focus on something else, and they did it really, really well. And I think as someone who has played a lot of Persona games and stuff and has enjoyed a lot of them, this was a really refreshing one for me. It hasn't dethroned Persona 3 for me personally, but I mean, it's the strongest JRPG that came out this year for sure.
Yeah.
And I remember even seeing the trailer for it when I was trying to learn more about what it's about, and seeing the mechanic of like, do good things and people want you to be king, and that little number goes down closer to 1. Like that the whole time was all, it kind of loses its traction later on, but especially near the start, that's such a fun mechanic. It's like some guy is like, oh, I wish someone would have listened to my stories. And I'm like, I'll listen to your stories. He's like, I'll vote for you. And then the number goes up. You're like, yeah. It's just everything feels impactful on top of the like daily calendar thing that Persona does that already feels really good. Like Jacob has said before, you get to do stuff. You don't have to do stuff. So therefore, everything's way more fun because you're squeezing it in. Not like, oh, I guess I'll go do this marker on this map over here sort of energy. Oh, it's just like
I got a little frustrated with it because I'm like literally at the end, and I was not able to finish Basilio's like
Balatro.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Leah. So I did hit a little bit of a frustration with that, where I was like, I literally can't. Like, it sucks that I missed this part of the game, and that's a bummer. And I also
missed that, by the way. That was the one
Eloquence
link that I didn't finish.
Yeah. And I did find the combat frustrating sometimes. I bumped it down to easy, which I don't normally do. I like to try to play games at the difficulty that the designers request that you do it. Like, this was what we had in mind. This is how we want to play it. So I felt a little disheartened to have it to bump it down to 0. And I feel like it's a thing in games in general that I don't love, where it's like you have to fail sometimes to learn how to do it correctly. I just don't enjoy that. And it's like, and you can restart the combat.
Yeah,
you can restart, but you cannot change archetypes. And sometimes the archetype is and so like what I would have to do occasionally is like, well, I guess I'll die or quit the game so I could go and change archetypes. And like, and again, I'm nitpicking because I really like the game. It's like number 5 for me, but I did find that element of the game a little annoying occasionally.
I guess I'm just coming from the perspective of like, but it's so much better than it used to be.
Yeah.
Which
Back
is
in my day.
maybe not fair.
dungeon crawling is 1,000 times resist better in this game.
Yeah, it is fun to run
than it
around
was
the dungeons.
before.
Yeah. I mean, those are my nitpicks to a game that I otherwise really, really liked and have it on my top 5. And if may even stay up late, 'cause I'm right there. I'm right at the end. So.
While we're nitpicking, I'm happy with it at number 5. I think it's great. I think mechanically it's great. I think the characters are all good. I think for a game that is so much about its story and themes, it kind of can't figure out what its story and themes are at the end of it. Like, it is a game that is so much about like democracy and the will of the people that kind of fumbles that take at the end, and it starts and it's telling you that it's about all of these things, and some of those I think it really pulls off, but like there's a lot of time spent on the story in this, and so it seems like, you know, that as much as I love the characters, I don't think it quite pulls off all its ambitions, and just like while we are talking about the best of the best, that does knock it down a little for me.
But great. I like it at number 5. It's a fantastic game. Yeah.
Does anybody feel strongly it should move to 4?
I mean, I do.
No.
I mean, I still think it should swap with Infinite Wealth, but I think I'm on that island by myself.
I would like Infinite Wealth to move
Island
up as well if we're just gonna start being crazy.
I'll swap that with Lorelei if you want.
No!
Listen, I love Lorelei, and I would.
You don't have to be smart to play Infinite Wealth.
Swap.
No offense to Infinite Wealth.
Yeah, intellect level 1, dumbass. I still enjoyed it.
And you can now move around a bit when you do the turn-based combat. I'm excited to get more into that when I find 100 hours.
Infinite Wealth was so good right away that I played 7 and then 8 again, and that was like, and I put probably 90 hours in each of those games. I could not leave. I was obsessed.
Haley, that's every game that you play.
They're
Rebirth
all
was so
good,
good
Jeff.
that you went back to remake. It's
Alan Wake.
What do you want me to say?
You love
they were
games,
crappy,
we
so I
get
went
it.
back.
Cool it.
Haley loves video games.
Sometimes.
It's so weird.
Video
Yeah,
games.
who's the biggest gamer here? We maybe should just let her pick
Definitely.
the
Yeah, you're right. I mean,
The
Undeniably.
character, I don't think I've talked about Like a Dragon yet, so if I could for like 1 minute,
Please.
because then I played 200 hours of them and don't say anything. It's so stupid. I've never liked characters more than 7 and 8 of the Yakuza series. I'm going to be going back now that I have way more free time. I'm planning on playing Zero next. I can't wait. I think those games, it's just, I love those boys and girls so much that they've like infiltrated my brain. They're my friends. Like, I truly love them to the point that I cannot wait to see Ichiban again. I cannot wait for their side pirate game. What the hell is that even? But I don't care because I get to see Majima again. Like, they've infiltrated every aspect of what I like with characterization and so quick too. Like, it was literally 2 hours into Infinite Wealth. And I stopped myself and went, nah, I need to do this right. I'm doing it wrong because I don't know Ichiban well enough, and I can already tell I love him. So I'm going to go back and spend 90 hours getting to know him.
I think you messaged me and you were like, do I need to play the first one? And I was like, I'm so sorry, Haley. Like, if you like it this much already, yes. You do.
And I'm so glad I did, because the game just gets better when you like those characters. You will bounce if you don't like the characters because, you know, the fighting's fun. It's fine. But that it's just the stride it hits with falling in love with those people. And I think, too, its extreme benefit, too, is I'm a newcomer to the series. And I loved Kiryu after, like, an hour.
Totally.
Like, how did they do that? I thought he was just kind of like a Geralt. I love Geralt, too. But he just seemed kind of like a stoic Geralt type. I was like, oh, he's a quiet boy. Like, oh, well. And by the end of it, I'm on Etsy looking up shirts with him on it.
Of course.
Like, it's insane.
just him, like,
got me.
confronting that cop in that bar, just like walking up as the cop has a gun pointed to him. He just confidently walks up and just grabs the gun and moves it away at the last second as it's firing. It's like, just, that should be so douchey of like, look, this guy's so cool. But for some reason with Kiryu, it's like, absolutely he's that cool.
It's like, don't
Show
touch
me
him.
more. Yeah, yeah.
I love him so much.
I mean, Haley. I mean, Kelsey, you're a good read on this too. I mean, is Like a Dragon worth moving up? I mean, is the only ding on Like a Dragon that the ending and larger story isn't as conclusive as we were hoping? Like, that's
I
my
would go
only
as far
ding.
to say the very end sucks. Like,
Okay.
it's pretty bad.
okay.
But
It's a little more than like non-conclusive. That was just an easy thing to grasp
Okay.
onto and explain without.
Yeah.
But the rest
I
of the
love
game
that.
is so good. Like, that I can kind of, like, I was just left with a bad taste in my mouth because I was like, you made a game this good and that's how you ended it? You know,
side quests are better than most main quests of other games.
Yep.
And it just so happens that the very last main quest wasn't very good. So it sucks that that's the last thing you get left with. But truly, any side quest you approach in this game is better than the main quest of, I'm going to say, any Final Fantasy.
How many have you played? You played one?
Ray's over
Oh my
here.
god, she's already dead, Haley.
Haley's out here delivering fucking sandwiches on a bike and was like, this eats so much more.
Yeah, you're
so much
everything.
Every Far Cry. Everyone happy with that?
Yeah, but
Yeah!
who's riding for Far Cry here, Haley? Like, come on.
I think
You said
Leo
what you
likes
said.
them.
He left. That's how he goes. Oh, he's back.
Who knows what's going on with him?
Haley, in your dream state, in your fantastical world, where is Infinite Wealth on this list?
It's number 3.
No. Not your personal list. On this list here.
Number 3.
Okay, sorry, Balatro. Moving down for Infinite Wealth.
I mean, I understand that not everyone played it / loves it, and it has that awful unfortunateness of having a bad taste after your mouth. I'd like to see it at number 6 and or 7.
I think that'd be cool.
And that's me being really, really like agreeable and gracious.
Whoa, that's dinging her own Lorelei. Kelsey, you're a good point on this. Like a Dragon and Helldivers. I know you like Helldivers 2 more. What do you think about it moving up a little bit here? Like a Dragon.
I mean, I can live with it.
You won't hurt my feelings if you don't want. I always like to say that. I just gave a passionate speech. But
I just feel like if it's only moving up one, like, what's the point? If it's getting above Lorelei, I'll understand more.
Yeah.
Because that's...
Guys, this was not. I propose swapping with Metaphoric. Leave Lorelei alone.
I know. I feel bad.
But it's like Lorelei has 2 stands, and Infinite Wealth has like 5 people here who love it.
Leo's a half.
Leo's a half. Yeah. Who? I mean,
I love Infinite Wealth. Oh wait, no, yeah. Well, I like Infinite Wealth more. Sorry. I don't want to get into that.
I'm just gonna see how this looks. Let's just try this on with Like a Dragon at number 7.
I comes before O, so
See you in the
That's
pissy
something.
zone, Kyle. Sorry.
get smarter colleagues. I don't know what to tell you, Kyle. I don't understand this game.
Guys,
Find a more academic workplace.
just text me. Text me pictures of your screen. I'll help you.
At a
I
certain
do it with
point,
Ben
it
all
would
the
have to
time.
be
I helped
you.
him through all kinds of puzzle games.
Kyle, you would have had
Check
to
the
play
tape.
the rest of this game for me entirely. Like, I was playing this with my partner who knows these games, and I'm like, I will just be watching you play. If I continue, I have to leave. And then I left, and it was good. One day I'll come back when I'm more trained
I left
for
and it was good.
Yeah, it was great. I felt like I made a great decision.
I'll save. For I have a pissy zone thought to share later about Lorelei. That'll be fun. So
Great.
But fight. This is the time.
Yeah,
Fight,
say
Kyle.
something.
no, this is
Fight.
good.
Say something. I dare you.
I
It's
was
good for him.
fighting
It
for
builds
infinite-
Say
character.
it to
I was
my
fighting
face.
for Infinite Wealth to go higher. So it has. And
Monkey
and,
paw,
monkey
girl.
paw.
Yeah.
I know exactly. I'm acknowledging the monkey
You
paw.
open the door.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is this the list? Right now we have.
Page Pass actually kind of had a dope idea of swapping Infinity Nikki and Prince of Persia, and then it's the list.
We can't use their
Ooh.
suggestions.
I'm very down for that.
I'm down for
If
that.
someone wants
I
to
would
fight
also
for
be
that,
down for that.
I mean, I do feel like
I'm not. I like
mean,
Prince of Persia where
number
it
one.
is.
Honestly,
Do you like
I feel like
number
Prince of Persia
one?
could move higher.
Ooh, we haven't really talked Prince of Persia.
I think we have enough Metroidvanias in the world.
People
I
have
don't
just
think we have
talked
enough
about-
dress-up
We
games.
got 1 on this list.
Again, are we sure? I ask you to look
Well,
within.
like 5
is
if
it
you count UFO
is it
50.
genre bias rearing its ugly head? You know, it's not which genre do I hate the most or am I tired of, right? We're sick of rogues. We're sick of Metroidvanias. I'll be honest, I'm sick of fucking Elden Ring. But guess what? A good game's a good game. And I think Prince of Persia is a fantastic game. I mean, obviously, if I am on that island alone or only with one other person, 2 other people, there's too many people to count on this island. It's actually huge. The population is booming. But genuinely, Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, played it early in the year, fantastic. This was my 1000 times resist, where I was like, guys, this game eats. It's so incredible. It's such an incredible take on this genre. It does so many smart things. Everything about this game feels good. More people need to play it. And I've been yelling about this game the whole year. And it's also one of this, just as a fun fact, because I don't think this like means anything in the greater scheme of things, I am constantly changing my list of top 10s as I go. I start like 3 months in and I keep going and I keep changing. Prince of Persia has outlived so many of these games. Like, it is one of the few things I feel like, boom, came out the gate strong. I'm confident in it. I love it. I think it's fantastic. The combat's super sick. Again, we already kind of talked about it already, so I don't have a lot new to share, but I think this game's incredible. It's my number 4 on my list.
I certainly like it more than Infinity Nikki.
Okay.
Yeah.
Say you hate women.
I will say, though, to be fair,
Ally.
the
Ally
outfits in Prince of Persia are trash. I will say that genuinely. The
outfits.
cosmetics are...
Yeah, it's like getting that pants was fun, but the pants are bad.
If we can end this right now, I will not push Infinity Nikki. If we can end this right now and move to the
We can
pissy
all
zone,
walk
Girl,
away.
don't make me talk about
You
how when
can't
you
end
hit...
it until you do that.
When you hit skip animation, the animation keeps going in Infinity Nikki, and I'm sorry. I do think the
they
clothes are
fixed it.
great.
they fixed it in this update that's coming out.
Wait, as of
Is it out
I
yet?
played
I don't
last
want
night.
any more
it out
tearing
yet?
down of Infinity Nikki.
No, I
okay?
love it.
I just
No
want this
tear.
to end.
Is it
No
out
tear.
yet? You
I've
come
only
for the
played,
prince, you
like,
best
3
not
games in the
miss.
top
What do you
10.
mean?
Figure your shit out amongst yourselves.
Hey,
Leave me out of it.
Sarah, this is what they want. This is what they want. They want to take 2 people whose games are like low middle in this list and then put them in a cage and fight for their entertainment. We're above it, Sarah. This has nothing to do with each other.
I thought we
never
were,
above
Janet.
it.
I thought we were. Apparently
I
not
didn't bring
both of
They
us.
brought Infinity Nikki up here. I was out here dragging down Lorelei and these other titles. I wasn't going to come for Infinity Nikki. It was already done.
My crime's being too big of an ally. I formally apologize.
Oh boy. The biggest outlier, if I'm being honest, on this list, the biggest thing that's like, I don't know, is I think Leo's being very modest with the finals. He put 400 hours into it. It's one of his favorite games ever. Like, and it's number 13.
Okay, timekeeper.
This has been creating an opening for Final Fantasy here too.
No.
Yeah,
No,
that's
this is
real.
there's no backdoor opening. No backdoor.
Mr.
This is
Timekeeper.
this is final
I put
check.
you into
Scared to
FIFA. Let's
open it.
bring that in here.
final check.
It's kind of the top of the solo passion projects, right?
Infinity Nikki is.
I think Infinity Nikki is.
Infinity
Fuck,
Nikki
it's
is.
4
Infinity
people.
Nikki.
That's not solo.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought you were talking about like the
Several people
number
played
1
that.
type thing. Okay. But I mean, Haley also played the finals.
Yeah. It's great. So what are we
I don't
talking
know if
about?
you can.
Proposing it
Sorry,
goes,
we're
man.
done.
Where do you want it to go?
I'm
Maybe
just
we'll
I'm
it.
saying I'm really happy with where it rose to.
I'm saying I'm not happy and convinced that you are happy. No, if you're fine with it, that one stood out to me as being off. But
I appreciate that.
okay,
It's
is
the
this
same as you trying to convince
Banner-
someone they actually did have fun in a game they didn't like, Ben, is you trying to convince
and
them
I would never do that.
Oh yeah, that was wild. I was like, what's going on?
I never did that.
Please.
No,
Ben, I
Ben
still-
specifically said, I'm not trying to do that, which is
Yeah.
to
Ben,
point out.
Ben
earlier.
actually took all of that in incredible stride. I was
Yeah.
I am shocked at how well you took all of that criticism of your game of the year. That sounds rough.
What you're doing right now is making me more uncomfortable than people kicking Final
sorry.
Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Oh, sorry, it sucks. It's bad.
Oh, thank God.
I still think you need to try to move it above Indiana Jones. I'm coming back to this, Ben.
Haley,
You guys just heard Sarah say to end this, and then we're just like poking
I feel like
things
we're
that
just
have been
looking at
set in
shaking
stone
things
for
up.
hours.
we're not obligated
This
to
is
end it when
why
one
I get
person
up in
raises
the
a
morning
hand.
is for
I think this
passion
looks pretty
debates.
good.
Yeah, is
I
anyone
like this
actually
list.
unhappy right now?
No, I
No.
just like the
No,
drama.
people
Not
are
any
just
more than
poking
usual,
on behalf
you know?
of other people.
I don't want it
We
to
don't need
end.
that.
Yeah.
But I know Ben will poke because he doesn't.
No, Leo,
want to
you
get
are
rid of it.
unhappy.
Haley,
Read the list,
I
Ben.
appreciate
Read
it.
the list.
Haley, I'm content
Read
with
the
this.
list.
I
But
appreciate
I like
read
Rebirth
the
too,
list.
so maybe I want it a little bit.
this. Okay, I think this is the list, y'all. Are we feeling okay?
Yeah, read the
Oh,
list.
now you think it's the list.
Correct. Now I think it's the list.
Not 10 minutes ago.
All right. Number 20, Starstruck, Hands of Time. Number 19,
I don't
Mini
think we
Shoot
should clap for all
It'll give
these.
Adventures.
morale up.
Just-
It'll
just
give
let it go.
morale
Just
up.
let it go.
Just do it.
I think the best thing we can do for morale is get to the pissy zone as quickly as possible.
I don't know if that's going to help. Number 18 is Diceomancer. Number 17 is Manor Lords.
Did you skip 19? You skipped 19.
Oh, there's too much applauding.
Yeah, take it off
Restart.
the list.
Okay.
Restart.
From the bottom
I played
to the
last night,
top.
didn't like it.
From the bottom to the top, Starstruck, Hands of Time, Mini Shoot apostrophe Adventures, Diceomancer, Manor Lords. And by the way, Jeff, if Diceomancer isn't a real game, you got to speak now. Forever hold your peace, because this is okay.
Wild thing to say.
Then Kunitsugami, Path of the Goddess, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, The Finals, Indica, Infinity Nikki, Top Tier, Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, Helldivers 2, Lorelei and the Laser Eyes, Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth, Mouthwashing, Metaphor Refantasio, UFO 50, Balatro, 1000 Times Resist, Astro Bot #1, greatest game of 2024. That's a 210s, everybody. That's
It's
a 210s.
over!
Oh, we're
Perfect
just getting
list.
warmed up.
You loved
We're
it,
just
Sarah.
getting warmed up. You love us, Sarah. Come on.
Yeah, I love listening to you guys debate over the top 4 games when we all know
I'll
that
know
it's just
what.
a matter of what you decide in the end.
Well, what's the point of a debate if
We're
not
starting this
that?
down early? Hold on.
What?
One
What?
game moved one spot down, and it was probably it felt like 3 hours of discussion.
You gotta test the
is hilarious.
system. All right, that's it, everybody,
zone time.
for the 210s. Thank you so much. If you enjoyed this format, if at any point throughout our Game of the Year debates you had a moment of like, I'm glad they're doing this. I'm glad an outlet exists like this, and it's doing this Game of the Year debate this style. If you enjoyed that, you can support it directly. Make sure it keeps continuing into the future by supporting us at E-Tier on Patreon. That $5 tier is a real sweet spot. You get early ad-free access to the MinnMax Show, Deepest Dive podcast, bonus pod every week with Haley, a ton more. Also, if you're new, thank you for being here. Check out the highlights. For MinnMax, we have a greatest hits playlist on YouTube if you want to see some things that we've done visually. I know there are thousands of you that only listen to our voices, but if you want to see what we're doing, because we do a bunch of other stuff, and the reason that we could use your support is, go check out that YouTube channel. There's a lot going on there, and Charles Hart just cut together a new highlight reel for the final quarter of 2024. So if you just want the best of the best, you can jump there on YouTube and see that.
And every one of us is really hot. You're really missing
You're going to
out
be
by
so
not
amazed
seeing
by how hot
videos.
we are. It's actually uncomfortable how attractive we
see.
all are, I feel like. But yeah, thank you so much for a great year here at MinnMax, everybody. Jumping in for the first time. We've managed to grow, and hopefully we're not letting you down with how we're using those resources to make MinnMax bigger, better, more appropriately, more sustainable. Like your support has meant that Leo can take over New Show Plus. He's editing Bonus Pod, like spreading things out a bit. It's all just in the interest of keeping it sustainable. We have cool things planned for 2024. In fact, one of them's coming up. The plan is the first week of January. So the next episode of the podcast is going to be a fun surprise for you. So hopefully you enjoy the direction we're going with MinnMax. I'm feeling really great about a couple different things in 2024. I think we got some fun stuff planned. And one of the things is coming up very, very soon. But that is it,
2025.
2025. Oh my gosh, thank you.
You
But
said it twice.
oh my gosh, why didn't you jump in earlier? But yes,
You wouldn't stop talking.
sorry. So many thanks to get around. All these games took a lot of time to play, and I'm not looking past the idea that, games are fun. There's 9 of us here. So coordinating this takes time out of these people's lives, playing all these games. It was a lot of nights of, I'm not going to go to bed with you tonight, honey. I'm going to choose to play this game instead. And so I'm thanking all of you.
For yourself.
Oh, sorry. Hey, I know you play a lot of it. But thank you all for a great year, for trying to absorb everything the game industry is spitting out. We do our best here. So thanks again for the support, and thanks to all the cohorts here for doing a great job throughout the year. And now the Pissy Zone. If you're at the $10 tier, the Backstage Pass tier, the $10 tier, this is where we unload our real thoughts. I got a crack of beer. We're diving into all this. If you jump in at the $10 tier, even just for 1 month, you unlock the Pissy Zone. You unlock the extended version of Charles visiting Osaka, Japan, the full Gift to the Max Travelode, the extended version of that, Dan Reichert's whole visit to Game Informer in 2003, the extended version of that, the full MinnMax Studio Tour, the extended version of the Pumpkin Patch Tour, Kelsey and I spending 8.5 hours in Portland. The video is only 8.5 hours. We were there for longer
We
than
spent
that.
longer than that in Portland.
Yeah, but it's a fun time for the MinnMax Spotlight. Let's see, the EverQuest MinnMax Spotlight.
Ben, they're sold. They want the piss.
I'll give them the piss. I uploaded my the films that we made in high school about EverQuest that launched the Not for EverQuest thing and the whole EverQuest Spotlight. So if you want to see some fan films I made in high school about EverQuest, that's also in there. There's literally hundreds and hundreds of hours. We'll have a whole post on Patreon, and it's in the Discord as well, with dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of hours of extended content. So thanks to everybody for jumping up to the $10 tier. Thank you so much for watching and listening. MinnMax, so MinnMax this year, greatly appreciate it. And now, let's get to the piss. All right, until next time. All right, we're in the pissy zone. Tune in, everybody. Be good, have fun, let's go.